From butter chicken to soaring crime rates, diversity has its ups and downs, and we've all lost a little weight and gained a little weight, so we know ups and downs are a part of life. But we are told in Western countries, particularly, a question already arises when I say that. What do I mean by Western? Does Western mean a country based on ideology, such as America is an idea? Or does diversity mean white countries and the lessening and the browning of the countries, as Ben Shapiro famously said, I don't give a damn about the browning of America? To ask this question and to jump into the great debate, master debaters here are with me today to talk directly to you about, is diversity our strength? This is going to be no hold back conversation. We're going to try to keep it civil in the beginning, and in the end, they both have a pistol in their pocket with one bullet, which they can either use on each other or they can use on themselves if things go poorly. To the Australian government, I'm letting you know that was a joke. Anyway, I'd like to introduce my guests, but I'll let them introduce themselves directly. On the side, arguing against diversity, we'll go straight to Joel. Joel, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us who you are. A little bit of background on your ideology, how you would describe your political background, and maybe anything interesting, such as shows that you do or content that you create that people can follow.
Yeah, so I'm a white identitarian. That's how I describe my politics. And I've been a content creator for several years now. I've been banned from YouTube, but you can watch my streams on Rumble, as well as Odyssey and Cozy.tv. And you can find me on Twitter and Telegram. My handle on both platforms is Joel Davis X. It was kind of fortuitous that I put an X at the end of the name before Twitter became X.com, I guess. But yeah, Joel Davis was already taken, so you can find me there.
Well, you seem very relaxed. You seem like you're just kicking back, drinking a beer. So I guess the nerves aren't so high here. To my other guests arguing, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so you can describe what you're arguing. Introduce yourself. Where are you coming from on this question? Diversity is your strength. By the way, this is not opening statement, so go ahead and tell us who you are.
My name's Drew Pavlou. I believe in liberal democracy. I believe in liberalism. I think that Elijah and Joel think that I'm going to sit here and argue that, we must have infinity migration and open borders for butter chicken and taco trucks on every corner. That is actually not what I'm arguing. What I'm arguing against is the idea of a white ethno-state, and Joel's idea that anybody who doesn't fit his Takfiri idea of pure Aryan blood and stock should be deported en masse through violence. So that's what I'm arguing against. I personally, I'm not the biggest fan of some of the woke far left stuff. I'm also a big opponent of the far right and also communism, because my ideology, my position is basically one in favor of liberalism, and so I see both fascism, Nazism, and communism, all totalitarian ideologies, as basically the enemy of the enemy of a good society. My idea of a good society is that human beings are judged as individuals based on their own character, merit, their own accomplishments, and people aren't defined by their color or their skin or their blood, as Joel wants us to go down. Joel wants us to go down that route. So I'm a long-term sort of, I guess, content creator, activist, etc. I've been condemned by the Chinese government over the years, faced a lot of arrests and bomb threats and death threats and stuff like that by the Chinese government because I went up against the communists. But I've also, as well, received quite a lot of the death threats and attacks from the Nazis and the fascists. And so, look, I'm basically equal opportunity opponent against any totalitarian ideology, be they communism, Nazism, fascism, etc. We're supporting liberalism, democracy, idea that human beings should be judged on their own merit, character, their own accomplishments, rather than skin color and race.
Hell yeah. All right, my name's Elijah Schaefer, and this is Nightly Offensive. Don't forget that this show is directly brought to you by Censored TV. If you go to censored.tv, it is a free speech website where we are fighting against censorship. We have people on all ends of the views, especially on critical issues like Zionism. I mean, we disagree on those issues, even on race, what to do on these things, but we do have one thing together. All of our tech, our finances are on alt tech on our own servers, which means we are cancel proof. We have backups for our backups. If you want to support free speech and show shows like this, make sure you sign up today at censored.tv. Use my promo code OFFENSIVE, OFFENSIVE, for 20% off. Join the fight against censorship, support people today, and make this kind of show possible by directly putting your money where your mouth is. All right, let's get right into this. Before we do our opening statements, I want to always define terms because sometimes I think that we have discussions and we think we're talking about the same thing, but we simply are not. So when I bring up the word diversity, we'll go straight to Joel here. What do you think that means? And we're going to keep the context here in terms of Western civilization, Western countries, the country we're in today, Australia, the United States. That's the context. Go ahead, Joel. What does diversity mean to you, defining the term?
Well, what diversity means, according to the common parlance, according to the definition that is adhered to by the people who rule us, diversity actually means more non-whites or more other types of minorities, maybe sexual minorities, like more homosexuals, more transgender people or whatever. But generally speaking, it means more non-whites. That's how they use it. But it's kind of ridiculous because to have diversity as a value, this implies two things. One, the term diversity means difference, basically. It means that we value difference. But at the same time, it's paired with this notion of inclusion or this notion of equality. And so it's saying on the one hand that we value difference, but on the other hand that we actually don't value any differences differently, that all differences are equal. And so in this way, it actually is kind of against the principle of diversity. It's saying we don't actually want to preserve any of these differences. We don't value any of these differences. People should be seen as though these differences don't exist and treated as though these differences don't exist. And we shouldn't try to do anything to preserve those differences. In fact, we should actively destroy those differences. So actually, the way that diversity is employed by the establishment is against diversity. It's saying, no, we don't actually value diversity at all. Someone like me who says we should keep people separate so that we can maintain their differences. Apparently, I'm an enemy of diversity, but actually, my ideology would actually preserve diversity, ironically. And this just kind of exposes the ridiculousness of the way this term is employed and the elevation of it as a value in our society. So what it really means, it's just a way of saying less white people. It's saying, if we have a movie where every character is black, you'll get these leftists that will say, wow, look at all this diversity. Of course, it's not diverse at all. Everyone's black. There's no difference between them. What they really mean is that it's non-whites are there. And we see this deployed over and over again. Now, it's held up as a value. Whenever we have diversity and inclusion, it's always paired to the idea of deconstructing white supremacy. This idea that in countries which are historically white, our country was founded by white nationalists. Every single founding father and the first 16 prime ministers of Australia, out of the 31 prime ministers we've ever had, they were all white nationalists. And they explicitly founded this place as a white nationalist state with something called the White Australia policy, which wasn't abolished completely until the 1970s. So for the majority of this country's history as an independent state, it was a white nationalist country. Now, if we turn to some of these prime ministers, they would say things like, well, we don't necessarily hate other races. We don't think necessarily we're superior to Japanese people or Chinese people. We just want to keep them out of the country because we fear them taking over our country. They outnumber us. We exist in close proximity to them. If we allow a large portion of their populations to enter Australia, we could basically lose control of our country. So the idea of being against diversity was about preserving the white man's land, that we would maintain white values, that we would maintain a white way of life, that we would maintain control of our own affairs, our own self-determination. This is the idea of nationalism. The notion of diversity is being employed in all white countries to destroy the capacity for whites to maintain control, maintain positions of power over the countries that we built and we founded. So it's always employed to basically elevate non-whites into positions of power and elevate non-whites into positions of prominent representation. So again, they don't actually value diversity. They want to undermine the diversity of our countries or of the world, of the human race, by basically dissolving white people into this soup, this racial and ethnic soup, where at some point in the future, white people will no longer exist, because if they keep filling our countries with non-whites and they keep encouraging us to miscegenate and so on, eventually whites will become a smaller and smaller faction. We'll lose control over our own affairs. We'll lose control over our own countries. Imagine going to China and saying this is a yellow supremacist country, or going to Nigeria and saying this is a black supremacist country. They'd just laugh at you, of course. It's not diverse enough. Of course, no one says that. No one complains about the lack of diversity anywhere other than in white spaces, white countries, white power structures created by white people to serve white people. So what diversity really means is white genocide on a long enough timeline. You keep promoting enough diversity and inclusion. Eventually, there's nowhere where whites can maintain our difference. There's nowhere where whites can maintain our form of diversity, our difference from the rest of the human race. And so it's the annihilation of white difference and therefore of whiteness.
All right, so going to that, you don't have to actually even rebuttal this, but I saw you were obviously making some sighs. You clearly don't agree with that. So defining the terms, diversity, what does that mean to you? And feel free to add a rebuttal towards the end if you want to of what he said.
So I'm not going to be arguing the straw man position that Joel wants me to argue. I'm not going to be basically giving the same monologue that, say, Kamala Harris would be making. I'm not going to say that diversity in and of itself is the most beautiful thing ever and all white people need to bend the knee, etc. Like, I don't agree with like the hardcore ultra-left wokeness sort of stuff because some people on the ultra-left, the communist left, on the extremes, they do want to see the destruction of basically any Western country. I don't support that. So what I am arguing for is diversity in the sense that diversity has always existed. It is a fact of life. It is a feature of life. No two human beings are the same. No two human beings anywhere on earth are the same. You can have two people of the same, Aryan racial stock as Joel would have it, and they will have differences. They will have different morality. They'll have different intellectual attributes. They will have different personalities. They will have different likes, dislikes, interests. And so diversity is a feature of existence. Diversity is a feature of literally the universe. If you had to try and eradicate diversity, you would have a totally static universe where life is impossible. It's like trying to eradicate the dialectic. It's impossible. And so all of humanity, all of existence is characterized by diversity. The fact that people have different views, different talents, different interests. And I like diversity in the sense that I like being able to have a different opinion to, say, Joel, or have a different way of living my life to another person. I don't want anybody to be telling me how to live my life, what I should be doing. I don't want people to be interfering with my loved ones, with my family. I want to be left alone, basically, by the state. I don't believe in the types of... To create the world that Joel wants, which would involve the mass deportation of millions of people and obviously massive amounts of violence, including murder of millions of people, it would be total totalitarianism. The actual reason for even being a human being would be destroyed because we would live in a world of total nihilistic bloodshed and disaster and destruction. And this is what happened in the middle of the 20th century when people decided that they wanted to create these totally purified states and they tried to eradicate other people based on their differences. And the result was mass destruction, bloodshed, disaster for all of humanity. I believe that while we are all different in different ways, I believe that while no two people are the same, each person has the same moral worth. I believe all human beings have the same moral worth as one another, regardless of their accomplishments, intelligence, regardless of their cultural background, regardless of anything. I believe that human life is important. Because I am a Christian, I believe that human life is very sacred and very important. And so I think nobody should be judged based on the color of their skin, based on irreducible characteristics that they have no control over. So for example, Joel believes that I am some kind of racial mongrel, blah, 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 because I am not pure Anglo-Celtic Aryan heritage stock or whatever. And this is just a cope way of viewing the world. This is just an ideology of grievance and an ideology of resentment. It's a cope for one's own personal failings, to blame it on other people based on their own irreducible characteristics. I can't get ahead in life. Oh, it must be the Jews. Oh, it must be the gays. Or it must be transgender people. It's a cope ideology. People should focus on their own lives, their own families. I believe in liberalism. So I believe people should be free of government interference. People should be free of government tyranny. I don't want the world in which the world that Joel wants. To create the world that Joel wants, which would necessitate massive ethnic cleansing, etc., you would need a totalitarian government. And this totalitarian government would control what people think, what people do, what people say. They would ban books, they'd ban movies, they'd ban music. It would be basically, it's almost like this ideology is like kind of like a white ethno-nationalist type of Takfiri ISIS-style politics. I mean, it's almost like white ISIS, this type of ideology, controlling everything, trying to eradicate, try to purify everything. You ban dancing, you ban music, you ban people having fun. Everybody must be the same.
I'm banning dancing and music.
Well, this is basically but this is what it would.
This is your argument.
No, but this is you can.
Why don't you talk? We're defining
Joel,
diversity.
I'm still talking.
Can you tell us what diversity is
Joel,
to you?
Joel,
We're supposed to define terms.
Joel, this is still my opening.
What did Elijah
this
ask?
This is my opening statement.
Diversity.
So
tell me what diversity is.
This is my opening statement. I'm saying that diversity is a feature of all human existence. All civilization is characterized by diversity because no two human beings are the same. Every person has the same moral worth as an individual, as a human being, but no two individuals are the same, and no one should be judged or deported or persecuted based on their race, based on irreducible characteristics. And I'm saying, as part of your quest to establish this world of purification, and this is where I see it going down like the almost ISIS-style line. So you want to purify the world, eradicate all difference. You are trying to eradicate people who don't fit your Aryan racial heritage stock worldview. You want to eradicate that from Australia. And to create that, you would necessarily have to create a totalitarian government that would control how people think, what people do and say. People would be persecuted. People would be whisked off the street, black-bagged, disappeared. This is the type of world that you would have to create in order to purify Australia and create the ideal Australia of your dreams. You'd have to create a totalitarian government. You'd have to destroy democracy. You'd have to destroy, even to me, all the things that are important about being a human being, all the things that are actually amazing about being a human being, the ability to express yourself freely, the ability to participate in culture, the ability to interact with other people. All of this would have to be strictly modified and controlled and regimented in order to create your world. This is why I strongly oppose it. This is why I hate this ideology, because to create the world that you want, it would require massive totalitarianism, massive infringements on freedoms, personal liberties. You would have to basically destroy everything that makes Australia the country it is today. You'd have to absolutely destroy it, and there'd have to be massive violence involving millions of people at war.
Let me come in here, because these are some pretty serious accusations, and I'm not even saying that you're wrong, because I'm going to take a very neutral position, and I want people to know that my goal is not to make either of the parties here seem right or wrong, or to somehow assist Joel or Drew or anyone that's here today. What I want to do is I want to get down to the bottom of this. So I get this right real quickly before we throw it to Joel. Joel defined diversity. I think your diversity, you were saying diversity. Could you clarify just one sentence what diversity was?
The way I see diversity, I think diversity is just a basic fact of human life, human existence, human civilization, because no two individuals are the same.
All right, great. So I guess that's important then, because I think we're talking about racial homogeny versus a non-racial homogenous society. But I do understand, Joel, he's saying three things, right? You called it white ISIS. We brought up totalitarianism, disappearing people. And this does happen in countries. There is religious extremism. There is ethno-nationalism. Countries like Israel are like mono-ethno states. And they are bombing, Gaza, and they don't really care what's going on there, whether you support them or not. So is that what you're arguing? Are you arguing for this sort of totalitarian, disappearing, black bag society? Is he wrong, or are you hiding something? Like, is this what's veiled behind something?
Well, there's a lot in what he said, so let me go through it piece by piece. First of all, he defined diversity as every human being is different. This is an obvious and banal truth. The question, though, is why are we different? And this gets to the question of what is race, because race is essentially a grouping of genetic similarity. So insofar as we are embodied in the world, that we have organic bodies that are coded by genetics, our differences are largely determined, not entirely, but largely determined by these genetic differences. I was born with a particular nature, and that is a nature that I inherited from my ancestors and so on. So if you look at the genetic differences between human beings, the largest genetic differences between human beings pertain to neurophysiology. They pertain to the genes that code for literally how we think, how we feel, how we interpret the world, how we respond to the world. More so than skin color. Skin color is banal in comparison to the differences between human beings when it comes to how we think, feel, act, and so on. The things that are really essential about what makes us human. Now, these are the differences, therefore, that are most pronounced by race. So the genetics being different across... So I'm more similar genetically to every other white person on Earth than every non-white person on Earth. And every white person is more similar to every other white person than every non-white person on Earth. That's just a scientific fact. That means that the genes that code for how white people think and feel and interpret the world are more similar to one another than they are to any non-white person, right? So when we're talking about the differences between people, we're talking about largely genetically determined differences, not entirely, but largely. And there's a plethora of research on this. I don't think Drew and I are going to end up having a discussion about neuroscience and evolutionary biology and so on. I don't think he's really equipped for that discussion, frankly. But also, I don't think that really needs to discuss that. It's just a scientific fact. Drew can't sit there and tell me that racial differences don't genetically or biologically exist. And he can't tell me that the differences are not more similar, that the differences between us aren't largely determined by our nature, right? If you're a woman, you're genetically predisposed to think and act differently because you have a feminine nature. It's the same if you're black. That's why black people have a particular style. Black people, they create particular kind of culture that non-black people couldn't create. Just like white people create a particular kind of culture that non-white people couldn't create, and Asians and so on. That's why we have different cultures, right? We can just ostensibly see this in the world. Look at like black Americans, the kind of music they create, the way that they talk, the way they carry themselves, and just notice that it's different. Why is it different, right? There's an obvious explanation for why it's different. Now, this is important because when you try to have a society, you want to build a society around a certain amount of consensus. Otherwise, you're fighting with one another. Otherwise, you're in a situation of battles between people with different mentalities and different views. And this creates conflict, and this ends up destroying and undermining the capability for your society to actually embody any values at all, or if it does, it becomes oppressive. One group oppresses the other, and this produces a cycle of conflict, and this is bad for everyone. So you want to have a society in which people are more similar, if possible, so that we can have a similar idea of the kind of way of life that we want to have. This was the idea behind Australia when it was created. It was created as a white ethno-state. The first thing the Australian government ever did was introduce a bill to the parliament. The first thing that ever happened in Australian political history as Australia's independent state was a bill before the parliament to deport non-whites from Australia and to institute an immigration policy that prevented non-whites from immigrating here. That was literally the first thing our country ever did. It was a liberal democracy, by the way. It embodied all of these values that Drew apparently defends. They didn't black bag anyone. They weren't this totalitarian genocidal regime. They were simply trying to preserve a population that shared a culture and shared a way of life. And this produced an amazing country. Australia became one of the most prosperous and wonderful places to live in the entire world. We built beautiful cities. We built a paradise on earth by comparison to the rest of the world. Australia is still, even despite the fact that it's declined to a very large extent, is still a paradise compared to the vast majority of the world. And it's because of white people building it with our values, these liberal democratic values that Drew claims to believe in. They were created by white people, right? They were actually, he believes in stuff that white people created, that's an expression of our culture, our civilization. And it produced a free, open, incredible society where we could have scientific innovation, where we could have economic development, and we could have peace. And the reason why we could have all of these things was because of the people, right? Things don't just happen magically. Things happen because people do things. Now, why do people do things? Well, because it's their nature to do things, which then gets us back to a discussion of race and genetics. So the point that I'm making is, if you bring, I don't believe in what's called magic dirt theory. I don't believe if you get a bunch of Sudanese people and you just move them into Australia, that they magically become Australian, right? They'll all of a sudden become like Russell Coight or something. They'll all become like, it's standard Aussie they won't just adopt our values, adopt our way of life, and just start behaving like Australians. No, because they're not physically predisposed to do that, right? They just simply don't have that nature. They have the nature of being Sudanese. And if you want to know what it's like to have a country full of Sudanese people, look at Sudan. That's what it's like. It's not great.
I want to clarify, because I want to give Drew here a chance to rebuttal this. So you're making an argument about the genetic predisposition towards our genes, which would be our race, right, or our shared collective genetic background, does determine the way we think, we process, and our demeanor, our behavior. That collective behavior then defines a society, and that society defines our legacy. And so that's why there is a particular bent or type of bent around the world. And I just want to know, are you saying that's the main driving factor behind what makes a country great? Or as many people would say, well, Africa's actually, disadvantaged because of colonialism, right? There's a lot of other factors people would bring up. I don't need to list them all here. Before I go,
Africa's disadvantaged because it's full of Africans. Sub-Saharan Africa, before white people showed up, they hadn't even invented the wheel yet, right? So they could point the finger at the white man, but they couldn't even invent a fucking wheel until we showed up, okay? So whose fault is it for their lack of development? Whose fault is it for their... If Africa is far more prosperous today than it would be if we didn't exist, if we had just left it alone, they'd still be walking around. Like literally, they'd just be only walking around because they wouldn't have any machinery. They wouldn't have any other mode of transport other than walking around. That's how backwards these people were, right? So they should be getting down on their hands and knees and worshipping us for colonizing them, if anything. Now they've got electricity. They've got the capacity to not die of mass starvation. They've got all these incredible benefits of modern technology that they wouldn't have if it wasn't for us.
Drew, I mean, obviously you disagree. I just want to make sure that you hit on two notes there. On make sure that whatever you're going to say, that you address his point about race being like the leading factor, right? Genetics and background to the overall culture, and say whatever else you want. But I'd love to know your opinion on that.
I mean, it's obvious that I strongly disagree with Joel's characterization that all Africans should worship white people. I mean, I'm not going to go down these rabbit holes though, because I'm going to try and keep this topic limited to Australia. Now, while Joel states, all human beings are defined by their race, and then race produces culture, I would like him to explain how there can be two people of the same, say, white race, and yet one will believe in communism and one will believe in fascism, one will believe in liberalism. Now, I saw a guy on Twitter the other day. There was an Indian English bloke, and he wraps himself in the St. George flag, and he says, "I love England. I completely identify as an English, as a member of the English country, as I completely identify myself with the UK. This is my home. This is my country. I love the UK. This is what I support. I would die for the country." And a guy like Joel responds, "This is not your country. Go home." Now, I don't understand why it is that somebody who moves to a country like England, or moves to a country like Australia, or moves to a country like the United States, and they might be of a different ethnic background, but they strongly identify with their new home. They take part. They learn the language. They participate in the culture. They do everything they can to integrate and assimilate into the society, and to uphold this new country and uphold their country, this new home that they're now living in. I don't understand why they are enemies that should be deported and persecuted, etc. Yet a kid who might have two, beautiful Aryan stock parents goes to university, decides that Australia is evil and should be abolished and burn down the country, etc. Why is so that kid who's completely of, according to Joel, perfect race, should have the same mindset as the other, super soldier and Aryan, blah blah blah. Why is that guy? Why do we say, well, he's also Australian, the white kid is also Australian, where he's on the same side as Joel, and it's the guy who wants to destroy Australia and wants to burn it to the ground. However, an immigrant who comes to Australia completely identifies with Australia, they're Australian for all intents and purposes. They wrap themselves around the flag. They love this country. They will do everything to promote it and protect it. They're doing everything to be part of this new society, part of the society. Why they have to be deported and persecuted? Whereas there are these kids at the university, pure Aryan super soldier stock, and yet they hate Australia. They want to burn down Australia to the ground. Now, this doesn't make much sense to me because according to Joel, all people of the same race have the same genetic predispositions, and all people of the same race must think the same, which doesn't make sense because
They think the same. I said they think more similarly.
They think more similarly, but I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me because, I mean, look, I'm Greek Cypriot, and Joel will try to say, oh, well, you're actually Turkish, you're Mongol, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, most people, when I'm walking on the street, would just go, that guy's white. And, you know, I remember when I was back at the university and I was protesting against the Chinese Communist Party, the social alternative guys used to go, that guy is a white nationalist, Drew is a white supremacist. Here's the funny irony, right? They did it to troll me, but Joel's friends in the National Socialist Network, when I was getting expelled from the University of Queensland because I was protesting against the Chinese Communist Party on campus, I was protesting against the university's ties to the Chinese Communist Party, and they knew that I was of the left. They knew that I was not at all associated with their ideology. That I hated their ideology. But they went out to UQ one day as an attention-seeking thing. They went in the middle of the night with balaclavas on, held like a swastika flag, and were like, yeah, we support Drew Pavlou, Australia for the white man, just to troll me, I guess. And it's obviously a great troll, and Thomas Sewell and them, they're all laughing, et cetera, et cetera. But how is it that back then, Drew's white, now they go, oh, Drew is a racial mongrel, blah, 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 he's Turkish, blah, 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 all this stuff. He's not pure Aryan stock, so we're going to deport him, which is the type of like unhinged, demented, mentally ill Twitter commentary that I get from his friends all the time. So they've decided one day that Drew is white Aryan man, we're going to defend him from the University of Queensland. The next day, Drew's to be deported. If I'm supposed to be white, most people in the street would probably say that I'm white. How come I have a different point of view to Joel? Why do I not believe in a total white ethno-state where people should be, you know, deported violently if they refuse to be deported? Why do I not believe in this sort of society? And also Joel, he goes, oh, well, Australia was founded with the White Australia policy. Yes, historically, this is true. And he goes, well, we were still a liberal democracy back then. There were no black bags. There were no disappearances. Here is a fact of life, Joel. The morality of Australia changed over 124 years. People decided, the vast majority of Australians, and they themselves being white, decided that they didn't want to support the White Australia policy anymore. This gradually changed over time. And you'll say it started in the 70s and it was a Labor thing by Gough Whitlam. In fact, Menzies and the right-wing Liberal Party actually, some argued, took the first steps towards dismantling the White Australia policy. So Australia, obviously the morality of the country changed over 124 years. And I guess you'll try and say, well, the Jews secretly deceived everybody or whatever it is. But the morality of people changed over time. But how do you explain this? Because aren't all white people supposed to think similarly? Aren't we supposed to all have this inherent tribalism? And aren't we all supposed to be on the same side to preserve the Aryan racial stock? I mean, you guys have a lot of problems in making this argument because you like to say, well, Australia was perfectly homogenous. But even when Australia had the White Australia policy, there was still a great deal of sectarian tension between Irish Australians and British Australians. There was a great deal of sectarian tension to the extent that people like Ned Kelly literally took up arms, and Ned Kelly viewed himself as a kind of like Irish revolutionary against the crown, and he wanted to establish a republic, and he was killing officers of the crown. Now, how do you explain this? How do you explain this? The fact that, you know, Australia, aren't all white people supposed to be thinking similarly? You look at the Troubles in Northern Ireland. A racially homogenous society, basically. And yet people were at each other's throats, and there was a civil war, and people were blowing each other up, and there was brutal racial violence, basically brutal sectarian violence. How do you explain that in your ideology without just coping, oh, well, the Jews unfortunately corrupted their consciousnesses as the white man?
I just want to clarify something for the American audience real fast. So you know why we're arguing from an Australian perspective here before you tune out, because obviously America is the best country in the world and no other country really matters. But I do want to say the reason why is because while America did have, of course, you know, anti-immigration policies, and it was in 1965 that we transferred and changed our white American policy, it wasn't expressly defined as a white policy. It was definitely enforced as such. But Australia is a newer nation than the United States, so it's a younger country, and they directly called it the White Australia policy. So it was an openly white nationalist country where the prime ministers were openly white nationalists. This is not a modern, you know, hey, I'm racist, but I don't want anyone to know it. This was like, we want Australia to be white. Everyone's in agreement that's supporting this policy, and this is what we're doing. So it's a very important policy to discover, because we're not talking about thousands and thousands of years of history like in Europe, or even, 400 or 500, years when we go back to the colonies. This is a very, very new nation in its definition, and it also never had a revolution. So it technically is still a part of the crown, and it defines and represents a greater struggle in all of Western Europe and the United States. And I want to talk a little bit about this. Before we discuss that, I just want to give a huge shout out to one of the sponsors for today's show. Guys, it is important to realize that no matter where you are, we've talked a lot about this, that inflation has hit America like none other. We know that in our banks, in our institutions, our money has no value. It's lost 25% of its purchasing power since 2020. In 4 years, we've lost over 25% of our value, which means that you've got to invest your money into something more reputable like crypto and gold and silver. My friends at American Hartford Gold, there are links in the description. There are numbers in the description, and you can text OFFENSIVE to a number if you want to get their free gold kit that'll help you to know how to invest your money, your retirement, your savings, and your 401k today into a gold-backed and silver-backed retirement savings account. If you have 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, it doesn't matter. It's not doing any good in your bank account. When you call them today, the link's in the description. You can find out how to get over $5,000 of free silver directly. You can call the number, you can text OFFENSIVE to their number, or you can click the link 3 ways that you can easily find out how to protect your retirement savings, 401k, or just the money in your bank. Don't wait until it's too late. Do not let your money sit there. It's losing its value. American Hartford Gold has hundreds of 5-star ratings from the Better Business Bureau. They're a AAA+ rated company as well, and they have your back and have dealt with billions, they say, of dollars of investments. Trust American Hartford Gold. They've got your back. Find out how to get $5,000 of free silver today when you invest with American Hartford Gold. Links in the description. I want to cut YouTube. I don't know why we're still on YouTube, Brian. Real fast. Cut YouTube real fast, because where we're going to go with this conversation, we cannot talk about this on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, I don't know. We don't know why we're on YouTube. Sorry. Bye, guys. We're cutting that off.
I had a couple more points just before.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's actually my turn to
wait.
It's my turn to respond.
Yeah, but let me cut
you.
YouTube.
All your points, though.
Let me cut YouTube real fast.
More chances to speak.
Let me cut YouTube real fast.
You yacked on for ages.
Are we good? Are we good?
Chance to talk.
All right, we're good. All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Joel. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And then I want to take the conversation in a kind of interesting, hearing your points now. There's kind of a direction I want to go. So go ahead and rebuttal that, and then we're going to take it in another direction.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm trying to remember everything that he said. One of the things that he brought up was how there was ethnic tensions between the Irish and the English, or the British in general. And obviously that's true. And that just really only kind of exemplifies my point. Like, if you have ethnic tensions between the Irish and the English, and that was really destructive and caused all this tension, let's just bring every ethnicity on the whole planet and stuff them into our country.
But they're now
Shut
seen
the
as
fuck
white.
up. Shut the fuck up, man.
That's
I'm
the thing.
talking.
Irish Australians are seen as white now.
Shut up. Now, what's important to recognize here is that ethnic tensions are a human universal. Every country in the world came into existence on the basis of basically ethnic tensions. Nationalism is the most powerful ideology in the modern world. Drew is a big supporter of Ukraine. Now, why are the Ukrainians fighting the Russians? They're fighting the Russians because the Ukrainians see themselves as a distinct ethnic group, and they don't want to be dominated by a foreign a government and an empire basically controlled by people who aren't Ukrainian. They want Ukrainians to control the destiny of Ukrainians, which makes sense. In the same reason that the Irish wanted the Irish to control the destiny of the Irish. And it's the same reason why white Australia was founded by white nationalists, many of whom were Irish, but that we kind of came together because in the 19th century, we had all this ethnic tension. He mentioned Ned Kelly. Ned Kelly was back before Australia was federated. There was a lot of tension between the Irish and the English and the Scottish and so on. But we overcame that tension because then a bunch of Chinese came in during the gold rush, and we realized, hey, wait a second, we've got more in common than we previously thought. And so basically, white nationalism was created through the unity of the Irish and the English, the English working class and the Irish in Australia. And it became a dominant ideology to the point that the entire country was federated and controlled by white nationalists for the first half of our country's history. And Australia was preserved as basically a 99% plus white country, right, until the 1970s. That's just a fact. That's how history played out. He can shake his head, but that's literally what happened.
It wasn't 99% white because there always have been indigenous
Yeah,
Australians.
and there's fuck all indigenous people.
There always have been indigenous.
I think,
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. The percentage of
I think there was
99% white is
280,000,
accurate.
right? I think there was 280,000
even
indigenous.
in your white Australia era, it was about 90. It was obviously it was still.
You don't actually know what you're talking about. You just say it was about. You don't
no,
actually know
it
the
was,
statistics.
It was 95. Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't.
I understand
No,
it was
wasn't.
95%.
Even today,
plus, but
Aboriginals today, and a lot of people claim to be Aboriginals, but they look like me. So they're barely Aboriginal, if at all, because you get all these government benefits and so on, affirmative action and so on. So the Aboriginal, if you look at the census, between the last census in 2016 and 2021, somehow all of these new Aboriginals spontaneously entered into existence, and the percentage went way up because people are claiming to be Aboriginal. They don't do genetic testing to determine if you're Aboriginal, by the way. So a lot of people claim to be Aboriginal who aren't, but even today, with all of the incentive structure set up to get people to claim to be Aboriginal who aren't Aboriginal, there's still a very small percentage, like 2% of the population, right? So if we go back in time, it wouldn't be 5% Aboriginal, it wouldn't be 10, like that doesn't actually make any sense. And if you look at the data, the old census data from the 1960s or the 1970s, you'll see that. Everyone at home can go and Google it themselves. But anyway, the Aboriginals were here already. The point is that they didn't allow any non-whites to come in, and the whites that immigrated in from places like China and so on were largely deported. A few small remnants of them remained, but
whites
they were
from China.
No, you know what I mean. People from China and so on, they were largely deported. So the point is that Australia was founded as a white nationalist country. And what was the reason why it was founded as a white nationalist country? It was founded for the same reason that Ukraine wants to stay Ukrainian, that the Irish resisted the British Empire, because we wanted to, white Australians, there was an ethnogenesis. We moved here, we developed our own kind of independent culture. There was a large mixing between the Irish and the English, interbreeding and so on. We developed our own...
I thought that's bad. I thought that's bad, man.
We developed our own
Interbreeding,
culture.
isn't
We
that
developed
supposed to be
our
bad?
own kind of sense of ethnicity. And we wanted to determine basically determine our own lives. We wanted to have a society.
Can
and
you
a country.
explain why interbreeding between Irish and English Australians is good?
It's just a fact. Now, Irish and English people are very closely related. They have a lot of common ancestors. So they're not different races. They are different ethnicities within the same race. Now, you look at, like, for example, the Chinese people. The Chinese people are composed of all these different sub-ethnicities. And if you look at the genetic modeling, the differences between the sub-ethnicities of the Chinese people are actually larger than between all Europeans. So the similarity between, English people and Germans and Swedes and Irish and so on are very minuscule in genetic terms when referencing to other populations. But even still,
So very minuscule, but they could still go to war with one another for
even those
centuries.
small differences are enough to create tensions. So that shows when you try to mush a whole bunch of different groups into one space, it will always cause tension. We see tension everywhere in the world where there are multiracial societies. You're a big opponent of Chinese government influence in Australia.
Chinese Communist Party.
If we didn't,
I'm not
if we
against
didn't,
Chinese Australians.
yeah, okay, but if we didn't have any Chinese people here, there wouldn't be any influence from the Chinese Communist Party.
No, that's wrong.
They wouldn't have any mechanisms by which to establish influence in our country.
Are there Chinese people in Latvia? Are there Chinese people in Lithuania? Very, very low percentages in Europe, for example, but the Chinese Communist Party is still able to interfere and wage authoritarian influence
They're not able
operations.
to infiltrate institutions and take over institutions like in Australia, where, for example, our universities are filled with Chinese people.
There's nothing wrong with people being Chinese in and of themselves. The problem is
I'm
the
not
Chinese
saying,
Communist Party
I didn't
and its
actually
ideology.
say that. I just said that if you have a large Chinese diaspora, it's logical that will give an ability for the Chinese government
let me
to influence
see
Australian
real
politics
fast,
and
Joel.
Australian society more.
I know
That's
what
just
you're- I
obvious.
know what you're
You got a lot
saying.
of Jews in America. Israel's
Joel.
able to have more influence over the United States
right.
than if there weren't any Jews in America.
Okay, but Joel, what I want to clarify, because I might be hearing a contradiction between you two here. I want to go to Drew real quickly. Let me ask you this, because you're talking about, you said, maybe Australian doesn't just mean white people, but you referenced the Chinese here as Chinese. Can you explain what you mean by that? What changes a Chinese person when they come to Australia? Is it when they come on a student visa that they are Chinese, but when they change to a residency or a citizen, now they're Australian? What changes a Chinese person from a Chinese to an Australian?
It's pretty simple. It's about nationality. Yes, for example, when it comes to my ethnicity, my family are Greek Cypriots. as far as I know, they've been Greek Cypriots for hundreds of years. But my nationality is Australian. I went to Cyprus as a young kid. I felt like a foreigner there. Obviously, I'm still proud to come from... Obviously, I'm still proud, of aspects of the Greek Cypriot heritage. Like, I like Greek Cypriot food. I sometimes watch the Greek national football team. I support them. But for all intents and purposes, when I went to Cyprus as a kid, I was a foreigner because I didn't speak the language. My entire nationality is Australian. My entire being is Australian. All my friends are Australian. To be honest, I don't really think I've got any close friends necessarily who are Greek Cypriots. To be honest, every single one of my close friends is an Australian, or they might come from, not necessarily a white Australian. For example, I've got many Hong Kong Australian friends. And we have so much in common, despite the fact that we are of different ethnicities. Because what matters is really culture. What matters is what people believe in. What matters is ideology. What matters is what an individual person believes in. It's not necessarily about their race. Why is it the case that I can go back to Greek Cyprus and I'll feel like a foreigner there? Because
But if you went back to Cyprus and like 80% of the population were Indians, would you be happy with that? Like, well, they all have a Greek citizenship or a Cyprus citizenship or whatever. It's the same country, right?
I mean, it's what I'm not.
They're just as Cypriot as anyone else, right? They're just as Greek as anyone else, right? That would be absurd. No one would actually think that.
Joel, here's the thing. I'm not arguing that people should be. I'm not arguing for mass ethnic replacement.
That's what's happening.
That's what you think. I'm arguing. I'm saying
Australia went from being 90% white when I was a kid. Now it's 70% white.
Joel,
and it's continuing to go in that direction. Because of the ideology that you're promoting.
What I'm saying is that diversity is a feature of all humans' existence. Diversity is a feature of all human civilization. The morality of Australia changed over 124 years. You said that Australia was a liberal democracy when it was founded despite being white nationalists and there was no disappearances in black bats. There were still massacres against Indigenous Australians, Joel, and you might say, oh, based. No, that's wrong. Massacres are wrong. They're actually just immoral. It is immoral to massacre other human beings because other human beings are human beings. Life is precious. Life is sacred. Now, you say, oh, it wouldn't necessarily have to be a totalitarian state if we were to just deport everyone. The difference is, Joel, over time, as the morality of Australia changed and people in Australia, the white majority of Australia actually said, we don't want the white Australia policy anymore. We are a nation of immigrants and we don't value racism in the same way that the Australian white nationalists of 1901 did. People changed over time. Morality changed over time.
Immigration has never been popular. Immigration restriction has always been popular in Australia.
Ideology has changed over time. White Australia changed over time. The White Australia policy changed over time.
Yeah,
because the morality of the
people change their views, but that's because the media and the dominant
the Jews. Yeah, of course.
Well, it's not just because of the Jews.
There is a dialectic. People can have different ideas, and and morality can evolve over time.
If history went differently, if we didn't become basically part of the American-led international order as a consequence of the destruction of the British Empire at the conclusion of the Second World War, and the United States wasn't in a position where it was perpetuating this kind of globalist liberal ideology that we were now subjected to, then we wouldn't have magically just stopped being white nationalists. What happened was we were integrated into a different power structure that propagandized us with the invention of the television and so on, with a completely different and alien ideology.
The Jews, yeah, of course.
Well, it came largely from American influence. You could say Jews
that's
have
what
a
you're
massive influence over America.
That's what you're saying. That's what
obviously
true.
I mean,
I know that's the subtext of what you're saying.
But it's a fact. Like, if you look
every
at,
single
if you
bad
look at
thing,
American
every single bad thing on earth, I stub my toe, it's the Jews. That's your worldview.
But I mean, do you dispute the fact that Jews are very prominent in American society? That there's a lot of Jewish
there are successful minority groups all across the world. Look at
not as successful as the Jews in the United States.
But look at Indians in East Africa. Look at Chinese minority groups in Indonesia.
But Australia wasn't under the influence of Indonesia. Australia was under the influence specifically of the United States. So the United States in specifics is what's important.
I'm responding.
No, but you look at Greek
Australians.
What the fuck does Indonesia have to do with what I'm saying?
No, I'm giving you an example. There are minority groups all across the world, and they are successful. And it's often because they're forced into commercial fields because of discrimination.
I'm not disputing that the Jews are successful. All I'm saying is that they're influential because you brought them up. I'm saying they're influential over the United States.
We know that's the entire subtext when you're like, we've been propagandized into
no, but it's important because
obviously
the Jews had a pretty intense experience in the Second World War. Everyone agrees on that, right?
I thought that it was all good, or I thought it didn't happen, or.
But we're going to have to get into a debate about the Holocaust. The point is, it doesn't really matter.
bad. It was
doesn't
actually
matter
really
the,
bad.
It
I went
doesn't,
to
it doesn't
Auschwitz.
actually
I saw
matter
this-
the
I saw the
specifics,
document. It
the
was bad.
factual specifics. What matters is,
I think genociding people's wrong.
but regardless of the specifics of the Holocaust, all I'm saying is that clearly the Jews didn't like what happened, right?
Well,
I'm sure you agree on
genocide is
that.
bad. People think genocide is bad.
So now the Jews
Genocide
are
is actually really
they're
evil,
in prominent
man.
positions of power in the United States, and they
So
are
Jews
petrified.
went ahead and told people
They are
genocide
petrified.
is
They
bad,
say it
Holocaust
themselves.
is bad. Wow.
But you're not
Shocking.
you're not actually following the course of my argument. You're just saying genocide is bad. Like you
Yeah,
think
it
that's
is.
actually a response to what I'm saying.
But it is, though.
Just
It
shut
is.
up and
It's
listen to
just
what I'm
a
saying,
simple
and then
fact.
you could formulate an actual intelligent response to it potentially. I don't know. Maybe you're not capable of it. But the point is that Jews clearly were afraid, and they said this themselves publicly. Never again. They're very afraid of anything like National Socialism or any kind
Because
of
Nazism and
racial
Holocaust is bad
nationalism
and evil.
from being influential, and they set themselves up in positions of power in places like particularly in the United States, which is a place where at that time white people were in charge, white people ran the United States. America was run based upon racist principles, basically. Like the immigration policy was something analogous to the White Australia policy. Obviously, we had the White Australia policy here, and there was immigration restriction into other European countries. These were all white countries. Everyone in positions of power was white. And we had a sense of racial identity. And the Jews are like, well, this is actually a big problem.
Even
We can
just
see,
in-
we can
even
see
just in
this
America,
Jewish
conflict between
community
Catholics
leaders,
and Protestants
Jewish
is massive
intellectuals and so
among
on.
white Americans.
They obviously
There's
had a
always been
vested
the-
All right,
interest.
hey, I'm gonna say let's not interrupt. Look,
Okay.
and it's totally fair. Just for the cogent argument, we'll just let Joel
All right.
formulate because I think
Right.
I'm not taking any disses at anyone. I think you are capable of having an intellectual response, and I want to make sure that you
Okay,
don't
he
come
goes
across
ahead. He goes
short-sighted.
ahead. Yeah,
All
he
right,
goes
go ahead.
If you just keep talking over me, then no one can. You can't actually. I'll be when I'm done. I'll be quiet. I'll let you speak because I want to hear what you have to say. Now, when it comes to what I was saying, the Jews had a vested interest in undermining white rule because they were afraid of white rule. They were afraid that if that they're excluded. If we have a white-dominated society, and we see this with Jewish community leaders in Australia as well as they openly have said this in the United States, from groups like the ADL and the SPLC and so on. In Australia, Jewish community groups, their leaders came out explicitly and involved themselves in politics explicitly to say we can't allow there to be an Anglo-dominated or white-dominated America or Australia or whatever, because that excludes us. And so they basically were complicit in promoting mass immigration. Now, they weren't the only factor. There were many other factors at play, but the point is that Australia was under the influence
Of Zog.
Yeah, it was under the influence of the
So
United
true,
States.
man, so true.
It's obvious that the United States has a massive influence over Australian politics. I don't think anyone could possibly deny that.
So
for better or
basically,
worse.
the eternal Jew hypnotized Australians into giving up
It's
the
not.
White
It's
Australia
not just
policy.
hypnotizing, but the fact is that not just Jews, they had a massive influence, but the new paradigm that emerged with the United States
Schizophrenia.
during the Cold War was about trying to develop a global ideology that everyone in the world could buy into because they're going up against communism, right? Which was another universalist global ideology. And so they had to develop, in their view, an ideological format to sell the American model to the world, including non-white countries. And they also explicitly said this. Like, for example, the desegregation process in the United States, the reasons given literally by the US Supreme Court in the Brown v. Board case was, well, we don't want to alienate Africans and turn them all to the Soviet Union, so we want to prove to the Africans how non-racist we are and so on. And the resistance by the population, there was a massive resistance to desegregation. There was massive resistance and still is to mass immigration. It's wildly unpopular in America and Australia and in Europe. But you talk about how you're an enemy of totalitarianism. The state and the powers that be have completely subjugated any voices and any elements in the political system of Western countries who try to resist this. You will not get attacked more in the Western media. You will not undergo more persecution for your form of politics in any Western country than if you advocate for white interests. right? There is literally no form of politics that is more controversial. You could make a weird kind of gesture, but it's just a fact.
It's schizophrenia.
It's not schizophrenia.
It's just schizophrenia.
It's a fact.
I stubbed my toe. The Jews
All right,
are behind it.
let's let Drew respond though. Let's let Drew respond to this.
Complex than that.
Okay, Drew, go ahead and respond because he did say a lot. So go ahead and explain. Do you agree or disagree? Because after this, we're going to switch to another question that's going to continue. But go ahead and give your response here.
I mean, I think it's obviously very silly to be like, everything was ideologically perfect, and then, oh no, Dazog hypnotized the world. Like, basically, just say what Ilhan Omar said. Israel hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people. Like, it's just a form of schizophrenia. Like, I stubbed my toe. The Jews are behind it. Oh, there's gay porn online. The Jews are behind it. I mean, this is just your worldview. It's just schizophrenia. It's just cope. Like, you just blame everything you don't like in the world. Everything you don't like in the world is blamed on Jews.
I didn't just blame Jews, did I?
It was a complex process. Anyway, I mean, morality changes over time. There are now millions of people who are Australian of different ethnic backgrounds, and they identify as Australian, and your final solution is for all of them to be deported. And this can only be accomplished with massive violence and totalitarianism. And you go, oh, well...
I want white rule. I want white people to rule my own country.
So you want to kill millions of people? How do you do that without killing millions of people? To get rid of anyone who is not racially pure in your eyes, how do you remove them?
If we establish white rule and we ask them to leave, and we make it kind of uncomfortable for them here, I think most of them will leave of their own volition. The reason why Indians and Chinese people move to Australia...
You use euphemisms.
They don't move here
but what we know
they
you're
want
talking
to
about is like the
Australian.
Nuremberg law.
They just want access to our economic resources. They want access to our prosperity and opportunities and so on. They're here for self-interested reasons. They're not here
you want to put gold stars on people. You want to have massive. You want to create a totalitarian society
something. It makes no sense.
So what? You're going to genetically test everybody and find out, oh, this person is just white enough to stay, but this person's not allowed in the ethno state. And to do this, it would require a totalitarian system that would involve massive violence.
You support Israel, right?
No, I would actually. It's a very complex situation, Joel. I believe in a two-state solution. I don't believe in purging 7 million Jews and pushing them into the
So you believe that the Palestinians should have their own country and that the Jews should have their own country, correct?
I believe that the pathway to peace is a two-state solution.
Yeah, for them to have their own countries.
Yes.
That's the pathway to peace.
Yes.
In Ukraine, you want them to have their own country, right?
However, let me
So
talk.
Everyone else can have their own country except me. I can't have my own country.
Let me talk. Yes, a two-state solution. But I would not accept legal discriminations and segregation and all these types of institutionalized forms of repression.
Well, you don't have to have that. If everyone has their own country, then they can't be discriminated against. If all the Chinese go back to China, then it's the Chinese people's problem how they deal with themselves.
Every single society on Earth has people of different backgrounds. There's no single pure homogenous society on Earth apart from like North Korea or something like that.
And so it's irrelevant. If you have a country that's like 90%, dominated by one group, and they're not bringing in mass amounts of foreign groups.
Let me talk.
That's completely different than what's happening here, isn't it?
You want a mass resorting, not just even in Australia, but just hundreds of millions of people moved based on genetic testing. And if you're just slightly not white enough, you get deported. And this would involve a race war involving hundreds of millions of people and the killing of millions and millions of people. The disaster of the 20th century was motivated by this reasoning. And so you want to bring back another catastrophe like this. It is a catastrophe for human beings, a catastrophe for human civilization. It is a total disaster. Bloodshed, horror, nihilism, just slaughtering each other in the void.
So what you're saying is that if all the white people in Europe came together and said, hey, to the Muslims, we'd really like it if you went home. You think the Muslims would say no, and they would say, we're going to go to war with you. Isn't that perfect evidence of why they shouldn't fucking be there and how that they aren't they don't belong there in the first place? They have no respect for the people who built Europe, the people whose ancestral homelands they occupy.
There are Muslims who are completely Australian. There are Muslims who completely identify as Australians and their only home is Australia. And simply because they have a different religion, you want them deported. That's wrong. That's morally wrong.
You gave an example of this Indian guy the other day that he was draped in the St. George's flag and said, I love England, blah, blah, blah. I clicked on his Twitter profile. He had an Indian flag emoji. He's still very proud to be an Indian. Apparently, he's an Indian and his English at the same time somehow. He hasn't given up his old identity at all. And that's the nature of these people. They say, I'm Australian, but they aren't just Australian.
So what?
They,
So if I go to the Panegyri festival where it's just Greek food and some Greek dances, that makes me not Australian. That's actually fucking stupid. That's just dumb. Because you can have different cultural traditions.
It's not the same thing. I don't perceive the same kind of hostility from Greeks. At least they're Europeans and Christians. There's been some tensions, but it's different than having what we have now, which is hundreds of thousands of Indians pouring into. They've got 1.5 billion or whatever people in India. They can just constantly pump their people into this country and replace us 10 times over. I don't want Australia to become an Indian country. I want to have a country where people like me
hysteria.
Have our own country. I want to have my own country.
That is total hysteria.
It's not hysteria.
They are pouring in going to be an Indian country.
They are the largest. They are the largest non-white group in Australia. They're the fastest growing ethnic group in Australia. They're the bulk. They're the largest portion of the immigrants of any particular group. And there's millions and millions and millions of them that want to come here. And as much as the government allows them in, they're going to keep coming and they're going to become more powerful. You're going to have Indian community leaders. You're going to have Indian members of parliament and so on. They're going to advocate for more Indians and more Indians and more Indians.
Somebody
and they're going to become a power bloc.
Joins our parliament.
Yes,
exactly. Who cares?
Then you're going to have people from another ethnic group with a different identity, a different interest than mine, a different religion, a different worldview, a different culture that now want to assert themselves over me. They're going to rule me. They're going to become part of my government.
Every one of my Indian Australian friends identifies solely as an Australian.
Well, I don't care about your friend. I'm talking about in general.
This is why your ideology is stupid, because every single Australian, I would hazard a guess that almost every single Australian would have friends, would know somebody socially who is not, pure Aryan Anglo-Celtic heritage stock.
What's your point?
Every single person in Australia has friends of different ethnicities.
What's your point?
So your ideology that you're going to just come in one day and you're just going to demand that 7-8 million people leave because of their skin color, despite the fact that they only know Australia, they're born in Australia, they only know Australia, their entire being and existence in Australia, their entire social life is in Australia. All of them should be deported. All of them should be deported with threat of violence. And we'll
go to the point now where like half of the population of Sydney wasn't even fucking born in Australia.
This has always been a case with Australia. We've always had, even if people were from England, even if people were from Europe, we've always had a situation where
if they were coming from England, there were people who came from the same stock as the people who were already here.
A huge part of our country has always had family members that have been born overseas.
All right, let me ask you this. I want to ask some real practical questions here, which I think can really help us get to a good conclusion. Let's start with something intrinsically basic about diversity being our strength, giving you guys both a second to catch a breather as well. Okay, let's not go to deportation. Let's start with the first step, which would be limiting immigration. Here in Australia, back home in the United States, there is a general immigration problem, and people agree, including in the United Kingdom. Brexit was basically founded on leaving to get control of the immigration issue. In a mass poll, I don't know the exact political term in Australia, there was 2 polls done by the government to find out what the population wants on these things called referendums, if you're not from Australia, which is a way that they vote. It's a different system. There's mandatory voting in Australia, so it's a little bit different. When you put something to a vote, it requires everyone to cast their vote, so it is a bit more serious. They did 2 polls to find out about limiting immigration, specifically to figure out what's going on overall, not just from non-white countries, but to just shut this down. When they did both the polls, over 60%, from what I read in both the polls, of Australians that were asked were in strong favor, not in kind of, there was four categories, strong favor of a halting or strongly limiting, close to halting immigration entirely. On the flip side, Americans have a similar idea of shutting down the border entirely. Now, when One Nation and when the parliamentary parties, I think it was Senator Babbitt and Pauline Hanson and one other senator, when they went to put it to a senatorial vote to find out whether it would be put on a ballot so that people could vote to halt immigration, I think it was like 38 senators, I might be wrong, I'm not Australian, voted against it. Now, I'm not going to get into the groups that lobbied them to vote against it, but I read an official statement from Senate here that the situation is too complex for the people, for the democracy, for the people to vote on. Immigration is too complex. Now, race aside, ethnicity aside, I just saw a stat that the massive population boom, which they blame for the main rise in the cost of living crisis and the housing crisis here, the population boom is predominantly led to immigrants coming in, and it supersedes now domestically born Australians or white Australians, meaning they're at a statistical level of replacement, which is in most Western countries, excluding Eastern Europe. Let's just say Western Europe and the United States, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. So with that in place, when we're talking about diversity is our strength, at least 60% of Australians are saying, okay, maybe diversity was our strength, but at the very least, at the level of diversity that we're bringing in, it's going to be our failure and it's hurting us now. I'll go to Drew on that first. Not deporting him. So let's take Joel's idea aside. We're not deporting a guy because he's Indian. He loves Australia. Fuck it. He can stay. He's here. But in terms of stopping the new importation, stopping Indians from becoming the majority, and let's just say even me as an American, stopping all people from coming until this country can figure out what the fuck is going on, and America can, we can all figure out what's going on in our countries. Would you support that, or do you think that that's too extreme?
Listen, I don't support open borders. At the same time, there needs to be some level of immigration. Like complete zero, I think that's silly. It shouldn't be based on race. Whether there's 1 million people of pure Aryan heritage stock from like Germany who want to come into Australia tomorrow, or whether they come from all different parts of the world. I think the question is, do we have the housing stock to support that? So I think it's just a simple economic question.
What benefit to bring Indians in?
Don't interrupt me, Joel. I'm still talking. It's not about race to me. If somebody wants to make their home in Australia, they agree that they're going to uphold the values of Australia's democracy. They're going to make Australia their primary identity. They're going to integrate and assimilate into our society. They shouldn't be blocked based on their race. That's wrong. I don't believe in race-based immigration. However, at the same time, I'm also not open borders. When you've got a housing crisis right now, obviously the current number, whether it's 800,000 net migrants, you can't do that when you're only building 150,000 new homes a day. New homes a year. It's just a simple economic question. And I don't care whether, like Joel, I don't know, according to Joel's view, as long as they're all perfect Aryan stock from Germany, you could have 10 million open borders tomorrow. Obviously, that's crazy because you can't even house these people. So to me, it's just an economic question. Do we have enough homes to house people? At the moment, we don't. We're not building enough homes. There's obviously a cost of living crisis. The Reserve Bank of Australia explained that population growth was feeding into inflation and was leading to the cost of living crisis. Now, obviously, there's been an explosion of population growth since COVID, and it's at an unsustainable level. I still support immigration because I believe that people who want to make their home in Australia, they love Australia, they want to be part of this country, they agree that they're going to integrate, they're going to uphold the values of democracy, liberal democracy, etc. They should have the right to do so regardless of race, regardless of background. But at the same time, I don't believe in complete open borders when you don't have enough housing, when we're not building enough housing. Obviously, you can't have 10 million people coming in a year. You can't have infinity migration when you're not building enough housing. And so yeah, at the moment, I don't agree with the current 800,000 net migration thing. It's unsustainable for Australia. And I don't care whether those people were all coming from Britain and Germany and they're pure Aryan racial heritage stock, according to Joel, or I don't care where they're coming from. Look, we just don't have enough houses at the moment. We're not building enough houses. It's just a question of supply and demand. Do we have enough supply in Australia? No, we're not. We don't. And obviously it increases demand when you have a massive population boom and you're not building enough housing. That's going to increase demand, and then therefore house prices are going to go up. And that's a horrible thing for people all across the country. Whether you're an Indian Australian or whether you're a Greek Australian or whether you're white Australian, whether you're from British Australian, if you're a citizen and you have an interest that you don't want to have a situation where you're never going to be able to afford a home. And so I actually this is the funny thing, my entire friendship group is like basically completely multiracial, but we're all Australian. We all believe in Australia. We're all committed to the basic fundamental values of Australian democracy. And probably most of my friends, despite being of all different backgrounds, I've got Indian Australian friends who don't believe in, having 1 million people come to Australia a year because it's just horrible for everyone, regardless of your racial background, regardless of where you come from.
Why did you hyphenate that? I want to clarify that.
Obviously, we're talking. There's a difference in Australia, in a country like Australia, where morality has changed over time. There has become an idea. There's a mainstream idea, widely held by people all across the country, that yes, your ethnic background might be Indian, your ethnic background might be Greek, your ethnic background might be Italian. But at the end of the day, if you subscribe to the values of our country, if you subscribe to the ideals of Australian democracy, if you agree that this is your home, this is your nation, you're going to uphold the security of the country, you're going to uphold the democratic values on which our society is based, then you can become an Australian through the process of naturalisation, through the process of legal immigration. That is an idea that is widely held by Australians all across the country.
The problem with this is that if you look at the data, for example, look at like quote unquote Chinese Australians and their views on if the Americans and the United States go to war over Taiwan, should Australia involve ourselves on the side of the United States? Chinese Australians, the majority of them would be against that, whereas the majority of Australians in general would be for that. And if you look at like the voice to Parliament referendum on the so-called Aboriginal voice to Parliament, if you look at the suburbs that have a high concentration of Indians, they voted yes.
Here's where you're wrong. The reason why the voice failed was because of migrants in the outer suburbs. 100%.
It's not true.
I was talking to Labour Party operatives, and they all said
Anyways,
the reason why the voice failed. This is the thing.
It's a load of bull. You're talking to Labour Party operatives. Wow.
No, I'm telling you right now. Like the Labour Party, their official understanding of why the voice failed is because socially conservative migrant groups in the outer suburbs voted no.
It's nonsense. If you break down the demographics, I broke it down on my show at the time. You can go back and watch my show around the time of the referendum. You can see very clearly the correlation. Also, there was many polls done by like left-wing, by Labour Party operatives on if you were born in Australia or you weren't born in Australia, are you voting yes or no? And the Australian-born people were like 70% no, 65, 70% no, and the non-Australian born people were like less than 50% no.
If you look at Kos Samaras' polling, Kos Samaras says, and I know you guys hate
I'm referencing his polling right now. I know. Go look up his polling.
But Kos says the lesson of The Voice was that the Voice campaign didn't...
Kos Samaras, his mantra is we need to bring Indians into Australia because they vote Labour.
Let me keep talking.
No, I'm not going to let you keep talking. I'm talking.
Kos Samaras
literally says, you can go to... Kos Samaras says we need to bring Indians in, Indian communities vote Labour.
He said the problem with The Voice was that conservative migrant communities voted against it.
That's what he said.
Chinese Australians and Indian Australians. And I saw that with my own eyes. I knew so many Indian Australians and Chinese Australians who voted against The Voice because they...
Yeah, but we're talking about the overall... We're not talking about
maybe a slight majority, but it may be a slight majority, but we're not talking about like Assad level margins where like 99% of Indian Australians voted for The Voice. That's not even true. I know so many socially conservative migrant groups who voted against The Voice, and that is actually a big reason why The Voice lost. If you only had white voters in the United States, every single state would be a red state. Every state would vote Trump. It's only the non-white vote. We're lucky that in Australia we don't have the same level.
All right. Well, here's what I want to clarify because we're interrupting each other now, and it's just not productive. So what I'm trying to say is this, is in America, we do this as well. We define people as Indian American, Greek American, not really, but we do like, Asian American, African American. These are commonly understood. And my understanding is why. It's because America was founded by Caucasian Protestants, and it was originally founded to cater to these people, which is what people think of when they think Americans. We know America's diverse. We know slavery happened. We know black people were brought here involuntarily, and we know why they were brought here. So there is complex racial issues, which we all know. And Americans have accepted the fact that there will be complex issues between white and blacks. And we border, Hispanic colonization, where they integrated with the indigenous people. And so we have this Mexican nationality. We fought wars with them. We obtained land, right? We fought wars with Spain, yada, yada. So we understand there's a level of diversity. But what we're seeing now in the United States is this sort of aggression to replace the white population, which they talk about it. Like Biden said, our president said, they will be a minority. And that's actually, this is a quote, they will be a minority, white people in this country. That's actually a good thing. So I think that's where it's confusing.
And the more diverse America gets, the more diverse America gets, the more the racial tensions increase. That's funny. That was basically what I was saying. That's my whole argument. The more
I'm not trying to change anything.
diverse we become, the more racial tensions will exist. You know how you can have no racial tensions? If everyone in the country is the same race. Then there's no racial tensions.
But Joel, to do that, you would have to kill hundreds of millions of people all across the world.
They could just go home. They don't have to be killed.
But Joel,
they got homes.
People whose no, because if someone's born in Australia, that's their home. If all they know is Australia, I was born in Australia. I'd be a foreigner in Cyprus. This is my home. This is the only country I know. This is the country I'm committed to. This is the country that I would die for. I would die for Australia.
This is my home. My family came here before it was federated. My ancestors built this fucking country.
Explain this to me.
It's my people's country.
Joel,
it's not these random Chinese guys that just got off the boat last week. It's not their country.
Joel, explain this to me.
They've got their own country. It's called China.
Explain this to me.
5,000 plus years old.
Joel, explain this to me. You say it's your home, your people only. But you would say you're not part of that because you're Greek Australian and you believe in global homo, blah, blah, blah. That you would say that, your friends say that, your fans say that, yes, yes, yes. Why is it that I would die for Australia? I would die for Australia if need be. And I've put myself in situations where I actually have risked death. Like I was literally denounced by the Chinese Communist Party. Literally their Chinese state apparatus denounced me individually. I would literally be prepared to die for Australia in a war if it had to come to that, to defend Australia, because I believe in Australia. Australia is my home. This is my country. But according to your theory, Drew is not that. Drew is not pure Aryan heritage stock. And that's what your fans say. And you say because Drew believes in liberalism and because he wouldn't support
what I believe
Joel's
in is what the founders...
Nazi idea.
I believe in what the founders of Australia... So you're saying the founders of Australia were Nazis? Our founding fathers were Nazis? That's how much you love Australia. You think our founding fathers were horrible Nazis, right?
Joel, obviously white Australia pre-existed.
Okay, so I believe in the
Nazis.
values of the people who built this country. My ancestors who built this country, I share their belief. And I want to honor them by preserving their project.
But Joel,
I don't want my country to be reduced to an economic zone. What you say is it doesn't matter where you're from, what your culture is, what your religion is, as long as you just come here and work hard and want to adopt these vague Australian values, which aren't Australian values. They are liberal internationalist values that were imposed upon us by our adoption into the American-led international order. They weren't developed in Australia. White nationalism is an Australian value. That was the value that founded this fucking country.
Wrong. Let me explain.
Hey, real fast, Drew, you're creeping off camera. Can you move over? There you go. Right there. Perfect.
The source, one of the key, the creation of Australian democracy wasn't the creation of these white nationalists.
Yeah, it was. It literally was.
No.
Everyone was a white nationalist.
But let me explain. The ideas that
they didn't let Aboriginals vote.
The ideas that fed into the creation of Western civilization necessarily include Christian values that came from, for example, you had St. Paul say there is neither Jew nor Greek, for you're all one in Jesus Christ.
He also said there's neither man nor woman. He's saying St. Paul supported transgenderism. No, you're a fucking idiot. He doesn't even understand the Bible.
Joel, this is fucking...
There is neither Jew nor Greek. He said there's neither man nor woman in Christ.
Christianity is
so therefore you believe St. Paul was a transgender advocate.
Shut the fuck up, cunt. Australian democracy...
You're an idiot. You don't even know what you're talking about.
Let me talk. Christianity is a universalist religion. It states that all human beings are equal in moral value, regardless of their ethnic background. This is a fundamental...
Where does it say that?
Jesus spoke this. This is.
Jesus did not say we're all.
What is the parable of the Good Samaritan? You fucking retarded cunt. What is the parable of the Good Samaritan?
You know, the Samaritans descended from Abraham. You know that, right?
The parable of the Good Samaritan is that there were these two different races that
hated each other. Samaritans are Israelites.
Hated each other.
Do you know that?
But Joel,
you know they're Israelites, right?
They were at each other's throats.
You don't even know that they're Israelites, do you?
You haven't read the Bible.
You haven't read the Bible. You don't know that Samaritans are Israelites.
I have read the Bible. I'm a Greek Orthodox Christian. The parable of the Good Samaritan is the lesson of the story is there are two people of two different ethnic groups who hated each other. They were at war with each other.
They're both Israelites.
And yet
both descend from Abraham.
But they hated each other. It's a point against tribalism. That is the entire point of the Good Samaritan parable that was taught by Jesus Christ. That is the point of the Good Samaritan. These two groups were at each other's throats. They were at war with one another for decades. I'm not sure the exact time span at which they were at war with one another. But the entire point of the Good Samaritan is that the morally righteous thing was to go out and look after your brother, despite the fact that he's of a different group that is at war with one of you, despite the fact that he's of a different tribe, the fact that your peoples are supposed to hate each other. Jesus said the morally righteous thing to do was to look out for the man by the side of the road who is sick and who has been descended upon by bandits and is in need of care. He didn't teach the parable. What's the parable of the Good Samaritan? You think the parable of the Good Samaritan is Jesus said, and he realized that the guy was Zog, and so he kept on walking. Are you fucking retarded? No, the parable of the Good Samaritan is that despite the fact that they're different tribes, that they hated each other, the two peoples were at each other's throats, he went out and he cared for him because they're both human beings, and at the end of the day, you're supposed to love your brother, be your brother's keeper despite different ethnic background, despite tribalism. The entire point of Christianity is to dissolve tribalism. And so you can go, Australia came into existence on January 1st, 1901 when Federation came into existence. No, Australia was a long process. Obviously, there's the indigenous heritage of Australia, but there's also the Western heritage of Australia. And there is thousands of years of history that feed into Western civilization, informed by those values in
Western
the Bible.
Civilization. A bunch of white people. It's a white civilization.
No, because
that's what Western civilization is.
And yet Jesus Christ was a Judean Jew. And so Christianity And this is why the Nazis hated Christianity. And this is why the Nazis were like, oh, it's all slave morality, blah, blah, blah. The Jews invented Christianity. That's what Hitler, your favorite guy, he hated Christianity. He said that the Jews created Christianity to dissolve the master morality of the German people.
Where did he say that?
He did say that. He did say that many times. And he also said that Islam would be a better religion for the German people. Hitler hated Christianity. At its core, he believed it was slave morality. And there are lots of fascists today. You would know this. You would know this. You're friends with many fascists.
I think you think Nietzsche and Hitler are the same person.
You know that there are many fascists who despise Christianity and reject Christianity in favor of pagan influences. There are many like that, and you're probably, because I know you try to say that you're a trad cath, blah blah blah, despite the fact that the Pope has said that anti-Semitism is wrong and that racism is wrong. I know you try to say that there's trad cath, but there are other fascists and Nazis who'd go, oh, Joel's actually Zog because he says he's trad cath. Because you're all at war with one another at all times. But the point is, Western civilization has many things feeding into it. One of the core things is Christianity and those moral values in favor of moral universalism, the idea that all human beings are created
How
equal.
come we didn't realize this until after the Second World War? How did we have Western civilization
But
for
it wasn't
3,000 years
just-
and we didn't realize
it's a long
for
and slow
3,000 plus years that apparently we were
Joel,
supposed to be loving
Joel,
all people and letting all of
Joel,
these blacks and Indians
Joel,
and Asians
Joel,
into our society and treating them like their
Joel,
kin?
Joel,
No one thought
Joel,
that.
There's thousands of
in Western
years.
civilization until after
morality
World War
has
II.
changed over thousands of years. You go back to the Magna Carta. That was one of the
But
things that
you're
restricted.
appealing to Western civilization. You're appealing to the founding values of our civilization.
Yes,
and now
and
you're
the founding
saying,
values.
oh, but actually,
and I actually think
everything has
liberalism
changed.
upholds
You
some
can-
of
you
those
have to
core
pick one.
founding
Are you a
values.
conservative?
All right,
Conservative
let me.
or
Hey, all right.
progressive?
I'm muting for a second. All right, I'm muting both your mics. Here's the deal. Let me ask you this though, which someone did ask. 'Cause I do want to make sure that we're able to ask a few questions about Hitler, and I do want to make sure. But I want to ask first. I've been hearing a lot of the idea that morality changed, and I think that that is a true statement. Okay, but I want to know about the wording of that. We'll go to Drew first, and I just want to. Joel will listen, then we'll go to Joel. Drew will listen. I know we're getting heated, but did morality change because people were enlightened and therefore discovered what was morally absolutely better or superior, which is the way that we accept now? Or was morality changed, like desegregation in the United States at gunpoint, or as it is today through censorship, monetary censorship, canceling people, etc.? People would say differently. So all I guess I could put that as is canceling a good thing kind of way of expressing our changed morality that came naturally, or is our morality shaped now through outside institutions and resources to reflect what elites want? Therefore, we're not naturally going the way that we would go if left to our own devices. We'll go to Drew first. That's what I want to know. It's changed, but why did it change? Was that natural and good, or was it forced and engineered?
Human beings are not tabula rasa. Human beings are not just blank slates upon which the elite and Zog projects fantasies and projects ideology upon us. Human beings are capable of independent thought. Human beings are able to create new ideas over time. That is the nature of the dialectic over thousands of years. And so the idea that, the only reason that, values changed over time to reject racism, reject, tribalistic sectarian violence, etc. The only reason that happened was because of propaganda and things like this over time. That is just total silliness. I mean, you actually can see the long-term sources for liberal values going back thousands of years. When you look at, there is the argument of Tom Holland in the book Dominion, where he basically says that part of the problem with woke ideology today is that it's basically Christianity, but it's shorn of the redemption part. So it's basically, you believe that everyone's born in original sin, and yet there is no redemption because they reject Christianity. But and look, it's a strong argument. But he also argues alongside that part of it is that liberalism was very much influenced over time by Christianity. Like those ideas that we have a moral duty to people despite our different ethnic backgrounds. We have a different moral duty to people despite our different tribe, ethnic background, racial identity, etc. The idea that because Christianity is a universalist moral religion, Christianity is universalist, and therefore it leads to, over time, over the course of hundreds of years, thousands of years, it deeply embeds these kinds of universalistic moral ideas in society. And I think that is something very precious and special about the West, that that these ideas, like Joel is right, that in some countries, sectarianism and tribalism is absolutely at the forefront of everything at all times. One of the things that is very special about the Western world is that we have tried to transcend past that. We've tried to move past that over hundreds of years, informed by thousands of years of moral development through philosophy, through religion. We have evolved. We have seen an evolution in morality over time, over 2,000 years. This is in a way diversity, right? Because to reject all that, you'd have to have a static universe where nothing changes over time. Over thousands of years, nothing ever changes. We're all just siloed off into our own different tribes. It's silliness. This is not how human beings work. This is not how humanity has ever existed. Going back hundreds of thousands of years. You're
saying humanity has never been tribalist?
All right, so
human beings have an innate.
Right.
Can I just quickly?
No. Just let me go to Joel. Joel. So I'm just going to throw that to you. Things have changed where nobody's retarded enough to deny the fact that things are very different today in society. People think very differently than they did perhaps in all of the history of modern and ancient civilization. Is this the natural enlightenment and recourse for those just joining the live stream of humans who have found a better way at life, or is this a socially engineered, taking advantage of people who naturally go with the flow, implementing a system that goes against what our founding fathers and our nations or our ancestors desired for our continents and our Western countries? I'll let you answer.
Yeah, well, I'm going to start by addressing the question of, is it good? Is this egalitarianism? Is this idea of flattening out all differences and assessing and creating this universal moral framework where we assess everyone, we basically interpret all of humanity as our equal brother and sister that should be afforded the exact same rights as us? I find this to be ridiculous, because the very essence of being human is our capacity to love particular people. The weakest form of love would be universal brotherhood of man or something like this, because in order for it to be something that you project to all people, you would have to basically minimize its value. The more that you kind of focus your love on a particular target, object of your affection and your loyalty, the more valuable it becomes. This is why marriage and romantic love is so powerful, because you say, I am going to just be with this person for the rest of my life, in contradistinction to, I'm going to be with this woman tonight and this woman tomorrow night. I love all women. All women are totally equal to me. I have no preference for this woman or that woman. Or if you were to say, your friendship would be worth nothing. If you were to say that, well, I'm hanging out with you today, but you're just as important to me as some guy that I haven't met before. That would be absurd. The particular love that you have for your friends, your family, and, if you're married or you're with somebody, your children, these are the really potent things about the human experience. And they'll be cheaper. Like if you go to Aristotle, his argument against the abolition of private property was that if all property which is held in common is cared for the least, when you isolate property to the value of someone in particular, they have better stewardship. So if we were to say that it doesn't matter who your parents are, all children, they deserve a totally equal love from the community. And so you should love every child just as much, regardless of whether you're their father or mother or not. Then all the children would be basically neglected. The only way in which to secure good stewardship over children is for their particular parents to love them more than any other child. This radical inequality, is what generates a good parent, good stewardship. And the same thing, as I said before, about a wife or a husband. So that is the essence of what it means to be human, is to have these particular affections. Now, if I was to say, I love all people equally, I don't care what race you are, what I'm doing is I'm depriving my people of my affection and my concern. And white people have basically been en masse psyoped or convinced of this notion based upon whatever has convinced them. The point is that it's a ridiculous notion that we should care less for our people. It's like if it was to say, doesn't matter if someone's your family or not, you should love them equally. No, I love my brother and sister more than I love some random guy on the street. Otherwise, I'd be a terrible brother. That's the essence of what it means to be human. In the same way, I'd be a terrible Australian if I was to care for an Indian as much as I care for someone who is also a real Australian like me. That would be ridiculous. And actually what that does is it will destroy who you are. If everyone in a family doesn't love each other and cares for other people outside of the family just as much as the people inside the family, it destroys the family. And the same thing happens to a nation. That's what's happening to my nation right now and every white nation on the planet. We don't love each other enough because we have been convinced that there's something pathological about that. And this is breaking down our chains of loyalty to one another, and it's breaking down our identity, and it's destroying our people and our culture. I was in London a few years ago, and I was in East London in a place called West Ham. And I was walking down the street, and the street is just covered in kebab shops and brown people. You can't see any white people almost anywhere. And I went into this pub, and the pub was full of all these white boomers, and they all had Cockney accents. And they were very nice, and we got chatting and so on, and they were telling me about their children and their grandchildren. Some of them were quite old, and all of their children had moved away. Many of them had actually moved here. Some had moved to other parts of Britain or other parts of Europe. And I was thinking how sad it is that that particular Cockney identity of East London, the old white working class, it will no longer exist in a few generations because the old people will die out and the young people have all been replaced by Pakistanis, by various other brown ethnicities and some blacks and so on. And so now they no longer exist. That particular people, their culture, their way of speaking, their particular mentality, this has been eviscerated. This is a tragedy that is happening in various aspects of my race across our civilization. Entire communities are being utterly gutted and replaced and diluted. And for me to not care about that and say, well, what's the difference? An Indian or a black person, they're just as Australian as me. They have the exact same value as me. I should care about them the exact same. That would be to deprive my people of genuine love, which is what's necessary for them to be preserved. My ancestors, for thousands of years, have fought. They have fought in wars. They have engaged in settler colonialism, going across the world to build a new country and so on, to pass that down to me. And I would be pissing in their face if I was to just allow it to be thrown away and not stand in opposition to what is happening to my people. Where my country, and not just, it would be one thing if it was just happening in Australia, but I could go back, and everyone said, go back to England if you don't like it. And I went back to England, and in England, everyone was English. And there was a way to perpetuate the culture of my ancestors there. But the exact same thing, maybe even worse, is happening there. I have nowhere to go. Everywhere where my people were previously the dominant culture, the dominant people, where we ruled our own countries and we maintained our traditions and our way of life, every single place where that is occurring in the entire world is being systematically attacked by this agenda, this anti-white agenda of forcing quote-unquote diversity, which means replacing them with foreign cultures and foreign peoples. So I have nowhere to run. I am forced to fight. If they didn't want me to become so racist, if they didn't want me to become so aggressive and hateful, they shouldn't have taken away everywhere that I could run to. But that's what they have done. And so they're forcing me to fight. I've got nowhere to go. And the same thing would happen to any ethnic group. You see with the Palestinians and the Israelis fighting over kilometers of dirt. You're seeing the Ukrainians and the Russians massacring each other over kilometers of dirt. This is the universal human condition, that people are not willing to just throw away hard-fought self-determination. They establish their country, their way of life. Their people are in charge of a particular territory. That has been hard-won, always in some kind of war or battle. And then their ancestors have invested blood, sweat, and tears for hundreds and thousands of years, in some cases, in that particular place to make it theirs. And they are not going to go down without a fight when that happens, when someone else wants to barge in and take over that space. Because the reality is that the world isn't big enough for everyone. There's a limited amount of space. Everyone can't get everything that they want. This is a fucking totally utopian fantasy. At some point, you have to say, no, this is mine. No one else can have this. This is going to be the country that my people have, that is going to be the place where my way of life is perpetuated so that my children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and so on have a country in which people like them who share their identity are in charge so that they are safe. I don't want my grandchildren and great-grandchildren becoming a persecuted, potentially, minority in the country their ancestors built. That is just simply not acceptable. And that is the destiny that, if the current trajectory of things is allowed to continue, that's their destiny. I would be a shit grandparent or shit great-grandparent if I allowed that to happen. And I love them more, even though they don't exist yet, I love them more than I love these fucking random Indians coming in, who have their own country, by the way, and who, frankly, I don't like them. I don't like the way they smell, the way they look. I don't like their culture. I don't like how they talk. I don't like their way of life. And I have the right not to like them. They might not like me too. I don't care whether they like me or don't like me. I have the right not to like them. I don't have to like everyone. I want to have a country in which people like me are in charge, where my culture is maintained, where my way of life is maintained. And I want that to be passed down to my children. And I don't care if I have to fight for it and some people have to get hurt, if that's what's necessary. Because that's the essence of the human existence.
You're talking about killing millions of people.
I don't think we would, in Australia, if like, say, for example, I became dictator tomorrow, I think me becoming dictator and going, you best be fucking off, I think they would mostly leave. They go, you know what, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't think we'd have to kill that many people, actually.
You would have to kill so many people. Your ideology is one of nihilism and bloodshed.
It's not nihilism. Killing people is not
disgusting.
Nihilism. If you're defending
your
country,
you're essentially white ISIS.
No,
you're
what do you mean?
Theory.
The Ukrainians, are they terrorists?
They're all going to be out. That's your ideology.
Are the Ukrainians defending their country terrorists? Are the Palestinians defending their country terrorists? No, defending your country. Defending your country. Well, even if you could call me a terrorist if you want to. Defending your country from being taken away from you. I don't care what you call me.
Nothing's being taken away.
That's valid.
Nothing's being taken away.
It is.
When Indian Australians or Chinese Australians
in my own country.
Every single migrant I know in Australia, their entire aspiration is just to buy a house in the suburbs and just be left alone and just have a nice family.
Buying houses.
That's all people want. They just want to be left alone. People come to Australia because they want to assimilate. People want to become part of Australia. They want to become part of the nation. They want to assimilate. People just want to have a house of their own, a little patch of land, raise kids, have a nice life. Every human being are ultimately the exact same. They don't want torture. They don't want to be fucking persecuted by a government. They don't want to be black bagged. They don't want to be subject to sectarian ethnic violence. People just want to be left alone from tyranny and totalitarian government. No one wants that.
How come ethno-nationalism has made hundreds and hundreds of countries come into existence? People want to have their own countries.
People want to have their own countries, yes. And I'm not.
So why can't I have my own country? But you're saying I'm not allowed to have my own country. But no one's taking away Australia from you, Joel, because you're able to still. You can just live. You can just live. But you've just got this cope ideology that if you can't get ahead in Australia today, then it must be because of it's not about my individual capability to get ahead.
It's just an ideology of resentment and grievance.
It's about my people's capacity to control our own country.
It's an ideology of identity grievance, ethnic grievance, and I'm against ethnic grievance politics wherever it's coming from.
Why?
So whether it's white,
you're saying ethnicities can't have grievances?
I think it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing.
Why?
Because
why is it bad?
Look, Cyprus was destroyed by sectarian violence. All across the world, you can see so many examples of countries destroyed by sectarian violence. People who could just live side by side with each other in peace. And then psycho Takfiri, ISIS, white nationalists.
They can't live side by side because someone has to be in charge. Someone has to rule. Someone is going to be more powerful than the other group.
And they kill.
And you don't want your group to be the weaker group. You want to be the stronger group in your area. You want to have control of your own destiny.
Right.
Life does not have to be that.
I muted your mics. All right. All right, guys. I muted your mics for a second. I muted your mics because I need to keep this. Okay. Here's what happened. I need to ask a question here because I see where the disagreement is and I see where it might be a point of contention. It's not about winning or losing. It's about making your point thoroughly. And that's the key thing about debates because you're never going to win people that you were never going to win. And you can only lose people, but you can convince people in the middle. So to give a very clear argument here, you're saying that, yeah, you can still live in Australia. I don't think anyone's arguing against that. There's nothing against white people living. And your definition of living was like you said, these people just want to come here and they just want to own a house. They just want to, go to school, which actually agrees with, I think, what Joel was saying, where he was like, yeah, they want opportunity, they want resources, they want to take part in the prosperity. But what you're defining then as the country is the ability to live and own a home and enjoy in the prosperity. But Joel seems to be defining it as it's much deeper than just owning a home. Because, I could go to Cyprus, tomorrow, and maybe I can't. I don't know the laws there. Buy a home. And like
you
even
literally
me,
could in Cyprus.
Well, I'm American, but I'll never be Australian. right? I'm an American. I'm married
I
in
disagree. I
Australia.
think you could be Australian.
Well, I really can't because I wasn't born here, and I'm too far back removed even from my English heritage, where like genuinely I'm American. At the most, you could go back and say maybe I'm British. So that's British and German. But at the same time, I don't identify as British and German. I identify as American because it was a country built on Protestantism. It was a country built by Anglos, but I know for a matter of fact that I am not German. And when I meet Germans, we're very clearly distinct. So I agree with you on that. You would meet people from Cyprus. You're very different than them. That's very fine. However, I think what we have here today is not a racism. Like Joel just knows a couple, are they called Cretians still today? I don't know. Not a couple people from Cyprus who he just hates because they're different than him. There is a global movement that even the left acknowledges. Our president, so I'm not taking a biased perspective here, our president acknowledges there is an actual shift in population demographics, which is directly leading to a shift of power structure, which we are being told is good. So because I want to get into super chats, I want to get into a Q&A, and I want to have some conclusion here, and I want to get sort of a final statement. We'll go to Drew, then we'll go to Joel, because it's a good order here. The current trajectory that we're on is, without a shadow of a doubt, leading to white people being a minority in Western countries, and losing control of the power structure. I don't care what your opinion is on that. We can see that in the UK when it comes to Wales, when it comes to the Mayor of London, the Prime Minister of England, when we see what's happening in Ireland. These are Pakistanis, these are Indians, these are individuals. Whether that's good or bad, I'm not going to even comment. But it is happening there, and it's going to continue to happen in the United States. You're seeing Congress go down in its white, density. Here, you're seeing the same thing with minority leadership. You're seeing, ethnic grievances and policies. So, with that being said, we are on that trajectory. Statistically, we cannot deny that's where we're headed. So, is diversity our strength? Closing statement. Regardless of what's been in the past, whether there's been maybe 10% Asian, whatever in this country, in the United States, been 13% black. It's still 13% black, by the way, but the Hispanic population has skyrocketed. The Asian populations have skyrocketed. There's the black, infiltration from like Haiti and stuff has skyrocketed, not the American black. Something is changing. Something is shifting. Is this good for Western countries? And if it is, then please tell me why. If you have any criticisms, I'm not assuming you fully agree with this, what could we do to make it our strength? That's what I want to conclude on here. If it's not our strength, the current trajectory our nations are on, what do we need to change, or what would we need to do policy-wise or effectively, socially, to make diversity our strength? And that's why we'll go to Joel after. The same thing. If you disagree, what is it that we need to do? To what level of diversity should we have? It is a complicated question, but I'd like to get your final thoughts, Drew. Joel, please do not interrupt Drew. Drew, please don't interrupt Joel. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't believe in a world that is defined by a zero-sum racial struggle. I don't believe in a world where people should be defined by their race, defined by their ethnicity, and if somebody is of a different race, they can't live in the same street as me. I don't believe in that world. I will judge people based on their character. I'll judge them based on their individual attributes, their individual accomplishments. This is the world that I believe in. I believe in individualism and personal freedoms. That's why I believe in liberalism. So I believe that individuals should be judged based on their own individual attributes, their own accomplishments, their own personalities, their own character. I identify as an Australian. I believe that I'm just as much Australian as Joel. Joel would disagree with that. Joel will say, oh, well, I have Aryan heritage stock, blah, blah, blah. And his friends try to go, oh, Drew's actually secretly Lebanese or Turkish or whatever. I don't believe my race comes into it. I'm an Australian. I would die. I would fight and die for Australia if Australia were ever to be invaded, or if Australia was ever attacked, I would fight and die for Australia. I believe in Australia. This is my home. I believe in this as my homeland, my country. It doesn't matter the race. My friends, they may be from Hong Kong, they may be from Tibet, they may be from all sorts of different areas on earth, but they believe in Australia, they believe in democracy, they believe in a life that I believe in as well, where individual people are judged based on their own personal attributes, their own personal characteristics, where we don't have totalitarianism, we don't have mass racial violence. I don't believe in mass racial violence. I know Joel will try and say, he'll try and construct he's already tried to construct a straw man of my position. So he's already tried to say, well, Drew is basically pushing an ideology where people aren't allowed to love their own families more than just general humanity in particular. Of course, it's human nature to love your own family more than the abstract idea of humanity itself. Yet people fight and die for ideas all the time. And an idea that is important is that all human beings have a moral value, moral worth. They shouldn't be just reduced down to their skin color or their racial background, their ethnic background. I don't care where somebody comes from, as long as they believe in Australia, as long as they too would fight to defend Australia as a country. They believe in the same Australia that I do, which is an Australia that's founded on democracy, that all human beings in Australia have equal moral worth and nobody should be subject to torture, persecution, government, tyranny. All human beings in Australia should be treated with equal moral value, equal moral worth, and all people should be free from tyranny, violence, discrimination, persecution. If people believe in that Australia then I will be happy to fight and die alongside them in pursuit of that ideal of the nation. I believe in Australia as a country. I believe in Australia as a nation. I just don't believe that Australia should be defined based on race, because there are all sorts of Australians who do not come from a British Australian background, and yet they've made so many immense cultural, scientific achievements in Australia, commercial achievements in Australia. It's completely wrong to say that Australia was only ever built up by British Australians. It's completely wrong. There is a long, long history, and I actually think Australia's history stretches all the way back tens of thousands of years, and it incorporates Indigenous Australians as well. And I think it's an amazing thing that Australia incorporates the oldest culture on earth, basically. There's an ancient history there. And and through this, we have constructed a country that incorporates people from all ends of the world, and yet we should be united in one ideal: democracy, freedom, justice for all human beings everywhere. That's what I believe. Nobody should be persecuted based on their racial identity. No one should be persecuted, bullied, tortured, killed based on their racial ethnicity. That's what Joel believes in. Joel believes that. He actually said in this debate, he said, if we have to kill people, he's happy with that. He's happy with that. He actually made a threat that he would kill non-white Australians at some point or other. So I think this guy is actually a threat to Australia. I think he's a threat to the country. He doesn't believe in the things that I believe in. He wants to destroy the Australia that currently exists today. He wants to absolutely destroy it. He wants it to burn in flames. And so in a way, he's also kind of like the communist extremists who want to burn down Australia. Both these people are unsatisfied with their lots in life, and they are filled with resentment and grievance, and they just want to destroy everything that makes our society actually quite beautiful and nice. Obviously, Australia has so many different problems. We've got a housing crisis in Australia, etc. But also, we're nevertheless one of the best countries on earth. People would die to live in Australia. All across the world, people would give their lives to try and come to Australia. It's such a beautiful country. It is one of the best countries on earth. We have the rule of law. We have prosperity. We have widespread prosperity. We have much less problems when it comes to racism and ethnic tension than, say, America has. I mean, we have built a democratic society that is based on widespread prosperity, a society that isn't built on zero-sum racial competition. And Joel thinks it should be built on zero-sum racial competition. And there are some people on the extremist left who want to create their own type of indigenous ethno-state or whatever, who also believe in a world of zero-sum ethnic competition. I believe that people shouldn't be judged on their ethnic background, shouldn't be judged on their racial background. If you believe in Australia, if you believe in Australian democracy, if you're willing to fight for this country, then you're Australian, and I'll fight alongside you to create a better Australia for everybody who's currently living here. That's what I believe in. Joel believes in. He will use euphemisms, but ultimately what he believes in is trying to expel millions of people who already live here, who have made Australia their home, and if they wouldn't move, he'd kill them. That's what Joel believes in. He'll try and hide it behind euphemisms. He'll try and present himself.
I don't think we need to kill him. We could just put him in jail or something. Or, I mean,
wow, bro, Keck, so funny, man, so funny.
I just want to make sure. Yeah, before we go any further, are you good though? Are you done with your closing statement?
I'm almost done. All right,
go ahead.
But basically, I believe that one of the special things about the West is that we have thousands of years of Christian moral tradition and moral values that have fed into contemporary liberal ideology, and the idea that all human beings have an equal moral value and worth. I wouldn't want to live in a country where we believe that all human beings should be defined based on their race and should be killed if they're of a different tribe. I don't want to live in a country like that. Joel wants to live in a country like that. I don't want to live in a country like that. Like, that is a disgusting, nightmarish, hellish world. And I wouldn't want to live in a society like that. I want to live in a society where people are judged as human beings, as individuals.
You've repeated
not
yourself
by
on
their
that
race.
point like 8 times.
All right,
now,
but let me
so-
just make sure before Joel, before I understand that, but since this is closing statement before the Q&A, we have a bunch of super
believe.
chats. Are you good on that?
So I reject the mass violence, torture, murder that Joel represents.
Okay, all right, Joel, we're going to go to
You don't have to kill people to deport them. It's possible to just force them to leave. In fact, people get deported all the time from countries all over the world. They don't just get shot in the head because they're in the wrong country or something. So mass deportation is not the same thing as mass, like a rat, like just killing everyone. That's not the same thing at all. But anyway, the essential idea of what a nation is a people of shared ancestry. The word nation comes from the Latin term natio, which is also the same root term as we get the word natal. It means of shared birth. So when he talks about our nation, he's not actually talking about a nation. If you have a multiracial society, it's no longer a nation. It's a composite of nations. It's not actually a nation anymore. The Aboriginals, who he referenced, their grand old culture. When we got here, they were literally raping their own children. They still do it to a very large extent in Aboriginal communities. They got horrible rates of child rape, worse than any other demographic. But they were literally eating their own children as a form of birth control. Like some of the things they were doing was so disgusting and horrifying.
It's not true.
These
it's not true. That's a lie.
No, it's documented. These are people with an average IQ, pure blood Aboriginals, of 62.
These are all disgusting lies. These
All right, Drew,
I
Drew,
let
hold
you
up, hold
speak.
up. Yeah,
So it's time for you to silence yourself. Now, this is not a people with whom we can share a civilization. They are completely different. They couldn't be more different from us racially, culturally, and so on. So I think they should be put in their own separate communities. Largely, a lot of them do live in their own separate communities, and it should stay that way. I don't want to live around them. They have the worst crime rate of any ethnic group in Australia by a country mile. They make black Americans look like law-abiding citizens by comparison. No white Australian wants to live around them. And you talk to white Australians who live around them in like Alice Springs and so on, they are completely aware of the issues with Aboriginals and they do not enjoy it. They're a massive problem, okay? They're not compatible with white Western civilization. That's not what I said. I said they should be separate. I want to be separated from them. I don't want to live around them. Now, just shut up. This is my closing remarks. I allowed you to speak, so now you're going to shut up and allow me to speak. Now, the problem with Drew's worldview is that he says all humans are of equal worth. All right? So if all humans are of equal worth, then what does it mean to be an Australian? Because then what's the difference between an Australian and someone who lives in another country? Aren't all humans of equal worth? At that point, we have no point of determination. We just arbitrarily live in this geographical, political area, and they live in... Why even have separate countries? Why not just amalgamate all the countries into one world government at that point? What is even the point of maintaining separate countries? He basically wants to eviscerate any independent identities or particular identities that those countries could possibly have, because Australia is now being defined. We don't have any particular ethnic or religious or racial identity. All we have are these vague universalistic notions of liberal democracy. There's plenty of liberal democracies all around the world. Pretty much every country in the world, with the exception of very few, try to at least pretend they're a liberal democracy. And so at that point, what's the difference between here and anywhere else? There isn't actually much of a difference. And this is why it's the ideology perpetuated by globalists, people who want to integrate every country. Just please be quiet. They want to integrate every country in the world into a global culture, into a global power structure, and they're succeeding in doing that to a very large degree. And a very key element of this agenda is breaking down anything particular about any national identity that composes this world of liberal democracies. So this is actually, what this is, he's pretending to be, I love Australia, I defend Australia. But he doesn't actually love Australia. He loves liberal democracy, which is an ideology that has been pushed on Australia from without. It isn't, at least in the way that it's been interpreted in the post-war international order, an ideology which says it doesn't matter if you're Australian or not. Everyone is of equal value. I think Australia should be built around the idea that Australians have more value than non-Australians. That's really kind of the essence of having a country. And the question becomes, what makes someone an Australian? If any random person can just be issued a document saying you're an Australian and they just kind of show up, maybe they got a university degree or something, and we say, well, you can be an Australian, you can kind of speak English, I guess, and you're going to sign off this piece of paper that says that you agree with our supposed values, which again are these banal universalisms. You're completely eviscerating the idea that Australia means anything at that point. Now Australia is just another liberal democracy, just like every other liberal democracy that has these exact same values. What's the difference between being a German or an American or a Canadian or someone from Thailand? It's all the same. They're all liberal democracies. Whatever, the constitutional monarchy like us, I get whatever. It's splitting hairs. The point is that there are a lot of Japan apparently is a liberal democracy. Korea, so many different supposed liberal democracies all over the world, right? They all have these supposed same values. So therefore, everyone is worth the same. It's all interchangeable and it's totally meaningless. You can have multiple different citizenships. You can be an Indian citizen, an Australian citizen, and a Chinese citizen all at the same time. Who fucking cares? What does it all matter? This is the trivialization of Australian identity. And if we go to war, if we were to go to war with China, you think all the Chinese Australians are going to be lining up to fight? You think the Indian Australians are going to want to go and die for Australia? If they're forced, no, they're just going to go back. If they were forced to fight, they'd go back to India. There was a bunch of black people in Ukraine. They didn't go sign up to go and fight the Russians. They fucked off as soon as the war happened. There's videos of this. The point is that no, the people who want to defend Ukraine are Ukrainians. People who actually feel Ukrainian. Their ancestors are Ukrainian. I have multiple friends who fought for Ukraine. Yeah, I got some friends who fought for Ukraine as well. Hail Azov. But the point is that the identity of a people is not something that can be totally reduced to universal. Shut the fuck up. I'm speaking. This is supposed to be my closing statement, and you can't control yourself. You've got this like lack of impulse control. Just can you try and sit there in silence for like 5 minutes? The majority of people who are watching this, they're watching this to see what I have to say. Almost no one is watching, listening to what you have to say, quite frankly. So just shut the fuck up.
No one really knows who you are. Seriously, I've got a much following than you do. So seriously, come on.
Okay, whatever. You got followers on Twitter. The point is that if you trivialize identity down to these universal characteristics, you're basically denying that that identity actually is anything. If it's all reduced to these universal values, then all you're adopting is the value of a universal humanitarianism. You're saying Australia exists only insofar as it's universal humanitarianism, which means Australia doesn't differentiate itself from every other country because every other country is composed of humans with the same human rights, and they should all have the same democratic rights and so on. And so what you're saying is that Australia doesn't really meaningfully exist. It's just this kind of arbitrary economic and administrative zone that's geographically determined or something. I disagree. I'm actually of the founding stock of this country, the people who built this country. I don't see Australia as that. I see Australia as something which I carry in my blood. This soil is mixed with the blood of my people. And that's what's generated this great prosperity and this, the reason why everyone wants to come to Australia is because my people fucking built it. And when we build countries, we build the best countries in the world. That's not relevant to what I'm saying. But shut the fuck up. I thought you were going to say that you keep saying, yeah, I'll shut up. And then you can't just control yourself for 45 seconds. We are talking about macro social events. Any one individual is kind of irrelevant in the face of Australia or humanity or these large grandiose notions. It's just ridiculous to say, well, did you build your own country? No, that's the whole point of why I'm a nationalist, is that no one individual can actually do anything. Some people can have significant lives, but ultimately, anything truly great that humanity can accomplish, we accomplish as a group. We accomplish as a people who work together on large social projects. That's how we generate culture. That's how we generate economy, great institutions, and so on. And so your group identity, therefore, is really fucking important. Reducing everyone to individuals, when isolated, are actually quite insignificant in the grand scheme of things, is an absurd worldview. Now, this is your worldview. Also, this idea that all humans are of equal worth is just absurd. Obviously, on any dimension of worth, that we would want to like determine, is someone more attractive than someone else? Is someone more intelligent than someone else? Is someone more capable than someone else? Any dimension of actual tangible worth, everyone is of different worth. You know, everyone is different. You know, you said at the beginning, all human beings are different. Therefore, if they're all different, they're all of different worth. They can't be of the same worth and all be different at the same time. And this gets back to what I said at the very beginning about the notion of diversity being preposterous. That on the one hand, it claims, just shut the fuck up. You can't have a coherent notion on the one hand that claims to be in favor of difference, and on the other hand, claims to be in favor of equality. These two things are actually opposites. The equalization of things is the annihilation of their difference. Equality and sameness are the same thing. And so as a result of this, if we try to apply this to our society at large, what we get is the annihilation of difference. What we get is the annihilation of what it means to be an Australian by trying to include everyone in the definition of being Australian. You could say it's boring, but it's just a fact. It's not ethnic agreement. I'm making a philosophical point. Can you actually refute what I'm saying? No, you can't, because it's a philosophical point. America became the most powerful country in the world when it was run by white people. It was white people that made America so powerful, and America is actually in decline. Largely, it is in decline.
It smashed Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah, it could smash Russia. But Russia's also a multiracial society. The Soviet Union collapses, so on. It's hardly like a modicum of, racial purity or something. The United States became the most powerful country in the world because it was the place where the most fucking white people were in one country. That's just a fact. That's how it happened, and that's why America is great. And if all the white people left America tomorrow and were replaced with Mexicans. What has that got to do with anything?
Well, you say that white people made America great, but you still like some white Americans, like for example Nick Fuentes and Kanye West. You like these people, so are they allowed to stay in the ethno state if they've got based kek views or whatever it is?
I think blacks should be separated from whites. When it comes to Nick Fuentes,
what if they're based against Zog like Kanye? You love Kanye, so I mean, how do you explain that?
At the end of the day, I still wouldn't want to share a society with Kanye or his people. I think Kanye should be. And
what do you think should happen to
Kanye? Right, hey, Rovas, he didn't ask you questions in your closing. I know. But I know. So just finish your point, take it in for a landing, and then we're going to go to the Q&A, because we could go many more rounds, but I want to keep it, because I want to make it so I can say,
we can do some of these more
random
subjects in the Q&A. But
the
closing point of what I want to make is that white people have a particular nature, a particular way of life that is natural to us. And if that is valuable, you have to say that that's not valuable at all. That what white people can create, that what's natural within white people, our way of being, that this is something that is fundamentally not worth anything, that it doesn't deserve to be defended in any way, that white people have no right to defend our particular way of life, our race, from forces which are basically destroying it, which are basically taking away all of our countries from us, that are diluting all of our communities. In which case, what you're really saying is that you don't value the white race. You don't think that the white race has any value whatsoever, and it doesn't matter if it exists or it doesn't exist. Well, I disagree. I am white. I want to continue existing. I want my race to continue existing, and I want it to flourish, actually. So that's the essence of my fucking politics, and that's the essence of what it means to be an Australian, is to say that you actually want Australia, the concrete historical people, the Australians, to flourish. If Australians are all replaced by non-Australians, then it's no longer Australia. It's now become just some arbitrary grouping of human beings. So that's basically your worldview. You claim to be pro-Australia, but no, this is what happens when you allow a bunch of non-members of your country into your country. They want to redefine your country to become inclusive of them. And if you want to become inclusive of them, you have to change the meaning of what your country is, destroy the identity that it previously had to make it inclusive of everyone else. And now all of a sudden you no longer have an identity. Now you no longer have control of your country. And so this is the inherent problem with diversity, is that you either have equality or difference. If you make everyone equal, you annihilate your difference. You destroy your capacity to maintain your difference from others.
All right, Joel, last sentence so that we can go to Q&A. Because it's very late in America, by the way, where the audience is watching. So.
Yeah, no, we can go to
All right, cool. All right, so that's where we're at right now with, this is Drew, and before we go to the Q&A, I just want to give you guys one more chance. Drew, a plug where people can follow you and find you, and then Joel, please don't give any points here. We'll go to the Q&A, and I want to remind people as I read the Q&A, besides saying anything that could potentially be illegal or jeopardize, the legal ability for us to, be operating the show or hurt or harm anyone unnecessarily, I will try to read every super chat word for word. And I always say in the beginning, me reading, asking, and reading them out fully does not mean that I sponsor or agree with everything that's said. And so I want both the people here to know whether they're for or against either of you or put in the pejorative. It is simply for the sake of being accurate. If people send in super chats over $5, they will be read on screen. So go ahead, Drew. How can people find you and follow you and support you if they agree with you or they want to challenge you? So go ahead.
Oh, well, I suspect most of your audience wouldn't be big fans of me, and so I'm not sure whether it's wise to actually put out my Twitter handle and everything.
You don't have to.
But look, it's just my name, Drew Pavlou, and people can go and harass me and troll me there if they want. I suppose they probably already are. Good for them. I don't really care.
All right, go ahead, Joel.
Yeah, as I said at the beginning, x.com/JoelDavisX or t.me/JoelDavisX to find my Telegram. And you can find everything else from there. I'm banned from YouTube, but you can watch me on Rumble.
That's so sad.
Odyssey and other places. Yeah, I guess we're going to take a break now.
Yeah, so before the super chats, that's what I say. So for the super chats, we'll be right back with the super chats and everything else. I don't even know if do we have anything we can play for 2 minutes, Brian, or are we screwed on that? I'm just going to mute all the mics. Yep. So we'll be back in 2 minutes. Go ahead and just go to the screen here with the thing. The mic's muted. We'll be back in 2.5 minutes. We'll use the restroom, and we'll do the Q&A.
guys. Hang around. Elijah will be back shortly. If you're enjoying the stream, give us a loud Christ is King.
All right, we're back. Sorry about that. I got my diversity higher here. It's Mojabingo. This is an Aboriginal with a didgeridoo. And I don't remember, I think someone got it for us. I'm supposed to ship this to Alex Jones. He said he wants this, but I'm not joking. I'm gonna drop it off at his house. I was thinking about doing that because just to go to their studio, I should like show up like shirtless with like war paint on and like a didgeridoo and just like play him a song. He would let me. I'd be like, "Can I play you a song of our people?" Wow, wow, wow. All right, we're gonna look at super chats here. Sorry guys, I'm like super, out of it in life. It's been a tough time. Also, my son is sick right now. His first sickness, so please pray for baby E. Because he's struggling and he's cute. He's a little blonde-haired, blue-eyed little devil. So please pray for him. Yeah, please pray for him. He's replacing us. No. All right, let's get into super chats. Like I said, I'll read them all. Let's talk. Okay, so some of them are statements. WizGod123 said, "I'm brown and side with Joel." So I'll just throw that over to you. Let's keep these really short. Yeah. What do you think about the fact that someone who's like brown sides with Joel's ideology and his vision for Europe or for Australia?
I actually know in real life like Bengali Australian guys who are like white nationalists and probably like Joel and like it's kind of sad because they're just Joel obviously wants them dead or like out of the country. So and I don't know, like I think some of them think like, oh man, if I'm just based enough, I'll get to stay in the ethno state. But
This guy DM'd me. He was called Sikh Groper or something, and he was like, "Hey man, what's your advice? How can I help the movement?" And I was like, "Move back." And he's like, "But India sucks." And I was like, "Yeah." And that was pretty much the end of the conversation.
All right, next question.
Sad, just sad.
Noticer I am said, ask Drew what country has ever gotten better with like non-white diversity, and if you denounce the Talmud.
Denounce what? Sorry.
The Talmud. I think it's the holy book of the Jews. Pretty sure.
Denounce the Talmud.
I don't know. I know I'm writing these, brother.
Well,
Aren't you a Christian?
What do you say?
Aren't you a Christian?
Look, I'm a Christian, but I'm not going to go around insulting people of other faiths.
But the Talmud literally says that Jesus Christ is boiling in excrement in hell.
Joel, I know you've got all these propaganda smears against...
No, it's in the Talmud.
Look, Joel, Jesus Christ was a Christian. I don't believe in just insulting Muslims and Jews gratuitously. I'm not going to.
No, but I'm telling you what. Are you telling me that I'm lying?
Whatever. I'm not going to.
Why would you? You can't be a
Jews.
Christian and then also think the Talmud is egregious blasphemy against Christ.
The Talmud includes like massive parts of the Old Testament, so you're just being fucking retarded. So
you don't know what you're talking
anyway,
about.
Going on.
So was the answer no? Just the answer is no?
about.
Yes.
Anyway,
No?
what was the other part of the question?
It was what country has gotten better with non-white diversity? Like
Look,
I guess
I
Western
think,
country.
I think Black American people have contributed massive amounts of culture to America, and no, it's true. I fucking love all you want, Joel, but like
No, they have. That's the problem.
Well, it's look, it's you can be as retarded as you want. Black Americans have contributed a massive amount to American culture, and American culture is like basically the most popular culture on the form of the planet, on the face of the planet right now, and
Yeah, that's
people,
also the problem.
And people like Black American music, and people like Black American culture, and cool, I like Black American music too. I like Black American culture as well.
Of course you do.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask you as an American? This is.
Look, I grew up on Kanye West music. So
let me ask you this. This is me being. I'll let you know if I'm being biased in the Q&A since the debate is over. Is there one place where blacks are the majority in America that you know that is better than an area that's majority white? Because I literally am going to tell you, I'm not setting you up.
Look,
I don't say there aren't good blacks that add to some good culture. I'd say the majority of the culture they create is degenerate, but I'm asking you. But I know a lot of good black people too. So I'm saying like overall, would you say black people made America better, or would you say they make it worse?
Black Americans are part of America. They always have been from the founding of
They've been
America.
part of it, but have they been a good part of it?
Yes, they have been a good part of it, and
So
you're just
all
coping.
of
You're just miserable.
all the
You're just
crime and the rape.
No, this
and
is just
and
this is
so
just
on.
racist smears, and just
No,
good
it's
on
just
you.
objective
disgusting. It's
statistics that they commit crimes at higher
No,
rates than whites.
Joel,
It's
Joel,
in the
Joel,
FBI
it's just-
statistics.
It's just racist, disgusting smears against an entire
So
group of people.
quoting official statistics is racist.
No, just what.
Are you disputing the
you're-
FBI? You think the FBI are racist?
You could just say next too, by the way. In this,
Just next.
Yeah, you can say next.
Because you don't
It's
have
just
a
a Q&A.
response.
No, it's
You don't
just
have a
Q&A.
response.
I'll explain. I like African American culture. I grew up listening to African
We
American
get it. You
music.
love niggers. We get it. Well done.
You're a retarded, cunt. Seriously. All right,
I'm
next one.
retarded. Niggers
All
are
right.
retarded. Have you seen these people? Have you seen the kind of music they create? Have you seen like the twerking?
What have you
culture?
fucking
It's-
accomplished in your life, Joel? What have you accomplished? What have you actually done? What do you contribute? Nothing.
What's the point of?
You're just a resentful guy who has just made
Oh, so
your
I ha-
race your entire
if I don't
identity.
like something, that means
No,
I
you're
must
just
be
coping. You're just
I
coping.
don't have to
massively.
like
You
it.
Dude, you're
Why
a
would I
base
like
controller,
it?
basically.
Do
What
you-
have you accomplished in your life?
Why-
I've
why do
accomplished
I-
so much
oh,
more
I
than
have-
you.
I
I've
have to-
accomplished so much more
I
than
have
you.
to get down
You've
on my
accomplished
knees
nothing.
and
I've given
worship
lectures.
niggers or
I've given
something,
I've
otherwise
given
it
lectures
means I
at
hate-
Oxford University. I've given lectures at Oxford University. What the fuck have you contributed to civilization or anything? You're just a retarded guy.
no way
who
Oxford
sits in a
University would let a
basement,
racist give a lecture, so-
Miserable, attacking people. Just based on their race, you have nothing to contribute about outside.
Well, I
your
tried
own
to
race,
engage
so-
you in philosophical discussion, which you're incapable of doing because I clearly have a much higher IQ than you. You're clearly you've read far less books than me. You're a far less intelligent human being than I am. You couldn't even provide any kind of philosophical response to what I was saying about
'Cause your
difference and
philosophy is
equality
retarded.
and
You're
so on.
actually retarded. I don't care.
This
I'm
is
not
this is the
engaging with
Oxford
retardation.
scholar. What are you, Dave Pavlou? You're retarded. This is your argument.
are,
Is
though.
it-
You
when
are.
you went
At
to
some
Oxford,
level- at some
is that
level,
that the speech you gave?
like,
These
what?
people are retarded.
Engage
These
with
people
the
want to
fu-
kill people. Oh my
enga-
god!
engage
I have
with the
all
philosophy
opinions.
of Hitler,
All the
rapist,
opinions that
Groiber,
TV
666.
has. I have the same opinions. Wow, I'm such a genius. I've accomplished so much.
Let me respond. So I have to philosophically...
You're a fucking idiot, man.
I have to philosophically engage with the opinions of Hitler, Groiper, Rapist, 666.
Well,
like, it's just fucking dumb.
You should be able to. Isn't that why you're
should
here?
I? It's
You're here
fucking
to show
stupid.
that I'm a moron, that I'm an idiot, that my views
and you
are
said that
so
you want to kill
ridiculous.
people.
But
you said you couldn't even go throughout 1 hour of discussion without saying, I'm going to kill millions of people. So good on you, Joel.
That's what you said. I didn't say I was going to
No,
kill
Joel,
millions of
you
people.
actually said, if we have to kill people, I'm happy with it. You said that. You said that you'd kill
if war is necessary, that war is a part of human life. If you have to defend your country from an invasion, like if Australia was invaded by the Chinese tomorrow, we had to kill Chinese people.
Not all Chinese people.
Oh,
No.
you're such a horrible person. Why would you kill Chinese people? They've got the same moral worth as you.
You're just...
Even they're invading our country.
This is the problem.
All humans are equal.
This
Haven't
is
you
the
read
problem.
the Bible, Drew?
This is the problem.
Oh, you're a retard, man. You're a retard. You're a fucking genocidal maniac.
Fucking shut
you're
up,
a genocidal
cunt. Shut
maniac.
the fuck
you
up,
want
cunt.
to kill all these
Shut
innocent
the fuck
people
up.
just because they're invading our country.
Shut the fuck up. There's a difference between the People's Liberation Army and just random Chinese civilians, you fucking idiot.
All right, next. Next question. I think it's about time we transition like we're Caitlyn Jenner. Here we go. Ender Owner said, absolutely absurd that he thinks that you can't deport people without bloodshed. Shout out to NSNEAM. Shout out Patriot Front. And last, when will you have Thomas Rousseau on the show, Mr. Schaefer? I'll answer mine. He's welcome to come on. Pretty much everyone's welcome to come on the show, no matter if you're far left, far right. I'll probably talk to you unless it's directly endangering my safety or the general safety of people. By the way, I'd like to let you know, we invite a lot of leftists on. This is why I want to give, even though I don't consider...
When you go back to America, you should do a debate, Thomas Rousseau against...
Somebody.
Yeah,
I will. No, I will.
fantastic.
It'd be fantastic. But we'll just move on to the next one. National Bolshevist Zav says, both Joel and Drew are liberals. Joel, a racist liberal. Drew, a left liberal. Both of them support Ukraine. Ultimately, they both want to maintain Atlanticist hegemony. You guys are on the same side. So what is this? Do you know who this is, or is this someone trolling?
No, I think it's like a Dugan Eurasianist or some shit. It's just dumb. Like, I don't know. He just thinks that... I don't know. It just sounds like a Eurasianist Dugan guy, I think.
All right.
It's Dugan, by the way. Or Dugin, if you would have a
just that it's Joel Davey.
All right.
No, it's Joel Davis. Because
okay, Mr.
It's
Davey.
not Jugan, all right? It's
Okay,
D-U,
Davey.
Dugan.
Okay,
all right?
Okay, Davey.
I mean, if you want to be respected as an intelligent scholar, Drew, you're going to have to start learning how to pronounce these names correctly.
I'm going up against Hitler, Rapist, Groiper, 666. You're not an intelligent scholar, Joel.
Joel Davey.
I'm far more intelligent than you are,
Okay,
Drew.
anyway, next question.
Joel Davey. Silence.
Next question.
All right. I identify as tax exempt. Said funny people from different cultures. Let me just put. Why is this over here? Let me move this. Hold up. This is retarded. Like why am I reading
Here's
that?
the
over
thing.
real
Joel
fast,
and me may be different cultures, but look how productive this conversation has been.
It's beautiful. I think this is actually. Sorry. So I just so you guys know, like I'm not even gonna get involved in the questions, but like I'm not pretending to be like a moderator right now. I'm just reading questions like I would host a
The
stream.
reason why this is
I think it's
enjoyable
funny.
is because everyone's enjoying watching me
I just think this is funny.
destroy you. I don't think anyone is watching this that's a Drew Pavlou fan, if any of them actually exist. I don't think
There
any
are
of them
Drew
tuning
fans.
in.
No, there are Drew
Maybe
fans in the
there's a couple.
chat. There are Drew fans in the chat.
There's a couple Drew fans.
No,
Well,
I'm seeing them.
hey,
There are
Drew
the
fans, you fucking retards.
One's in the chat
Get
if
your
you're a
opinions
Drew
from
fan.
Sky News and
One's
so
in the chat for Drew fans. Two's in the chat for Joel Davey.
I know, like most of these
Joel
guys-
Davey.
I know all these guys already support like Joel Davey and
No, and that's why I
stuff like
did.
that.
But as someone who's
So-
worked, by the way, just so you know, as somebody who's worked in media, predominantly the media that even Joel would think would be like Jew media, right? Like Zog media, right? I guess that's what I've worked in.
I love Zog.
So there you go. So what I'm saying is I've worked this my whole career is, dude, I talk to people all the time, right and left, that I just don't agree with and don't care. But one thing that's why even you said publicly, you're like, oh, well, he's kind of a fascist. What people do not realize when they come on the show is like, I really can just talk to anybody and be fine facilitating any conversation because I go into extreme.
I agree.
Well,
I
go
do
into
agree you're
deep-
nice and
I mean,
personal.
one thing I'll say,
Yeah.
it is nice that Drew
Thank you.
is a public figure that's at least because in Australia we don't really have that many like politics public figure types that'll like engage in discourse. There's almost no one involved in Australian politics. It's not like in America where there's like a billion people that you could have debates
You have a
with.
list to come in.
So
and you're like,
at least Drew exists. You know, he's got someone to talk to. You know.
Yeah,
So,
by the
But
way,
I thought you wanted me deported and killed, Joel. I thought that was the case, Mr. Davey.
well, the thing is, if there's Greeks, that would be like very supportive of whites, you could be like, you could make some exceptions.
Who will you debate? You're not going to be able to debate with any libtards if you get rid of them all.
Specifically are obviously a subversive influence of the country. So I think if we came to power, we'd want to get rid of you. But it's because of your subversive nature. It's not because necessarily.
Subversive, yes.
If you were like if you're like Golden Dawn supporter, Greek, maybe we could get along.
Fuck Golden Dawn. I've actually helped run legal case against Golden Dawn.
All right,
so you're a subversive in your own country as well.
But I do want to say thank you for saying that I was nicer in person.
The Greeks probably don't want to
Elijah is pretty nice.
If we deploy you to Greece, they'll throw you in jail or something.
Yeah. Also, that's what I was gonna say. Is I think those words get thrown around a lot. Like meaning the professionalism. Like it would come down to the fact that. I've spent a lot of time working in embedding in what people would consider to be extremism, both left and right wing. I mean, to think about the fact that I actually sieged a federal building as Antifa and Department of Homeland Security broke my leg while I embedded with Antifa for weeks. I sieged the building with them. I've probably committed some federal crimes while I've been working with these people. Do you think the federal crime would be what? Being communist? No, I'm just kidding. It's all a joke.
Actually,
but
one day it will be.
You were in Nancy Pelosi's office, right?
Maybe, who knows? But I will say this, perhaps with these people, I do think it's kind of funny though, because when I was with them, dude, I smoked cigarettes with these Antifa. I helped them make fucking hot dogs. I suggested we wash our clothes, crazy things like that.
White people are easy to get along with.
So I hung out with them, someone could say, oh, he's Antifa because I bought beers, man. There was one time I just bought beers,
out with Antifa whites
and we hung out and we sipped beers together. It's cool.
Black groypers, to be honest.
Sieging a federal building is actually a lot of fun. Being a communist anarchist is a ton of fun. I experienced it, and I was like, this is kind of fun. Like, they're lighting buildings on fire and stuff. It's like kind of cool. Anyway, so people don't know that about me, but I'll move. I digress. All right. Beamer Boy 51. And by the way, the joke about the crimes, it was a joke. I never committed a crime. I'm a journalist. Fuck all you losers. Beamer Boy 51 said, Dave keeps talking about things on the individual. Why does everyone keep saying Dave?
Me, Dave.
Is your name Drew?
Davey. I thought Davey is the Dave guy.
Okay, well, Dave.
It's easy to remember. It's fucking one syllable. Drew.
Dave keeps talking about things on the individual level. The more important aspect is the society-wide level. Different groups of people create different civilizations. White civilizations are the best. By the way, Drew, this is also, you should come down one time, not for a debate. You should come down just to come on a normal live stream where it's it's not a debate, where we just talk about the daily news. Because it's a lot, it's like this. It's a lot more lighthearted and just like shit talking, like for fun. So you don't have to like wear a collar. Okay, the next person said, Salem 8 said, Samuel Flowerman in 1948 laid out a plan to brainwash whites against racial in-group preference. They literally had a plan and followed it to the T. Idiot Drew. Is that true, Joel? I don't know anything about who that is or what that means. Samuel Flowerman created a plan to brainwash whites. Do you guys know about this, or is this the first time you're hearing about this? I've never heard of this.
Well, obviously, lots of people created this plan. It wasn't just one individual. It benefits a lot of people for whites to not act in our interests. Well, basically, it benefits everyone who isn't white. So there's a lot of vested interests.
If you're struggling with schizophrenia, please go see a mental professional. Go see a
Oh, yes. If you don't have the opinions that the television and the major newspapers tell you to have, that means you're mentally ill.
If you think, you literally,
this is
Joel,
Drew's
you actually
worldview.
are, Drew.
This is Drew's worldview.
You actually
have
Julian,
the capacity to defend. Like, can you explain to me where human rights come from?
Mr. Julian, Mr. Julian,
I don't think you can actually defend from first principles any of the shit you actually believe. Because
Mr.
you
Julian
haven't read any.
Mr. Julian
actually read that many books. You probably watched a YouTube video talking about a book before, but you probably never actually read a book cover to cover of like serious political philosophy in your life.
Mr. Julian Devey. Listen, I think the world is much more complex than just one Jewish guy inventing a plan to brainwash every white person on Earth.
Yes.
And look, if you do have, I just say, if you have schizophrenia, you have to go get mental health.
I'm going to straw man your position because I don't actually know how to engage intellectually with any idea seriously because I'm a fucking retard.
Yes.
That's literally you. That's literally your entire way of debating.
What is your idea? Is that all black people should be killed? Like, wow, I need to intellectually engage with that. It's retarded.
That's not what I said. I said
he said a few of them could stay. No, I'm just kidding. No, he didn't say anything about killing anyone. I'm totally messing around.
I said white people should be able to preserve our difference. And if you don't think that we should, whatever. I think that we should. I don't care what you think. I'm going to go about trying to ensure that we do.
You can marry some Groiper girl and keep your Aryan heritage racial stock bloodline. Like,
Yeah.
It's very precious that Julian Davies' bloodline is preserved because this guy's accomplished so much. He's such a great man of history. Fucking, what have you ever fucking done ever? Like, just some guy.
Aren't we all just some guy, Drew?
No, I'm a great man of history. I know I am.
You're a great man of history.
I already know I am.
Because you're a soldier for the things that the establishment and the elite
the
that
next
run the
30
world
years?
believe.
What's the next 30 years?
You're such a radical, Drew. You're going up against everyone who's not in power on the side of everyone who is in power. Wow, what an incredible way of living your life. This is so important that you do this.
Just have your miserable existence, Joel.
That's what great men of history do. Great men of history go, hey, this idea that everyone already believes in and that the people who are in power believe in, I'm going to also advocate for that idea. That's what a great man of history does, right?
Wow,
They don't
Winston
try and
Churchill
change
wasn't a great
anything.
man of history.
That's what greatness is. Greatness is eternally the same. This is the way. This is your entire worldview. Everything must be the same. The perpetuation
Things right
of
now
mediocrity.
are pretty good.
The
I don't want the
perpetuation
entirety of
the
Australia
low.
burnt to the
Everyone
ground.
must be reduced to the lowest common denominator. We're all equal. That no one can be greater than anyone else. No one can be different than
If
anyone
you'd
else.
been in the
We're
special
all the
forces, if
same.
you'd climbed Mount Everest, if you'd done things in your life,
This is your worldview. This is
Mr.
the
Julian,
egalitarian
Mr.
worldview
Julian
par
David.
excellence. Nothing should
Mr.
change.
Julian
We're at
David.
the end of history. Everyone's the same. Everything that's happening is
Mr.
fine.
Mr. David, please. If you had climbed
It's
Mount
the most
Everest, if
uninteresting
you had
possible way to
been a
live your
special
life.
forces soldier,
I'm
if you
interesting.
dropped into
I'm
war
like,
zones,
hey, let's
what the
take
fuck
the
have
most,
you accomplished?
Let's take the most
Nothing.
radical and controversial idea in our society. I'm gonna just go advocate for that and ruin my life advocating for that. That's what a great man of history actually does.
Wow, you're a great man of history for
That's-
saying the
that's what-
N-word
that's
on
what they do.
Elijah Schaffer's stream.
That's what they
Wow,
actually
good on
do.
you. The truth, the greatness that we're all missing out on is some guy from Australia who with a fucking Takfiri beard saying the N-word on Elijah
I got an
Schaffer's
excellent
beard
beard.
on
Look at
Elijah
this
Schaffer's
beautiful
fucking
beard.
stream. Who cares?
It's
Who
excellent.
fucking cares?
All
You
right.
can say the N-word. Who
All right.
cares?
But hey, you know what? You can say the N-word. I don't say it.
No, I don't say
Except
it.
with
But
my-
he thinks
Elijah,
he
you
thinks
say
he's a
the
great man
N-word,
of
but it's
history
not
because
in
he can say the
public.
N-word.
Oh,
You're not
yeah.
quite as ballsy as me.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Elijah wants to
well,
work for Zog, and
Yeah.
so that's why he can't.
Wow, the real
I'm
measure.
circumcised.
Let me say.
I'm circumcised. That's why.
I
lost my foreskin.
Let me say. Wow, the real measure of testicular fortitude is whether you can say the N-word on like some random American guy's stream. Who cares, man? What have you accomplished? You've done nothing, Joel. You've
Hey,
literally done nothing with your
I went
life.
from a nice guy to a random
And you're getting
American
intellectually
guy.
decomposed by
What-
this
I'm just saying.
loser. Apparently, I'm such a loser.
You are though. What have
But
you done? What have you fucking done with your
I've
life?
destroyed you in an argument for what?
No, you haven't.
That's
You
what
haven't.
I've done. So
You haven't.
I mean,
wow, you destroyed me by saying
you
like
try and
Zog,
break
Jew,
me down.
N-word.
But then
Who
what does that
cares?
make you, Drew? That makes you filth at the bottom. You know, because
No. Any 99%.
you should build me up. Then at least losing in a debate to me would be, oh, that's not so bad.
The vast
You had a
majority who
difficult
see this
opponent. He
won't
was-
agree with your schizo.
All
He's a
right,
smart
all right,
guy.
all right, all
It's
right,
hard
all
to
right.
debate.
Moving on. Great discourse, guys. Great discourse. All right. The other Paul said, Q for Drew. As a Christian, where does scripture or church tradition assert that a universal right for all residents in a country such that it's immoral to deport foreign ethnics to ensure homogeneity?
I've never said that all deportation should be banned at all times. Obviously, if somebody has committed a crime, they should be deported. It's different. He's arguing that people who've never committed a crime, who've been born in Australia, should be deported based on their race. That's wrong. And that is against Christian values because Christian values...
Australia was built off deporting people based on race, by the way. It was the first thing the Australian government ever did. That's a fact.
Mr. DeVee...
It's a fact.
Mr. DeVee is not a Christian because he believes that people should be
Australia was
deported or
founded by
killed or
Christians.
tortured.
Our founding fathers said this is a Christian
Deported-
Aryan nation, a white Christian nation, and so we're going to deport all these Chinese people.
Aryanism is not compatible with Christianity. That is why Hitler was a pagan and he hated
How come
Christianity.
white Christians created a bunch of white ethno-states then? For example, the country that you're living in right now, it was an ethno-state created by white Christians.
Australia is
They're all fake
the
Christians.
morality of
Drew
Australia
hates
changed.
all the founding fathers of our country. He thinks they were all fake Christians. He thinks they were all evil genocidal maniacs.
No,
he hates them.
This is a
he thinks they
straw
were
man on my
all
position. This is a straw
horrible,
man on my
horrible
position.
people.
Simply because
and
I
that we
don't-
should just rip up all of their
No.
legacy and completely change the
no,
values
wrong.
of our country
Very
to
wrong.
what
Very
Sky
wrong.
News and the
This is
Americans
so
want
wrong.
us to do and the Jews want us to do and so on. That's
This
what
is
it
such
really
cope.
means to
This
be
is
an
such
Australian.
cope. This is such cope. This
All
is
right.
such cope.
All right.
I've never advocated. Half the things that he's put in my mouth here are just completely wrong lies.
Putting things in your mouth. That's your entire debate tactic.
That's
You
very
just put
disgusting.
things in people's mouths.
That's disgusting.
All you do is
I'm
argue
straight.
by straw
I am
man.
straight. I'm straight. I know that Nick Fuentes, your friend, is a cat boy or something like that, but I am straight. So please don't say things about my mouth, please. Fucking hell.
What the fuck?
That was
You just-
homophobic.
I've got nothing
words
wrong against
homophobic.
Why
I've
are
got
you
nothing wrong. I've got nothing wrong against
words
LGBT
are
people.
not
I'm just
dicks,
saying.
Drew.
I'm just saying.
It's
I've
kinda
got
weird
nothing.
that your
I've
mind
got
would go
nothing wrong
there.
against.
There's nothing
I've got
sexual about putting words in someone's mouth. It's just
No,
it's an
the
expression.
phrase you're using is very weird, and I'm just
You
saying,
used
please,
it
I don't want
first.
you.
You literally said, "Don't put words in my mouth."
Hey guys, this show we
what
try
does
to
that-
keep we
what
try
the
to keep
fuck are you
it
even saying?
very anti-homophobic. So let's not be homophobic.
I
not be
support
homophobic.
LGBT Australians. I
Very
support
good.
But look, Nick Fuentes, I know he's a cat boy, and I know he's your friend. Please, just put that to one side. We're talking about multicultural, and you don't have to bring in these types of things into the discussion.
Okay.
You literally brought it into the discussion.
Let's just
Yeah, but
clarify.
you went further, and it was kind
Let's
of
just
weird and
clarify. We're not going to be homophobic on the show. All right,
agree.
next.
I'm not
All right,
homophobic.
yeah,
I'm
okay, all right.
homophobic.
All right, well, let's not do it on the show. It's very important that the show doesn't do that.
That's also
All
an
right.
ancient Australian value. No
Yes.
pofters.
All right,
Drew wouldn't understand that.
Garrigan.
I'm straight.
Nis-
I've got nothing wrong against people who are gay. I don't think they should be killed like Julian wants in his fucking ISIS worldview. It's psycho and scary.
You realize that sodomy was illegal for the majority of Australia's history, though, right?
Okay, if you want to have your ISIS throw gays off buildings, paradise,
So, ISIS,
go,
so the
go
founding
move to
fathers-
Iraq. Go
the-
move to
the-
Syria.
The Australians, for the first half of our nation's existence, they were basically ISIS.
I just saw.
Right?
Look.
They were
We just
horrible racist.
We just need to be
homophobes. They were
careful.
all ISIS, Nazi. They should. They're all horrible
Joel.
people.
Drew.
That's
is,
what Drew
Next
thinks.
question.
Drew has
Next
clarified that he's very pro LGBTQ,
Yes.
and we're not going to be homophobic
Next
on the
question.
show. There you go. All right.
Well,
next
I'm
question.
homophobic on the show.
Good for
Next
you.
show. Misto. Oh,
Maybe you protest too much because your friend Nick Fuentes
okay.
is
Real
a cat
fast.
boy.
Real fast. How did
Didn't
we
Nick
get down here?
talk
Oh yeah, here you
about
go.
gay raping people? I don't know, it's weird.
Spinecker McNin. I don't know. It's probably some racial slur. This
You're gonna attack
retard.
some person that I'm friends
Here,
with.
hold
other than
up.
me. You know,
This
like, why don't you just try
retard.
attacking
Here,
me?
hold up. I'm muting you guys. Okay, hold up. This retard makes the same argument that trannies make. If you identify as Australian, even if you're Indian, you're Australian. Do you think that's a similarity? in,
Well, Drew's probably pro-tranny as well, right? Drew, you don't believe that in gender essentialism, do you? That would be horrible, right? That would be against the Bible.
I'm
Right, because-
against
because
you. I'm
neither
against
Jew
you.
nor
Look,
Greek
I'm
nor
against
man or
people
woman in
bullying-
Christ, right?
I'm against people bullying and discriminating against transgender people and your use of slurs.
But do you believe that a man who identifies as a woman is a woman? Do you think that?
Listen, Joel. I'm a man. I have a penis. I identify as a man. What other people want to do with their own lives. I don't understand some things that they'd want to do, but I'm against bullying. I'm against discrimination.
No, but I'm
I
asking
don't
you
want
a-
people.
I'm
I
asking
don't
you a
want people bullied or
philosophical
discriminated.
question.
That's all I want.
Is
I just don't
gender
want
a
people-
social construct, or is it based in biology? I'm just
Look,
curious.
personally, I hold to Christian views, but I also don't think that anyone should ever be bullied.
What's the
because they've
Christian
got
view in
different-
your interpretation?
Look, I understand that the Christian view is a socially conservative view when it comes to gender and sexuality. I'm personally Christian, but I don't want anyone to be bullied or discriminated against because of their sexuality or their gender.
Wait. So you think God has commanded something, but you don't think that society should implement what God has commanded?
No. I'm against your sort of throwing gays off buildings.
No, I'm asking you a
idea,
question.
please.
God has
Anyway,
commanded
we're going to the next
that
question.
homosexuality is immoral.
All right, I'm gonna give you guys. I'm gonna give you guys both the option. When
Look,
someone
I'm-
says
I'm
next,
personally- look,
no,
I'm
we're gonna
personally
roll.
not
No, I'm just,
All right.
I'm
All
curious.
right,
I'm
we're gonna roll. 'Cause
Look,
I
personally, I'm
apparently
only
these are
attracted
your
to women.
views.
Personally, I'm only attracted to women. For some Nazis, you can't say that. For some people like Nick Fuentes, you can't say that. That's okay. I'm not going to say that Nick Fuentes should be persecuted and thrown off a building. I don't think that. He
Well, that's
can
an
be- he can be
Islamic
gay.
thing. I'm talking about
Nick-
Christianity.
Nick can be gay if he wants. That's okay. We'll go on to the next question.
Okay, so yes, we clarified. Drew is pro LGBTQ. He is not homophobic.
Yeah, and if
Joel
Nick
is
Fuentes wants to
homophobic.
be gay, that's okay.
All right.
That's what it says in the Bible, does it, Drew? So you can
Look,
use the
look,
Bible when
look,
it says
look,
we've got to be
look, I am
multiracial. But when
personally
the Bible
Christian.
says we can't
I'm
have gay
personally
marriage
Christian.
and we can't have
Listen,
transgenderism, now
listen.
then fuck the Bible. Throw
Listen,
the Bible
no,
away,
Joel,
right, Drew?
listen,
Because the Bible only
listen, Joel.
applies when it suits your
Listen,
liberal
Joel.
democratic
Listen,
arguments.
Joel. Listen, Joel.
You're a fake Christian.
No, listen, Joel. Listen,
You're a
listen.
fake Christian.
Joel,
You just exposed yourself, Drew. No,
Mr.
no,
Julian,
you-
Mr. Julian DeVee,
you just
please.
fucked yourself up
Mr.
again.
Julian,
'Cause you're a
please, for the
fucking idiot, Drew.
For the
You're a
love
fucking
of
moron.
God, shut the fuck up.
You have
Mr.
no
Julian
coherence.
DeVee.
You haven't even
Mr.
thought that
Julian-
deeply about
Mr.
anything
Julian
that you
DeVee.
believe, have you?
Mr. Julian DeVee, I'm not personally going around and having gay sex. I'm not sure about you. I'm not sure about Nick Fuentes. If you guys want to do that, that's okay. I'm not interested in it. I know that the National Socialist Network
talking about the principle.
I know that the National Socialist Network like to go
See,
to the
this is what Drew
Grampians, and
does.
I know you guys like to take
Drew
photos
can't
without
actually
without
debate a
shirts
point
on. That's
logically.
okay. If
He
you
can't
guys
talk
want to
about
do
an
that, that's
actual
okay. It's
principle.
not-
All right, I've muted. Mics are muted. Mics are muted. It's fine. You can beef it out, but we got to go to the next question. All right. Here we go. Next question. Everyone's being unmuted in 3, 2, 1. You're back. All right. Next question. The Anatolian Greeks were replaced by the Ottoman Turks. Why can't you see the same thing happening to white Europeans? It's from Gregian Nazda. Is that what you're seeing happening here? The same thing with the Orthodox?
Listen, I'm Turkish and I'm a Kemalist, so Nah, look, I don't
Wait,
know.
what?
It's,
I don't know.
Well,
Is that
you
a
look
thing?
like you are.
Oh, thank you, Joel. Thank you, Mr. Julian Devi. I'm actually technically Greek Cypriot. I'm against ethnic cleansing. I'm not in favor of ethnic cleansing. I don't know if you got that.
I'm being ethnically cleansed right
no,
now.
you're not being ethnically cleansed. You're sitting here in a fucking studio.
The
Nothing's
Indians are
happening
pouring
to you.
into my country. The Chinese are pouring in. Eventually, I'm going to become a minority in my own country.
No one is ethnically cleansing you, Julian. No one's ethnically cleansing you.
Would you guys fist fight?
I'd love to box Drew, but I saw Drew on Twitter saying that he's never trained in his life. So that would be very bad for Drew. It would last only a few seconds. So he should train. Drew, you should take a, 6-month training camp, learn how to box, and we can do a
think about it. We'll
neoconservative,
think about it.
neoliberal versus
I know. I need to
Nazi
get back
boxing
in.
match.
There's a couple
We'll think
people
about it.
that I
We'll
don't
think
like
I'm
in the
confident
US.
I'll still
and I
beat
just
the shit out of you, but at
box
least
them.
you might be somewhat competitive. I don't know, maybe you can get one punch landed. But I'll rearrange your face.
Right. Well, all right.
It'll be enjoyable.
You can't talk.
Live.
You can't speak intellectually, so you resort to these cavemen type.
I've destroyed you intellectually, but I could also destroy you physically. I could dominate you on all spectrums, Drew.
No,
that
sounds
the
really
beauty.
gay.
That's the
Please,
beauty of
Mr.
this
Julian,
dynamic.
Please, Mr. Julian, don't talk about dominating me. I'm straight. Please.
Okay, we just need to clarify no homophobia.
I'm not homophobic. I'm just
Okay.
saying, if he was talking about dominating me, I'm not interested. Thank you.
Well, not sexually.
Good. I don't want that.
No,
Please.
I'm into
Thank
women.
you. That's
Everybody
disgusting.
knows the
Unfortunately,
show
women have
has
that into
two
you.
Actually,
rules.
I know that Julian was once advocating that 14-year-old girls should be married, and so it's actually kind of like you say you're into women, you're into girls. It's kind of
We have two rules on this show. Two rules on the show. Free discourse, no homophobia. Everyone knows that from the beginning of the show till now. Everybody will stop. Let's continue on to the next show. I am a gay black lesbian myself. Thank you very much for acknowledging me in the room. My pronouns, they changed, so I'm not even going to bring them up. If I was at CPAC, my pronouns are free and dumb. Okay, anyway. Risto Kilnov said, mass migration and miscegenation is a recent phenomenon largely due to globalism and international ideologies. These were never features when nations were devoutly Christian for the last 1,500 years. We'll just leave it. It's just a statement. Zoltanos said, if fascism is anti-Christ, why did clerical fascist groups like the Iron Guard exist? Cordonau, the leader of the Iron Guard, if I pronounced that right, might even be considered for sainthood. What is it? Codriano. Okay, thank you. I can't pronounce. I can't speak for shit.
The Romanian Iron Guard, they were
Well, it
blasphemous
said
against
they're
Christ.
considered for sainthood despite his strong support for Nazism.
Considered for sainthood.
I'm sorry for butchering that.
He blasphemed against Christ. The Romanian Iron Guard were a very disgusting, blasphemous organization.
What about you,
Yeah,
Joel?
but you
Yes,
think
no?
that gay marriage is okay, Drew?
Listen, Julian. I'm not personally going around and having gay sex. I'm not sure about you guys. I'm not sure about National Social Network. I know you guys go to the Grampians and you have these photos without shirts on. It's okay if you guys want to do
Public
Hey,
homosexuality.
no homophobia.
Yeah.
If you want to be, come on, guys.
He's the guy in the all-male
I'm
Nazi
an
club.
American. We love that shit. We export it to the whole world. Relax. All right.
Well, I support Globo Homo.
Okay, we've clarified. That's great.
And Zog.
Good. I'm an American. That's what our country is built upon. That's our entire nation is precluded on those two ideologies. I'm not joking. It's not even sarcastic. That's actually true. All right. Next one. That guy 300 said Cypriots Drew Pavlou Medi.
That's not my name. That's not my name.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Pavlou. 2 syllables.
No, he said Cypriots.
Drew, you can't pronounce anyone else's name correctly. You
said-
can't complain when they pronounce yours
He
incorrectly.
said Drew Pavlou Medi. They haven't made an argument for themselves. Oh, and then he Sig Heiled Hitler. Okay, so
Good on him.
All right, he's that guy at 300.
You should do one, Joel. You should do one. Mr.
Do what?
Julian. A Sig Heil.
So you support Sieg Heiling?
No. I just know that there's certain.
Maybe Antifa right. Maybe we
No,
are
no,
secretly
I'm
in
just
cahoots.
saying.
That's why you're so bad at arguing, because you're trying to make me look good.
No,
'Cause you're a
no,
secret
no,
Nazi,
no.
right?
I'm just saying.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Shut up. I'm
Maybe
saying.
you really are
I
from the
know
Golden
that there's
Dawn, Drew.
been. I know there's been
You really
recent.
do hate faggots, don't you? You really
Shut
do
the
hate
fuck up, cunt.
shitskins.
Shut the fuck up. I know that there's been recent legislative changes in Queensland and all these different states that prohibit the Sig Heil. And I was just wondering if Joel or Julian, as he's sometimes known, could potentially
No one knows me as Julian.
demonstrate his testicular fortitude by defying the legislation of Queensland.
Isn't it illegal to Sig Heil in
I know, and I was saying, surely as an Aryan Superman, you wouldn't let
we're
the
actually,
legislation
but we're
of
in
the
New
state of
South Wales
Parliament-
right now.
Ah, right. No, it's illegal in New South Wales as well.
It's also
so,
a federal crime, so it doesn't actually matter.
So I don't know. You should see.
Oh,
Are you
okay.
an Aryan Superman? Will you do it despite the laws of the country?
No, I'm not going to fucking go to jail. That would be insane.
All right.
No, because I'm a law-abiding citizen, Drew. Unlike
but
these
you would
black
kill-
immigrants, unlike these Sudanese that you love so much, stabbing elderly women to steal their Hyundai Gets in front of their granddaughters.
Can I say the
robbing
Hyundai
people's
Getz
houses.
is a really
I
sad
don't
car.
do that kind of behavior, Drew, 'cause I'm a white man. I obey the law.
Hey, that when I came here,
I'm a dignified, civilized individual.
and I agree, but the Hyundai Getz, we don't even have a car that bad in the U.S. Maybe we consider a Datsun, but I will say this. I'm sorry if any of you guys pulled up in that, but my wife owned one of those, so there's no shit talking when I got here. And I've never seen someone, put basically a little bit of hardened Jello and aluminum foil and turn it into a car. And it's like if you put a motor into like a children's wagon. That is the scariest thing you could ever drive. I don't even know if you could survive hitting a pole. It is these
You know what's scary though, Elijah? A
cars.
Sudanese group of youths stabbed an elderly white woman in front of her 6-year-old daughter to steal her Hyundai Gets for a joyride, stabbed her to death. And then the response of the Queensland government was, we don't want this to cause any racism against the black community. We can't blame them all for the actions of the few.
Listen, Julian.
Julian. Old women are getting stabbed in the street for frivolous reasons. Julian. This is a big problem because we live in a totally white supremacist society, right? Julian. We need to have more diversity, more inclusion. We need more of these niggers in our country because they're so...
Stop using that as disgusting
They enrich
language.
us so much. They enrich us so
retard.
much, Elijah.
Shut the fuck up, cunt. Stop using that disgusting language.
What do you mean? What are you going to do about it? Come over here and stop me. You're not going to do shit.
I'm not a Stone Age caveman like this.
No, of course, you're not going to stop me, so I can say what... I thought you believed in free speech, right? Aren't you a liberal Democrat? I should be able to say nigger as much as I want. Isn't that my constitutional, democratic, liberal right or whatever that you supposedly believe in?
All right, next question.
Your ideals don't actually have any coherence, do they, Drew?
Next.
As soon as a white man starts being racist, all of a sudden, fuck liberal democracy, right?
Saying these racial slurs has nothing to do with freedom of expression. It's very
well, no, it is. It's a form of expression. Am I free to express the N-word or not? Do I have the freedom?
Low IQ, very low
What do you mean it has nothing to do with freedom of expression? Is you can't determine what kinds of expression you're allowed to have or not have, and then also say I'm
intellectually. So
of
all you
free...
can do is resort to racial slurs.
Yeah, I can speak intellectually. I spoke intellectually before. You said it was boring. Called me a retard.
Hey, cunt! Stop the bad language. All right, there you go. All right, next.
Elijah's assimilating. He's just as Australian as you or I, Drew.
No, I would say it's you fucking cunt. It's always it's got a more of a grimy sound to it when the Aussies say it. Yeah, and also too, I have like one of the in America. I have a very distasteful American accent. We call it the Valley Girl accent. It's from North LA.
Canadian, to be honest.
That's what everyone here thinks I'm Canadian.
That's so offensive.
Yeah, I know, but also it's better than in the U.S., which is just you're a faggot. But in my accent is like actually proof that they're putting atrazine in the water. I always say that. And again, I think my last guest said we should be putting Ozempic in the bitch's water, not fluoride. And that's true.
We need to get Elijah hooked up on the Blair Cottrell trend work routine.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna get some test injections. My levels are pretty good, but they're like everyone else's, where they're like still 50% below what they should have been 50 years ago. You know what I mean? So it's like, you're in the 700, but it should be like 1200. So we'll see what we can do. This voice over this accent is not something I hope my son has. So I'll just say that. My dad has the exact same voice too. It's unfortunate. Let me read a couple more of these. Whatever someone said. Why is Japan safe, Drew? Because it's homogenous, retard. Whites don't need any permission to exist. Your gatekeeping bullshit is so pathetic. Only white countries are facing multiculturalism. We'll give a quick answer to that. Is that true? Is only white countries facing multiculturalism?
Wait, sorry, say that again.
I don't want to call you a retard again.
No, the other part of the question, the other part of the question.
He said only white countries are facing multiculturalism. Is that true?
I mean, no. I mean, there are plenty of look at Russia. Russia has multiculturalism. I mean, China.
Are Russians white?
China.
Yes.
China officially proclaims that it's a multicultural society. We know that
China's over 90% Chinese, though.
No, but as you said, I mean, the idea of Han has been the merging together of all these different groups.
It's a multi-ethnic, but not multiracial. They're all the same race. They're different ethnicities. It'd be like if you had like America, where you've got all these whites. Some are from Italy, some are from Germany, and so on. It's kind of analogous to like white Americans and their diversity.
But there's still, the Chinese Communist Party loves to tell everyone that there's, 56 or 62 or whatever officially sanctioned ethnic minority groups in China, etc. There are there are obviously many countries on earth that are multicultural.
But China's ruled by Han Chinese people.
But let me just say, for example, most countries on earth are multicultural, even non-white countries.
In China, they have the same word for nation and race. They don't have a different word in Chinese for the word race and the word nation. It's the same word in the Chinese language. They talk about the Chinese race and the Chinese nation.
We shouldn't copy the Han supremacist model of the Chinese Communist Party. It's a bad model. It's a bad model. I actually agreed with you when you said that China is a national socialist country today, but you said that's a good thing. I think it's a bad thing.
Can I ask you a question, though?
It's clearly benefiting the Chinese.
It's not benefiting the Chinese. Look at their society.
They are becoming
sclerotic.
more powerful.
Their society is sclerotic. They can't even have people giving birth. Their entire society.
China,
there are millions of people dropping out of the society. It's a miserable society.
People in China were as poor as Africans. They were the total backwater. They were dominated by foreign powers. Now they're asserting themselves as on the verge of superpower status. Now, I don't like this because I'm, like you, Drew, against the Chinese.
No, I'm not against the Chinese. I'm against the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah, well, I'm against the Chinese because they're Chinese. I don't want powerful China. I want a weak China. I want a strong white nation.
This is the difference between me and you. I would like to see a powerful democratic
because
China.
I want the Chinese weak. I say, well, I actually don't want them to be national socialists, but I could see them getting stronger through not a complete exposition of the same principles, but through applying some of the principles.
This is the difference. China as a democracy would be one of the best countries in the world. And I would like to see that happen because I want to see the people of China to do well. And I would like to see people all across the world do well because I believe in humanity. I believe every human being has a worth and value.
But don't you believe that the Chinese should be able to have their own values, Drew? The Chinese have the right to have their own country and run it the way they want to.
Nobody in China voted
or do you want to
for
impose? You're an imperialist. You want to impose Western values on China or something, right? You're a white supremacist.
Did I just notice in this studio? I don't know what the color correction is on this, but we all look like we're like in like a comic book. But I haven't used this computer in a while, so that's why. Okay, next question. I do appreciate it a lot. I am glad we got over the homophobia thing. I'm glad we all made progress, and now we realize the Chinese deserve their own home country, so we're all pro-Asian. However, I will say, as someone who worked in China for a while, I am not a fan. They are the most selfish piece of shit culture that you will ever experience, to the point to where I know a lot of Chinese people in California, and one of the main things that happens is they realize, oh, fuck, you don't intentionally close the elevator doors when people are trying to get in. Maybe you should hold them open. And it's this big mental thing where they don't even realize how self-seeking that culture is.
You can't generalize on that level.
Well, that's their culture.
You can,
that's the culture. That's the culture.
Stereotypes exist for a reason.
No, but that's the culture.
Because they are largely true.
That's all I should say is, I like Japan.
They had a psychologist that tried to prove that through experiment that stereotypes were false.
Every country on
and
Earth
they ended up proving that stereotypes are have more predictive accuracy than any other psychometric theoretical notion.
That was just me from working there.
This is empirical science, Drew. Stereotypes.
That was just me from working there. There was one of the meanest people I've ever dealt with.
People
in
don't
my
just
life,
develop ideas in their mind for no reason. The Chinese are this way just because for no reason. They develop them because they're true.
And someone said, what do I think about
stereotypes are based in truth.
Yeah, and then of course they're trying to get me on this. What do you think about the Jews? I'll tell you this. The Jews gave me a lot of money in my life until I started asking wrong questions, and then they took it away. But anyway, no, but I'm just kidding. No, it's totally a joke, by the way. Kind of. Greg, this person said, Drew, repeating Takfiri ISIS ad nauseum is not a cogent argument. What does that mean?
What I was saying was that the ideology that Joel has promoted is almost like a version of Takfiri jihadism, but just for white people, because it believes in the same types, in the same way that Takfiris go, you're not Muslim, we're banning this, banning that, banning this, you're not a real Muslim, we can kill you. This is basically Joel's ideology, because he says, oh, you're not a real Australian, you're not a true white Australian, therefore you can be.
So what you're saying is that the founding fathers of Australia were all like ISIS, right?
No.
But they were white nationalists just like me, Drew.
No, they weren't, no.
They were white nationalists. They deported a bunch of Chinese people when they created the country.
And obviously I disagree with that.
They created the country in order to create a coherent immigration policy and kick the Chinese out and keep Australia white.
I don't agree with Edmund
said it in Parliament, Drew. This is a matter of record.
I don't believe in Alfred Deakin and Edmund Barton's, like, their beliefs about foreign policy and white nationalism. I don't agree with that part.
Yeah, we know you don't agree with it. That's what I'm saying. But you're equating their views with ISIS.
No, I'm not, because you're even another level of radicalism above, because you're willing to countenance killing tens of millions of people.
All right, let me throw in a couple of more questions. I gotta get through these
people. That's your only argument.
You said that in the debate. You said that already, Mr. Devi.
Romanji said diversity would be our strength in America per Joel because Nick Fuentes is Mexican.
Exactly. Well said.
Agree with that?
Agree with what?
Just a statement.
Nick Fuentes is Mexican,
yeah,
and therefore it's a good example of diversity at work, isn't it? Is it not? Because you're friends with him. You're friends with him, and you think he's good.
I think if you ask Nick, would you prefer that you wouldn't be a quarter Mexican and that you would just be half Italian, half Irish? I think he would say yes.
So
I'd
what?
rather just be half Italian,
Will he have to be
Irish.
deported? Will he have to be deported in your ethno state?
He's not in my ethno-state, is he?
But if you were an American Nazi, if you have the exact same views but just transported
We
to
could
America,
have some honorary Aryans.
Can I say this though? America is a little more complicated than here. Like I
Nuremberg
mentioned earlier, when it comes to blacks, because of the slavery
if
issue.
you did the Nuremberg
real
laws,
fast,
Nick
listen,
Winters would have to be
listen,
deported, 'cause isn't it one
real
drop?
fast. I would say
No, that's not the Nuremberg
But I
laws.
would say
You
maybe
haven't
a
even- another example of your total historical
hold up.
illiteracy, Drew.
I was gonna
you haven't
say-
even read the Wikipedia article on the Nuremberg laws, have you?
First
At
of
least
all,
Destiny can Google the Wikipedia article on shit. You're even below that.
There's
Like,
some hot Latinas out there, okay? So, number one, no one's getting mad at some people getting tempted. Whether or not Joel's mad
I'm
that
upset
they,
at the people getting tempted. You got to reject it. You
yeah,
gotta
but listen.
maintain the purity of the bloodline. We
All
can't
I'm
be-
saying is the United States
can't be
borders
bleeding into hot
borders
Latinas.
Mexico. It's a country that shares a land border, and there's also a lot of Mexicans that are, even after the acquisition of land, that continue to live in the land. So it's a little more complicated considering the fact that Mexicans are also not really an indigenous people. It is a colonial people, a mixture of Spaniards and even the language itself is European. So we'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to argue against any of that. But Hispanics are a very interesting subsect of people.
So they're allowed in the ethno-state. Good to know.
No. I'm saying that's a different argument in America. I don't know what people argue in America on that. I'm just saying I think it's a different country with different ethnic issues. Beamer Boy 51 said, Dave, our
Mr. DeVee. He's talking to him.
All right,
He's talking to Julian here.
Dave, are whites in white countries obligated to accept their displacement and replacement if that would spare non-white suffering? I don't know what that means.
I'm not advocating for displacement. I'm not advocating for replacement. This is the straw man that you're constructing.
There's only a certain amount of space.
No.
There's only a certain amount of space.
Julian,
Either white
Julian,
people occupy the
shut fuck
space
up,
or
Julian.
non-whites occupy
Julian,
the space.
shut up, Julian.
Why do you keep calling me Julian? That's so strange. Like, what does that even mean? You just
Listen.
because everyone called you Dave. Now I'm Julian.
Listen, Julian.
Wow, this is so hilarious. This is cunning.
I'm kind of laughing.
I'm still talking.
What incredible wit that you have, Dave, Drew, whatever your name is.
Listen, Julian. Listen. I don't believe that anybody is inflicting ethnic cleansing on Julian here. Julian can just live as a white person and have his house and no one's ethnically cleansing him. You're hysterical. You're schizophrenic. You're believing that you're being ethnically cleansed when you're not being ethnically cleansed. Ethnic cleansing is a much different thing. Look at what's happening right now all across the world. There's ethnic cleansing of Armenians. There's arguably ethnic cleansing in Israel, Palestine.
Obviously, you can get more. But the thing is, like, we're setting ourselves up for the potential for things to get more extreme.
I feel like this whole debate is, hey, Joel, shut the fuck up. You're getting hysterical.
I'm getting hysterical.
Yes. No, I just feel like that's where we're at right now in the debate. You know, we're like yelling at
I've actually been,
Elijah's G'ing up.
I have been
He just
calm the
injected
entire debate.
Testosterone.
I have been calm the entire debate and level-headed and collected.
I'm not making any judgments on the debate portion of this at all, and I won't make any
You can be
public.
level-headed, non-level-headed.
I won't make any
doesn't fucking
public
matter.
assertions on.
What
I don't
matters
do
is
that.
the Indians need to fucking go because
the
I
fuck up.
want
What
to
matters?
Shut the fuck
have
up.
my own country.
Holy shit!
They've got their own country. It's called India. They don't like it tough.
No, it doesn't matter.
I have Indian friends who live in Australia. They're Indian Australians. They believe in Australia as a country.
But if living around Indians is so good,
Hey.
then why don't they want to live in India?
You know what
Because living around
Indians-
Indians sucks.
You know what Indians-
They agree with me. That's why they left India to come to Australia, because they agree living around Indians sucks. They want to live around white
I went to
people.
India.
Well,
It's a
I want to live
beautiful
around white
country.
people. I don't want to live around Indians.
I went to India.
Fuck
It's a beautiful
India.
country.
I've been to India. It's a shithole. The whole
I've
place
been to
stinks.
India. I've
I
been
would
to
never
India.
go back
It's an
there.
awesome country, and
That's why they want to leave.
India
It sucks.
I just muted your mics for a second, but I will say this: the Indians that get to leave first, so let's not deport them all, are the ones that have the audacity to open up Indian restaurants and not serve quality butter chicken. How dare you introduce the one positive note of diversity, which may or may not be spice food, and you fucked up your own cuisine? You're gone tomorrow,
But as
buddy.
Rowan Atkinson
Bean
said,
job,
Elijah,
you're gone. What?
Rowan Atkinson said, well, now that we have the recipes, is there any need for them to stay?
Yeah, and as Tony Abbott
We've
just
got
said
the
on air,
recipes.
they're using immigration to artificially inflate the economies because they fucked over the financial system so badly in this country that it's a poor form of economic stability. Do I agree with that? I don't know. I'm not from this country. I will just say this. If you were Indian and you make my cab smell, which they do, and I don't know why, that's one thing. But if you fuck up my butter chicken, you're gone, buddy. I don't even have any power, and I'm already deporting you. Gone. All right, next thing here. Jefferson Lee, 86, said, great performance by Joel. Dave,
this is Dave. Julian DeVee. DeVee. That's his last name.
Yeah,
It's
so
French.
you're so hilarious. This is such a
Dave-
great bit. Just
Dave
keep going
is-
back to it because it's comedy gold. It's comedy gold.
Yeah, just like it's comedy
Everyone
gold
at
when you
home
say
is
the N-word.
pissing themselves laughing right now. They're in hysterics.
Just
at how-
like, just like how it's
at
so
your
keck,
comedic
it's so
wit.
keck when you say the N-word, man. Hey.
All right.
It is keck.
No, it's not.
White people love
Great-
saying the N-word.
Great performance by Joel.
Okay?
Actually, black people in the, I would say this. If anyone spent 10 minutes going to one of the high schools I went to in LA, you'd end up a white nationalist, even if you were black. But if you had that's the joke, but it's true. But also, I will say, black people don't mind if you call them the N-word when you're younger, as long as you don't back down from it. Like if they ask you, what did you just say? And you just repeat it to them, they don't bother you. But if you act scared, one thing that black people are actually scared of in America, and this is crazy, is white people that aren't afraid of them. That's a really true thing. It's actually, they teach that when you play American football, because a lot of the players are drafted are black, and they try to use racial intimidation, and the coaches tell you, if you're a white guy, what? What happened, Brian? Brian? Oh, by who? Are we okay? Okay, cool. Tell him, Chief Trumpster, thank you so much for the raid. I thought you said we're getting rated, and I didn't know you meant digitally. I was like, I thought something bad was happening. All right, thank God that was clarified. Thank you, Chief Trumpster. All right, Dave is masking arguments for his own self-interest via lame universalist arguments, all while strawmanning Joel with his warnings about genocide. Dave has to go back. All right, we're not gonna respond to that.
Elijah, can I respond to what you said before?
Yeah,
about
go ahead.
blacks being afraid of whites who hold frame. There's a great. I want to recommend this. People should watch the roast of Daniel Carver on the Howard Stern show from the mid-2000s.
Shut the fuck up.
It's
Holy
absolutely
shit,
hilarious.
This is so annoying.
No, shut up. I'm making a recommendation to the people at home. It's fantastic. It's hilarious. Daniel Carver is like a grand wizard of the KKK, and they got a bunch of Jewish and black and homosexual comedians to roast him. And their roast entirely fails. He owns the show, and they all start infighting with one another, and it's fucking hilarious. I highly recommend it. And you could see when the black comedians are trying to roast this KKK grand wizard, they're shaking and so on. They're so rattled. And it's quite funny to see how rattled they are.
I just want to say this, though, on the flip side. I give a lot of my opinions on actresses and stuff, and I'll have the entire black community sometimes against me. And I always thought that was weird, because if you don't care about my opinion and I'm irrelevant, then why, as the husband of Halle Bailey, the Little Mermaid actress, why is he coming after me personally and my family? It's like, dude, you're a multimillionaire. I'm a retarded faggot that's in a homeless studio that's built in an old classroom. I should have no threat to you at all. You're the rich celebrity. I'm the poor guy, you know what I mean, who grew up in poverty in LA on food stamps. So let's just move on with that. And I have a doughy face. All right. But they're upset. And I guess it must be racial tension long-standing. But the U.S. is complicated in that regard. Ghost Doug Man, though, let me read this.
When you say that you don't find black women attractive, they get upset as if you're a racist. It's like, well...
Well, I don't think Drew. You
why
probably, you probably
attractive?
you have racial preferences, right, for women?
Man,
I just want to know. It's not a complicated question. Look, there's some women you find hotter than others, right? Based on, but not unique examples. Not like a unique black girl who's fucking, smoking that you might be tempted with.
They don't exist.
Do you have? I'm saying to him that he might agree with. I know you wouldn't think so.
I honestly think women of all different ethnic backgrounds are beautiful, and I think
Aboriginal women, ethnically
Wow, what a
Aboriginal.
controversial opinion.
Aboriginal women.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's fair.
But I have a girlfriend, so I won't say beyond what I've already said.
What race is she?
Fair.
There are lots of beautiful women.
Is she? What race is she?
Shut the fuck up, man.
I'm just curious.
not talking about my personal life with you. Shut the fuck up.
Well, I'm just curious what race she is. Wait,
I will say nobody's, especially if you're not people have keep memeing my dead mom and stuff, so it's probably wise to keep your personal shit out. I would recommend that. All right, let me read a couple of these.
Just a rate?
No, I know, but it's fine. I'm just saying because you never know who's watching. It's a total fine question too, but I know because, well, people send CP and rape porn and stuff to my wife on a regular basis, so it's
that's happened to my family members. So.
Yeah, it's no, it's not ideal. You know what I mean?
I think the question though is kind of relevant because if you're...
I'm not going into my personal life because I've had fucking 5 years of death threats from CCP cunts. Okay, so shut the fuck up.
I'm not advocating for anyone doing any death threats or anything like that. It's just interesting to know, are you coming from a place where if you have a non-white girlfriend, it would make sense of your position a little bit more because you're invested in non-white Australia.
Shut the fuck up,
you know what I mean?
Shut the fuck up. I'm not going into my personal life. I spent 5 years getting...
All right. Moving on. Ghost Dogman said, W. Elijah for hosting the live studio debate. Bravo. Good questions. Would watch a future one. W. Joel. We have quite a few more. I want to just get through these. If they're over $5, I'm reading them. Thank you for those that sent $1 and stuff, but I'm not reading them on air because we have too many. Non-whites are in white countries for white bobs and vagine. If everyone is being honest, sorry, fresh out. We aren't here for your sex post tourism. I don't know if that I'm just going to go past that one. I don't know if I would agree with that. I think people are here for a lot of times for economic opportunity. I think people are here for, ways for safety because their countries, for whatever reason they leave. I think there's a lot of complex reasons. I mean, for me, myself, I guess I did come here for Australian Bobs and Vagine. And then my son came from Australian Bobs and Vagine and now only loves Bobs. Yeah. So is my son. Yeah. So, Elon Bus said, yeah, I'm not just fucking here. Like, I'm getting out, by the way. I'm about to leave. Like, I'm not trying to take up land here. I'm just whisking away another. I don't want to get into too much of my wife's statements, but she even, including, I'm not going to say anything else because we get targeted and a lot of people, but they have very, my wife is a lot more, I would say, based than I am. Like, she's got more fundamental views because she's from this country and she grew up in Africa. And so she's kind of understood.
Why South African? I get it.
No, she's from Uganda, actually.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, it's she's from Uganda. She's from Tutsi. But she's actually from that. She's not even really Australian.
She's not Ugandan though. She's white. But.
Yeah, she's blue-eyed, brown hair. But yeah, but she's she's Caucasian. But I'm just saying it is interesting because even her perspective on minorities is more in the regard of when she lived there. It's not like somebody it's not like Joel. But she.
What do you mean? I grew up in a multicultural.
No. I meant they realized fundamentally why Uganda was backwards socially, and it wasn't because it was because they had a worldview that looked to ancestors in the past, and it caused a lack of forward thinking, and then in the present that caused them to not find certain solutions or work together as groups, and they tore each other down. Like if somebody created a food cart under a tree and there was shade and they were able to sell food, someone, instead of helping them grow the business, would cut the tree down so someone in the village couldn't get out of the village. And there was a lot of self-sabotage. And they're not racist. You even told me they're really nice to white people over there. It's very there's no racial tension there. It's just it's more Muslim Christian tension. That's more religion.
There's one Ugandan guy that have you heard of Pastor Semper?
Pastos, I am from Uganda. Pastor Semper. No, I don't know. I don't know who it is.
He's just it's a major public advocate of the because obviously in Uganda, it's illegal to be a homosexual. And
they're very based.
He's one of the main public advocates. He's very humorous.
Which we don't support Uganda.
No, but it'd be interesting to interview him. I find him to be quite humorous to listen to.
Okay, I will. I was going to say no homophobia on the show, but I'm saying I know they're very, it's ironic. Uganda's a unique country. Nut in Wife Makes Hitler Smile said, nice work, Joel. I know what that means. Okay.
Great audience here.
Yeah, I mean, these people are paying to say this stuff. I'm not going to get mad at them. I'm not going to name. These are their names. Let me go. I'm going to scroll down. Sorry, there's just so many chats here. Some of them are just $1. So let me just keep going. Okay, here's a couple more. Keep going. I see them. I'll just shout out to Deb saying, question for Joel. Why is Australia currently ranked 92nd in Economic Complexity Index, lower than Uganda, South Africa, and Kenya?
Good question.
I think it's largely because the Australian economy, this is going to be quite boring for people at home, but I think the Australian economy is dominated by natural resource extraction. There isn't a lot of manufacturing or, high-tech industries in Australia. It's like a service economy mixed with an agricultural and resource extraction economy, which is kind of the economy of more of a developing country than an advanced country. I think that's largely the case.
Yeah, is it called FIFO? I was gonna say people don't know this. This is one of the few Western countries that you can ever go to where being blue collar is not considered low. Okay, it could be low class, but being blue collar here, they don't call it blue collar; they call it tradie, and it's actually
we
highly
still call it blue collar. But yeah,
yeah. But what I meant is in
really
blue collar is used in the U.S. as a pejorative. People would know this.
You can make good money here as a
blue collar. You're actually well off here, and it's very respectable. You could drop out of high school and go into a tradie program, and then people fight for jobs in the mines and stuff. So in some ways it is like a developing country, but if you say, oh, I work in the mines, people are like, oh, you're fucking smart and you're rich and you have a good plan for your family. They're not assuming that you're just deadbeat, and they're in the U.S. there's a lot of discrimination against it. It really is true. And I'm not saying I believe that. I just know from upper class whites and Jews in L.A., they look down on the Hispanics who are blue collar, and it actually becomes even a racial divide. I know that for a fact. But National Bolshevist Zav also said, Drew is an idiot, so I'm not even going to address him. As for Joel, your nationalism is bourgeois. Only the seizure of the means of production can bring forth national sovereignty. Liberalism is dead. We'll just go past that. He doesn't like you guys. Romanji said, Native Emiratis are a minority in Dubai. It's mostly Indian. Oh, that's interesting. That's a point. So the Emiratis still have power, right? In Dubai, pretty sure they hold the power, right? In the mineral.
Yeah, but they don't give voting right. They don't naturalize the Indians. Okay. They treat them as like a slave labor class.
Well, slave labor is bad. So.
Drew with the controversial slave labor is bad. Drew with the controversial opinion. Wow, what a contribution.
Well, it's not clear whether you agree with that. So good on you.
Well, no, the point that I was making is that in the United Arab Emirates, they get an immigrant labor class in, but they don't give them citizenship and voting rights and so on, and allow them to take away the political power of the native Arabs who rule that country.
The DT said, you can talk about gay sex in men's testes all you want, Drew. It won't make you look more Greek. You're still a Turkish rape baby. Ooh, that's... What is up?
How much did he pay for that one?
That's $5, but I said anyway. So can I ask you a question? So bringing the personal thing up, because maybe I think I'm so cued out being an American on some of these things. What's the deal with the dig of being Turkish? Is that a Cyprus thing, or is that an Australian thing? What is that?
Just people know that historically Greeks and Turks have been at each other's throats.
Okay, I didn't know. I honestly didn't know that. I'm stupid.
So people think that's the worst.
But I thought diversity was a strength, Drew. Why wasn't the Ottoman Empire strengthened by all that ethnic diversity?
Yeah, the Ottoman Empire was such a diverse. It's a fucking empire. Fucking retard. Anyway, I'm actually not insulted by people who call me Turkish. I'm actually very good friends with Hassan Piker, in fact.
Really?
No, he fucking hates me.
It's like that's surprising because he's...
No, he hates me. I hate him as well, but it's funny.
You know what? It is really weird, the sectarian differences in the right and the left and all at the center.
Well, I'm a liberal and he's basically a tanky, so he's a communist, basically. So that's why I don't get along with him.
You know what? And I used to be pretty liberal myself, and I think that's why I can still laugh at myself and laugh at my own side, is because I always tell people I have a liberal personality but a conservative mind, meaning like I think I naturally, the way that I, being born in the middle of LA, just being born in a real multi-ethnic place, I'm just very comfortable and like able to live around difference of opinion, different people.
But
I've always been a minority.
Distinction, like ultimately, like American conservatives are also liberals. Like they're just
correct. But I think with the mind is what I say. Why I have a conservative mind is just because I have a liberal personality, it means that I don't claim to be a archetype or some sort of like conservative icon. I don't even claim to be conservative because I think my own actions throughout my life would say differently. However, that means I understand liberals quite well and where they're coming from. But I also understand conservatives who are bent that way. But also I think in my mind, if I had to agree with who seems to be more correct in a better fashion for society, I would side with conservatives. However, I just think current conservatives, like you said, are actually liberals. They just market themselves like conservatives. Like a lot of American conservatives, it's just liberalism with the brakes on it, kind of. You can be trans, you just can't be under 18 and trans. That's like basically the conservative movement today.
What Charlie Kirk said, like, pick a gender and stick with it. That's the conservative position.
Yeah, it's like you can
stop chopping and changing.
No, that's what it is. Like, don't chop your dick off unless you're 18. And I don't want to pay for it. But so I think it's kind of not conservatism.
There's only two genders. Pick one, right? That's the conservative position.
I'm a girl. I picked it. All right. A Salemate said, hey, genius Drew. When people come in, they are ethnically replacing the native population. Look at London. That is white genocide. So you're not Jewish, right?
I'm not Jewish.
Yeah, so I don't know where that came from.
He's too stupid to be Jewish.
Okay, well, I'm just going to say, do you think that what's going on in London is going to happen? I'll just say, you don't have to agree it's white genocide. Do you just think what's happening in London is what's going to happen in like Australia, like Sydney and stuff? Do you think that's where it's headed, or is that a unique situation?
Look, I don't think it's white genocide because no one's being genocided for being white. That said, the London situation is not good. I don't agree with people coming to liberal democracies and still espousing fundamentalist jihadist ideology. I don't agree with that.
So do you want to deport the Muslims?
No, I didn't say that.
Well, how are you going to get rid of them then?
No, anybody who personally commits a crime, then they will be deported for committing a crime. I don't believe in deporting people just because of their race or religion. There are many good Muslims who don't agree with that hardcore jihadist ideology.
But there's a lot of Muslims who have radical views. So should we deport them?
If somebody advocates the armed insurrection against the state, somebody like, for example, Julian, Mr. V, anybody who would advocate armed insurrection against the state, I think that they shouldn't have citizenship.
You're saying I should have my Australian citizenship revoked? I didn't actually...
Potentially, we'll see.
I didn't advocate for that, but you think... even though I am of the founding stock of Australia, apparently I don't fit with the Australian values
No,
anymore.
no, you can.
But apparently
stay,
this
I
isn't
guess.
white genocide.
You can stay. You
I
can
should
stay.
have my citizenship
You can
removed,
stay. Okay,
but
I
give
was
it to some
I was
Muslim
having a bit of
guy.
a laugh. I was having a bit of a laugh. You can stay, Mr. Julian Davey. But I'm saying if there is somebody,
We're talking about
look.
Muslims.
Here's the thing. Shut
Are
up.
they
I'm
they're
trying
not-
to actually. I had a little joke, but I'm going to the serious point. If you immigrate to a country, you need to integrate into the country and
But
the
they
society.
don't.
If you don't do it, and you're advocating violence against the state.
But what if you're not advocating
overthrowing the
violence, but
state?
you just don't integrate? Like, what if you just maintain your culture? You don't advocate violence, but you don't integrate. You don't adopt the identity of the host.
Well, I think people should, and
No, but if they don't,
what we need to do is
well, I'm
we've
saying
got to
what if they don't?
improve
Because a lot of them
education.
don't.
We've got to
Most
improve
of them
education.
don't actually.
No, not most. And look, for people,
Regardless, the people who don't, should they be deported?
I'm only in favor of deporting people who committed
So,
crime
no,
or who
wait.
advocate
If you're
violence,
saying that
insurrection
everyone in
against
the
the state.
society is supposed to adopt the same values to maintain cohesion, but then you're saying, but we shouldn't get rid of the people who won't adopt the
if there are
values.
people,
So then,
if there are people that
how
are
is this going to work?
If there are
through?
people struggling with the language, with integration, then we should have better education to help people.
But what if they
integrate.
don't want to integrate? What if they want to
Well,
go?
look, if
they want to
you-
move into their ethnic enclave and they want to maintain their culture.
No, well, look, if somebody
Isn't that their democratic and liberal
no,
freedom to do so?
look,
Or something?
if somebody
It
immigrates,
shows the stupidity
I'm
of your
trying
worldview.
to fucking answer the question, cunt. If you immigrate to a country and you're not interested in integrating and you want to have your own separate ethno-state, then yes, you shouldn't be part of the country. You shouldn't be there.
Okay, so a lot of the people who come to Western countries don't integrate. So you're saying they
No,
should be
but a lot of
deported.
people do, and you're
No,
advocating.
but the ones
you're
that,
advocating
the
people.
ones that don't.
No, the vast
Obviously, I
majority
want them
do. The
all
vast
gone.
majority do, and
But
you're
saying
trying
you
to
want-
say that people who do integrate should be deported just because of their
Yeah,
skin
yeah,
color.
okay,
And
but
that's
we're
wrong.
not talking about my position. We're talking about your position. I'm asking the people who don't integrate, should they be deported? Yes or no?
If somebody explicitly rejects the founding values of the country, like democracy, then they shouldn't be in the country.
Oh wait, but so you're saying that we should forcibly deport a group of people, but isn't that basically the same thing as saying
No,
that
not
it's
groups of
genocide? You
people.
want to
I'm
kill
not
them all?
advocating.
Apparently that's my position, right? I want to deport people.
Shut up! I'm trying to answer. I'm not saying that people should be deported as groups, individuals. If an individual doesn't believe in democracy and they oppose the
What's
democratic,
the difference?
well, if an individual, because you're saying that people should be targeted based on their group identity, that's wrong. If an
If
individual,
they want to maintain their group identity against adopting this Australian global homo
I'm
group
saying,
identity.
if there's an people should be judged as individuals. If there is an individual who advocates violence against the state, if they completely reject the democratic values of the state, they shouldn't be in the country. That's simple.
But they don't have to necessarily.
But people should be
advocate violence.
But
to
people
not
should be
integrate.
judged as individuals, not based on group identity, not based on race.
But the point that I'm just making, though, is that it seems like under your liberal definitions, you still think that it's okay to deport people. So
Well,
then
if
the difference
somebody
is just like,
commits-
who
if
are
somebody
we
commits a
deporting?
crime, they've
It's
got to
not
be deported.
Apparently, I'm this maniac wanting to deport people.
No. This is the difference between me and you. In Australia, somebody who commits a crime, who's convicted in a court of law, we have the rule of law in this country, they are deported. That is a good system. That is a good policy. But your strategy,
who don't integrate.
what you want is that somebody could be born here, live their entire life here for 30 years, they only know this country, this is their only home, and you want them deported because of their skin color. That's wrong. That's immoral. That's what you support.
Why is it immoral?
It's immoral because people shouldn't be judged based on their skin color. People should
Why
be
shouldn't
judged on their character.
Why shouldn't they be judged based upon their race? Why not?
No, because people shouldn't be judged on based
But
on their
why?
race.
But why? You see, you're
Because
stating that
human
you-
beings,
but
because human
why?
beings have a moral value.
Where does that
people
come from?
shouldn't. It comes from God.
So God says that
All human beings are equal. Yes.
So God,
Because
God says all human beings are
because
equal.
human beings are.
Why are we all
because
different races then? Why didn't God make us all one race?
Human beings are
don't
created
get
in
to
the
have our
image
own
of God.
separate countries.
Human beings are created in the image of God. There is divinity.
But why
to
did
all
God
human
make us all
beings.
different then if we're all the same? You're the one that's against nature as God created. God
No,
created
I'm
us
not. No,
all
I'm not.
different.
No, people.
And
you're
you're
making,
saying,
this
no,
is-
we
this
should
is-
just
this
pretend
is-
like God
No, you're
created us
making a
different, but we
mistake.
should just
You're
pretend
making.
we're all the
You
same.
actually can't understand my point. There's a difference between somebody's ethnicity and like. Okay, this is your thing. You think somebody should be judged based on their race. You think that people have no moral
They
worth
should go back
as
to their own
individuals.
country.
You think people have no moral worth as individuals. Somebody can be different.
If they want to kick
So,
me
oh,
out
let
of
me
their
explain, let me
country,
explain.
I'm not going to.
I will explain where
I
you're wrong.
understand it. If
Let me
Japan
explain-
didn't want to
okay,
let me
let
immigrate
me
to
explain
Japan
where I'm
because I'm
wrong.
not Japanese,
Julian,
that's
let
understandable.
me explain, Julian. Okay, I think that you're a horrible person. You've got terrible ideology. You're evil. I actually think you're evil. But you're still a human being at the end of the day. So I don't advocate breaches of your human rights. That is the distinction, right? People should be judged as individuals. If people commit
You just keep
crimes,
asserting people should be judged as individuals. But I said why? You can't actually answer why.
Because each human person is unique.
But each human person is unique, but we're all so different.
Yes, we are different.
We're different.
So people
therefore,
can be different,
shouldn't
but
we be
still have
judged
the same
differently
moral
because
worth.
we're different?
People can be.
We're all different. Therefore, we should
Yes.
be judged the same. That makes no
No,
sense,
no,
Drew.
no,
This is why you're
retard.
philosophically
No,
inept.
no. Everybody
You're
has.
defeating your own argument.
Okay,
We're all
so-
unique.
okay,
Therefore,
okay,
treat
let
us all
me
like
ask
we're
you
not
a
unique.
question
Treat us
then.
all like we're
Shut
not
the
unique. We're
fuck
all the
up.
same.
So should
You're a fucking moron.
So
It
okay,
makes no
let me ask you a
sense.
question. Let me ask you a question. You're supposedly trad Cav. Say you have a child. The child has Down syndrome. Do you think infanticide is permissible against that child?
If someone has Down syndrome, are we going to treat them like they don't have Down syndrome and everyone has to get together
No,
and
but they
pretend
still
like they don't have Down
they
syndrome?
still have a moral worth, and they shouldn't be killed because they have Down
But they should
syndrome.
be treated differently, correct?
Well,
we treat down people with Down syndrome and other
well, should they
kinds
should
of retarded
should they be
people, we treat
bashed
them
and
differently.
tortured and killed? No, they shouldn't be.
I never said they should be bashed, but we should treat them differently, correct? We should have different standards based
But if
upon
you
different people. We should have different standards for women, different standards for
if you
whites
were
and
to
blacks,
have
that
a
makes
child,
sense.
if you were to have a child that God forbid was born with disabilities, would it be possible? Would you say it's permissible to kill that child? That's wrong. That's morally disgusting.
But I'm not saying.
So somebody
but
can.
That's not the same thing. But we should treat it
No, but
differently.
you're
We're not going to
saying-
pretend. Everyone has to get together and pretend like the retarded kid isn't
No,
retarded.
no. You're saying that people who are different should be able to. That
They should
persecuting
be
them is
treated
justified.
differently. They should be treated.
No,
I'm
you're saying
the
it's
philosophical point, we
justified to
should treat
persecute these
differently.
people. You're saying it's justified to persecute these people.
If being sent back to the country where you belong is persecution, okay,
No,
fine.
you're
But that's-
saying that they
that's not
don't
the
have
same
a.
thing.
You're
I'm not
saying
saying we
they
should
don't
just
have a
shoot
moral
them in the
worth.
face.
So why would your child have? Okay, why should your child have moral value and worth if that child is disabled? In your worldview, you're saying that people who are different have different moral value.
But we don't treat retarded people the same. We don't go, hey, this
So
guy's
you
retarded.
what, you'd kill your
Let's
own
make
kid
him the
if
president.
if
Let's
you're-
put this retarded guy in charge of this university.
No, but
let's
you
make him
think-
the CEO
what,
of this huge Fortune
but
500
what?
company. No one does
What,
that.
so you believe
because
it-
we
but
know
you
that
would kill your
retarded
own
people are
child if he's
retarded,
disabled.
and so we can't treat them like they're not retarded.
But so what? You'd kill your own child if he's disabled.
what? No, I didn't say that.
No, you're saying
the stupidity-
No, because
this is
you're
your
saying,
whole argument. This is
Because
why
you're
you're a
saying
moron,
you're
Drew.
saying they have different moral worth, and if they don't have the same moral worth as other
they have a
human beings,
different
why
worth.
can't they be? Why
Did
can't
you guys
they
see
be
the
discarded?
screen? Did you guys see we put your name badges up? Can you see that? Julian DeVee and Dave Pavlou. Sorry, I'm a bit childish. I thought that was great. You can take them
This
off.
is a question though. This is a serious
You
question.
can take them off.
If
Take 'em
okay,
off.
if
Take 'em
treating people differently, if people have different moral worth based on their different characteristics, why should human rights be extended to your own child if your child is disabled?
We treat disabled people, and we should treat them differently, is what I said. We
Yes.
should treat people differently based upon their inherent characteristics. It makes no sense to treat
But
everyone the same.
you're saying that a
You agree
disabled
with that
child
on
is less morally
everything except
valuable.
race for
All
some
right,
fucking reason.
all right, guys, we got to read the rest of these because it's like
You're
3 in the
saying
morning in
people
the
have less
U.S.
moral worth
All right,
if they're disabled.
all right,
And
JT
I'm saying
man.
you still have moral worth even though you're
All right,
disabled
JT
person.
man says, Dave, what do you think about the situation in South Africa? That is the future for all white countries unless we change course. That's all I'm going to say is, do you think that was fine? Yes, no.
What?
South Africa?
Look, I don't like EFF, Malema, the schizo, kill the boa music chants that they do. It's schizo and wrong, and I'm against race hatred and sectarian violence, whether it's coming from, no matter where they're coming from, whether it's white supremacists or black supremacists. I'm against, ethnic violence and sectarianism and race hatred.
All right. Moving on. Ramandu said, does Joel know Alfred Deakin had a Jewish attorney general?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there were Jews at the start of Australia.
yeah.
There were a few Jews, yeah, but they were included in... They were Anglo Jews, they called them. They were,
Well, yeah, because
Wow, so they're acceptable now. They're
that was a
acceptable now.
mistake.
That's
They
Wait,
should-
can I just say
don't
this?
think
Can I just
they
say
should- I don't
this?
think they should have done
Why?
Netanyahu
Well,
is a
what do you
white
mean,
man.
why?
He's a Polish man, right? Netanyahu. He's actually Aryan, I'm pretty sure. Like Netanyahu. A lot of Jews are just Europeans, and they just claim to be Jewish. I'm not joking,
Well,
though.
no, something they just claim to be Jewish. A lot of them are mixed.
Yes, maybe, but I'm still saying like it is kind of funny because there is like, I saw this tweet, and this is not my personal thing. This guy said, I am black, I am Jewish, I am gay, and someone said, wow, God must have hated you. And I thought it was interesting because I'm like, that is crazy. Like Jews really are diverse, right? Like meaning I don't know what the thread
Well,
was.
there are
Interesting.
Ethiopian Jews and
Because they
whatnot.
mixed. They
Right,
got
right,
scattered
right.
around the world and they mixed with all these different host
Right,
populations.
but I don't do homophobia on the show, and we're gonna add anti-Semitism to the mix. None of that. All right.
But why is it a mistake that they were
Especially
included in
anti-Semitic homophobia. Imagine that. What if you're anti-Semitic,
What do you mean?
racist,
Why do you think it was a
homophobia?
mistake? Because
It's disgusting.
the Jews, as a group, have behaved subversively in Australian history.
It's just
The Jews that
cope.
came
It's
here
just
after the
cope.
Second
It's
World
just
War.
the cope. It's just the cope.
The
All right.
reason why ASIO exists, the reason why we have to create ASIO was because a bunch of Jewish communists immigrated here after World War II, infiltrated the government, and started sending state secrets to the Soviet Union. That's why we had to create ASIO. When we had a more homogenous society, we didn't even need to create ASIO because We could trust in the loyalty of everyone that was here. That's what happens when you bring in immigrants with foreign loyalties. They have foreign loyalties, and it subverts your society.
All right. Intentionally blank 07 said, Elijah, you titled the video Joel Davis versus Dave Pavlou. Okay. I didn't title this. It's titled wrong. That would make sense.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
All right. To be fair, though, the title is messed up because whatever title got put in here, that's not even the title that it was supposed to be. It's supposed to be called debate, and it's not even called the right thing. So whatever title's in here is a draft title, and that would be apologies for my crew and apologies for the people who wrote the show. Okay, so I'm sorry about that. But also to be fair, we got Julian DeVee, Elijah, and Dave Pulu, or as people call them, Drew Pulu. So we've changed the names. It's just gotten... I'm sorry, I have childish humor, guys, so you have to bear with me. Average Status said, Joel, you say that America hegemon is what made Australia liberal, and then why support the U.S. against RU in UA, not like RU can dominate AU? I don't even know what that means.
He's talking about Russia and Ukraine.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm not a fan of the current American elite, but the Ukrainian... Also, the other problem is that I'm not a fan of the Russian state as well. The Russian state is also anti-white. Russia's a multicultural country. They suppress white nationalism in Russia. Putin has jailed countless white nationalist activists, totally suppressed the ideology. And in Russia, it's even less possible to organize a dissident political movement in Russia because they have far less political freedom than they do in Western countries. But Russia's a majority white country. There's more white people in Russia than any other country in the world except the United States. And they're not able to advocate for their specifically Russian interests because the Russian imperial state has decided that the inclusion of all of these non-Russian, non-white minority ethnicities in this big super state that they've created with their expansionist aims and so on is what takes precedence over the interests of ethnic Russian people. And this is a common tactic that's used by tyrants to bring in foreigners, to bring in people who aren't of the majority ethnic group in order to disempower their potential political rivals, because they can bring in mercenary forces, they can bring in people who have direct loyalty to the sovereign, they don't have loyalty to the nation at large. We see this with Putin's relationship with that Chechen guy, can't remember his name off the top of my head. Yeah, Kadyrov and so on. This is a common tactic used by tyrants. So the Russian state is also replacing the white Russian population. They're bringing in lots and lots of immigrants, non-white immigrants into Russia. Moscow is filling up with brown people and so on, people that aren't ethnically Russian. And their rule over Ukraine, therefore, can't be trusted. I can see why the Ukrainian nationalists want to try and preserve their own country, want to preserve Ukrainian rule. They've had to get in bed with the Americans and with the West. And that also presents a large series of problems as well. But my sympathy is with them. They're in a very difficult position.
What do you think about the fact that Zelensky's Jewish?
Well, Zelensky's very unpopular in Ukraine. They had an opinion poll recently, and Zelensky only polled like 17%. The Ukrainian
and that's because he's Jewish.
As soon as the war is over, Zelensky is not going to be in power.
Well, by the way, I would just give a side note. I mean, so I've worked like pretty hand in hand with like some Ukrainians and Russians in terms of in the back scene politically, and from my understanding, that there was very few Christian leaders, including Putin, who wanted to post Orthodox against each other. And I don't know if it had as much to do with him being Jewish as it did with his like sort of atheism that he moved to, but they needed a global leader that didn't share direct ethnicity or direct religious affiliation, that was sort of willing to sacrifice Christian on Christian fighting there, because there was a lot of hesitancy with someone being excommunicated from the church, basically even jeopardizing their salvation. So there was like a bunch of discrepancies and issues in previous years of like a full-fledged conflict like this. So apparently that's why, even though he's like not, they kind of chose him because he's a fucking idiot from, like a...
Sounds like massive cope to me.
No, I'm saying he's like a fucking idiot, like who's just
the
like a comedian.
The point is that the Ukrainians that are fighting and dying on the battlefield, they're fighting for Ukraine, not for Zelensky.
That's what I'm saying, but for someone to go ahead and do that, there was a huge issue of not wanting it to happen.
That most of them are fighting for liberalism. They're fighting to be part of the European Union. They're fighting to be a democracy.
I don't know if they want to be fighting.
Ukrainians don't want to stay. Ukrainians, they're not motivated by nationalism.
It's about Ukrainian self-determination, but also they're fighting as well for the European to be part of the European Union.
Yeah, because they know that like they can't take on Russia on their own, and so they need Western support. They're in between a rock and a hard place. They're in a very difficult position.
All I was going to say
is my sympathy is with them, not with the United States.
I was going to say
with Russia. These two
Zelensky
imperial superpowers.
Also, Ukrainian women. Yes. All right.
When you said that Zelensky is sacrificing Christians, that is cooked. But next question.
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
No, it's not.
The truth is cooked.
People aren't fighting for Zelensky.
I know they're not. I'm saying the one who would authorize. A lot of times people...
Wait, wasn't your point just before that they are fighting for Zelensky?
No, I'm saying...
I made a joke.
No, you're flipping it
I made a
around.
joke
No.
because you're supporting
No,
Ukraine.
that
and
was
Zelensky
that was what he was saying. I'm
For the
saying...
Ukrainian people, not Zelensky.
I said the reason why he's in power is to authorize this, to execute this. They would have fought anyways, but a lot of people didn't want this to go forward, this full-scale conflict between Ukraine and Russia.
You know
Many
he was
leaders
pro-peace?
previously...
You know he was actually pro-peace?
Well,
when
he
ran
was
for
nothing.
election?
It's the same thing as saying Biden used to be against gay marriage. These are puppets that are compromised and blackmailed. These are not people with real
We should
Biden
do
used
a
to be
proper debate on
pro-segregation.
Ukraine.
yeah,
back in
they're
the
not
1970s.
they're not real individuals. I mean, I work in American politics, and I can tell you, it is the amount of people that are blackmailed is majority, and that's not.
Elijah, I'll debate
fun
you on
fact.
Ukraine next time. But
All
let's
right,
go
yeah,
next
that's
question.
fine. Alsamlum8 said, Drew, I found an old pic of you. Your nose used to be huge. What?
What are they saying?
Did you get a nose job to hide being Jewish?
Fucking retarded. Next
I know. I told you I'd read
You
them.
don't need to be Jewish to have a big nose. All those
I mean, look, I have a big,
races,
I have a
they've all
big
got
forehead.
noses.
I'm not actually balding, but I have a big forehead. Since I was a kid, it looked like I was balding. You don't have to have. Have a fucked up head. You know what I mean? Imagine this came out of my mom.
Big brain,
That's crazy.
dude. Big brain, big frontal lobe. You're very, very good at deferring gratification, perhaps. Maybe not.
Here we
That's
go.
not my experience.
I don't know. In life, I've made a lot of retarded decisions. Let's keep going on this. Bronze Age pervert fan said Joel Davis is a retard with no optics. Bronze Age pervert Steve Solaire and Curtis Yarvin are the future. Get Bap. Hanania.
You hate Bronze Age
Yarvin to
Jewish,
debate
right?
David.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of
Because he's
Of
Jewish.
Jews.
So
It's not just because
he's a Romanian Jew, so you hate him.
it's not just because of that. It's the influence, like the fact that because of his ethnic ties, he doesn't, in the same way that anyone else who doesn't have those ethnic ties are going to talk about the problems of the Jewish subversive influence over our race and our society and our civilization. And he underplays it, obviously, for ethnic reasons. That's my issue with him. My issue with Curtis,
very funny.
And Curtis Yarvin, it's the same thing. He does the same thing. So this is common with Jews in the dissident right. They always downplay the negative subversive role of Jews.
Such
and they kind of act as kind of apologists, basically, for why we should collaborate with why people should collaborate with Jews to save the West or whatever.
What if I'm Jewish? What if that's the whole thing? What if I'm a subversive Jew? It's possible. My last name's Schaefer. My name's Elijah Schaefer. I've got a very Jewish name. My wife's got a pointy nose. Who knows? Hers does. All right. Anyway, that's retarded. I just like you guys. By the way, someone that hates you guys both. This is so great. I'll end with this. I think this is the last one. Scott Sherrington said, both are wrong. A nation is built on religious culture. Religious differences cause more division than nationality. Christian people assimilate into Western culture. Non-Christians change it. Yes, no. Final thoughts.
Yeah, because the black Christians and the white Christians are getting along so well in the United States right now. I mean, this is just not true. Also, what about Catholic versus Protestant versus Orthodox? It isn't that simple. But also, obviously religious divisions are significant politically. That's just obviously the case. My view is that white people are collectively under attack for our race, regardless of what religious belief that we hold, and we should try and put our religious differences aside in order to defend ourselves against what's happening. Maybe once we've secured that, we can go back to arguing about our religious differences.
I know you're sighing over there. By the way, sometimes if you see how fucked up I look today, my audience knows I'm tired and greased up. I do this not only every day, some sort of long this thing every day, but also now I have 2 other shows, and I'm also now helping manage another media company that I'm helping build. It's been fucking 14-hour days every day, plus having a kid and stuff and other things going on. I'm totally with you. When you sighed right now, I was like, fuck yeah, me too. I just want to read a couple of these.
Definitely beer o'clock. I mean, I had a few beers on the show.
Yeah, I was like, I haven't even had any beers, and I'm like, oh, I look like I have. Bronze Age pervert said, can Joel explain his problems with Salier and Hanania? I don't.
Oh, is he talking about Hanania?
Hanania. I don't know. Who are these people? Are these people that we know?
Hanania I find kind of amusing in many ways. I mean, I find Bronze Age pervert amusing in many ways as well. But, obviously maybe one day I could debate Hanani. That could be kind of interesting. Maybe
we could. Dude, listen, we can do
Richard,
a lot more.
Richard
of these.
Hanania actually asked to be in this debate.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Hey, we can do more of these.
He says
Is
some
he
things
from
I
here?
agree with.
Is he from here?
It would be Richard Honey is a far more intelligent man.
Wait,
than,
is that the
Drew.
gay Jewish
so
guy?
that would be a much more enjoyable conversation.
No, he's Palestinian actually.
But he's big on Twitter, right?
He's big on Twitter and he's said a lot of things over the time. But
Is he in America?
he started
yeah.
out-
He's from the United States. I think he's ethnically Palestinian, but he's not pro-Palestinian. It's like Nietzschean pro.
But I would love. Is he the guy that argues for like gay
He's quite
pedophile
funny
shit or no?
In many ways.
Okay, I don't think
I don't. There's a lot of people that do that these days.
he once defended Epstein on the grounds that if you were 14 and you'd get $5 million or something like that, it should be permissible. I think he's got it like a
There's some things that
He's
should
an
not be
eccentric guy.
spoken.
That's why it'd be
But
great
I know,
content.
however, I know
It'd be
that
great
I know that Joel has said that 14-year-olds.
I didn't say 14.
No, you said that
That-
underage
that's-
women should be able to be.
Well, I just mentioned that's what that's people. Well, like that's Catholic.
Hey, my uncle
That's the
thought I was
the
hot when I
official
was
view of
6,
the Catholic
so-
Church.
You know.
That's
It's
all I said.
interesting. There's only one person on this panel who's engaged in that type of apologia for underage stuff.
Look,
And
my
that's
girlfriend
Julian
is
David
over
here.
18. Okay, I'm an age cuck. I'm not cunny pilled. So you can relax.
All right. Spearman said Jews have racial enclaves within the USA. Does Drew think Jews should be deported? Just stop. I
No,
don't want to
love
go there.
Jews. I love Jews.
Right. That's one of the
They're
third
good
points of
guys.
the show.
I'm friends with them. They're good guys.
Yeah, them. Who's them? It's like, hey,
Jews. I'm
dude,
friends
they don't
with-
even like each other, man. I'm
I'm
from
friends with
LA.
them.
I thought they were Australian.
No, I'm just talking globally. I'm friends with Jews. They're good
Well,
people.
okay. They're all from Israel, are they?
No, they're all from.
Oh,
all sorts of
okay,
the
but they're
world.
Jews. They're not Americans.
all-
They're not.
they're all
Oh,
parts of
that's
the world.
interesting.
They're all
It's interesting how they're Jews.
We're
It's
talking about a
interesting.
religion. We're talking about a religion.
No, we're not. We're talking about an ethnic group.
It's like
talking about it's an ethno-religion.
It's like if I said
It's a
I get
religion
along
based
with
upon the
Christians.
idea that an ethnicity was chosen by God, Drew.
It's like if I said,
Are
I
you
get
that
along with
fucking
Christians.
stupid? Are you that fucking stupid?
It is
Have
an
you
ethno
read
religion.
the Bible or the
It's
Torah?
an ethno religion. It's an ethno. But
Yeah.
I like Jewish people. They're funny. They're funny. I like Seinfeld. I like Jerry Seinfeld. He's a funny
Seinfeld is
guy.
hilarious. Jews are definitely funny.
Jerry Seinfeld, I'm a fan.
But why can't
the
they
guy
go
who
be
does
funny in
the
Israel
guy
and leave
who-
me the fuck
guy-
alone?
I thought you want Israel to be purged and pushed into the sea.
I don't really give a fuck. I just want them out of I want them out of Australia, America.
No, there are many Jews
The
who
dispute
are
between
proud
Palestine and
Australians,
Israel.
I like Jewish
If it
Australians.
wasn't, it wouldn't have to be my problem if they were just over there. Then it would just be some problem between.
Can I,
it
you know,
doesn't
this is
concern
where
me.
I'm the craziest. I'm actually the biggest Zionist in the country because I actually, and I mean this genuinely, I actually want Israel to exist so much that I want them to even change their laws that people that love Israel so much should also be able to become honorary Jews, and you guys they should all
we need
move
to
there.
deport the neoconservatives.
Well, they
to
should
Israel
all
as
move
well.
there because
Yeah.
if you want to fight their wars, they need more tax burden and they're going to need to develop a little more. So they're going to need like an additional like 10 million people juiced in. So go there, help them build
I'm
their
very
industries.
critical of Netanyahu
take
and
your
the
trade
actions of the
secrets and
Israeli
go.
government, but I like Jewish people.
Yeah. And many of which I have a significant amount of Jewish family. People know that. I'm very open about that.
What do you think about that, Julian?
Yeah. So I have a significant amount of Jewish family. That's crazy.
Julian DeVee,
Yeah.
why don't you go condemn Elijah here?
He has.
Well,
he slapped me with his balls.
Elijah is definitely not pro-Jewish, though. I mean, if you listen to his statements, I don't think his Jewish family has really assisted him in overcoming that anti-Semitic view. In fact,
Hey, I
maybe
hate
the
anti-Semitism. Stop
maybe,
it.
Maybe the opposite has occurred. Maybe when you spend time with Jews, maybe it has that kind of gradually I began to hate them kind of effect.
Cool
on a
it
lot
with
of
the
people.
anti-Semitic remarks, okay? Thank you.
I'm with him on that. We no anti-Semitism on this
As
show.
Patrick Bateman once said.
No homophobia. No anti-Semitism.
But you don't like
Inshallah.
Patrick Bateman, right? Because he kills people, and killing people is wrong, isn't it? Jews?
Inshallah.
That's
It is wrong.
the
That is
depth of your
wrong.
moral.
It is wrong.
Hello,
He's such a moral
It is
person because he thinks.
Yachkam,
I'm
Chanel,
far more moral than you.
Bachma
yeah.
Lecha.
Yeah. He's such a profound.
I'm gonna go into
intellectual.
I'm gonna go into
literally am
prayers.
compared to you, cunt.
Hey, all right, thank you. We're going in. We're going. Want to do that? Yeah.
God bless everyone.
That was nothing, by the way. I didn't mean nothing. I was just making a bunch of like throat sounds. That's pretty good though. You guys thought that was something
Just-
Middle Eastern, right?
Last statement. God bless everyone watching. If you've got schizophrenia and you're mentally ill, stop blaming Jews for everything. Go and see a mental health.
Get a gun.
Health professional.
If you have
No. Go see a therapist or something like that. I'm
All right, Stukes. Stukes said, great debating guest. Joel Davis is based, speaking the uncomfortable truths with conviction. Cheers from Communist Canada. And then a Zionist cuck said, 15 years of the same lefty talking points. Fuck the knee. They can suckle my balls more than the Jew Rose personal rabbi. Is that Nord Stream pipeline or a nose? Okay. All All right. I'm already cooked. Everyone knows this. By the end of after we go for 3 hours, my brain just gets absolutely juiced and fried, considering the fact that I still have several hours worth of content I need to make for actual news publications, like videos, which, by the way, I was going to say thank you and shout out to the new show. We did 7 million views in its first 2 weeks, launched, and I'm really proud of that. And it's doing really well. And it's going to be doing even better. We have Elon Musk already followed our page, which is pretty cool. So it's a great startup, great launch. Thank you guys for supporting. It's doing a lot better than this show. It's crazy what you can do when you don't touch on certain topics and you keep it, as we call it, keep it clean. So it's stuff your parents can enjoy, stuff the whole family can watch to stay informed. Make sure you check it out. You can catch me on the Gateway Pundits Rumble. You can catch it on X. It's posted on a couple of our pages. But it's been a lot of fun, and I really do enjoy it. You guys are awesome. In the end, I just want to give this closing statement. I really appreciate doing these debates. I think that we have lost something. We lost two things in our culture. First of all, good thing Joel's not in power. He would have banned dancing. So thank you very much.
Good thing Joel's not in power because I'd be dead.
Well, yeah. I said he banned dancing. It's the same thing, okay? So the thing is Shakira, what are we going to do without her? Her hips don't lie, but neither do we. And I got to tell you the truth. It is so important to realize we lost two things. I think we lost the ability to laugh. I'm not joking. Like we went from Howard Stern, putting literally retarded black midgets on shows and just enjoying them, to all of a sudden we're trying to make them our president. And I'm still laughing. But many people have forgot to continue to laugh at how ridiculous the world has been. And I said many years ago the future would be disabled. We wouldn't stop until we started electing people with literal Down syndrome. Just recently, some countries in the European Union did that. So we've lost our course in terms of being kind to people versus being led by people. There's a difference with having mercy and kindness and understanding that people can deserve life, but not deserve power. And I think that's what we've lost, is we've lost that. So now we don't debate anymore. We just mostly masturbate. And to weird porn, mostly people do. And we're very degenerated in our views, to where we've lost the ability to just communicate. We're never going to all get along. And this bullshit, churchianity of, God just taught us to love, this idea that we live in a pluralistic society that always was like this, has made us actually more divided than ever. We're unable to communicate. And as much as I am actually retarded, and it's not just a self-deprecating show, I also do think a little. I cuss a little. What words do I say? I don't know. But I can tell you that it is always of my desire to keep this show as the marijuana of right-wing politics. And I've always said that. It's just a gateway. Smoke a little bit of slightly offensive. Maybe you'll end up on heroin. Sucks for you. Or maybe you'll end up getting sober. Because as Drew liked to say tonight, you might have found yourself schizophrenic. So this show stays neutral in terms of just having fun and laughing. I'm a little more like Howard Stern is than he is today, like himself. But I'm really appreciative to everyone who comes on the show. I really, truly do. As Drew knows, this show's sole intent and purpose is to fight homophobia. I mean, it really was. That's why we started it, and we'll continue on. Drew, not a closing statement, a last statement to the audience. A thank you, this, and then Joel, and we'll sign out here.
Sure thing. Nazism is evil. Genocide is evil. Mass murder is evil. Racism and slavery is evil. People should be judged on their individual character, not on race. Joel is a schizo psycho, and he's miserable, and he blames the Jews for everything that has ever gone wrong in his life. And he's had no accomplishments as a person, and he's very sad, and it's actually sad as fuck. All right, next.
Go ahead, Joel.
Go to Julian.
Julian DeVee.
Oh, I had a lot of fun, and I hope everyone at home had a lot of fun. I tried to make it fun for you. Drew complied with his stupidity and oafishness, so hopefully it was entertaining for the people at home. And I actually love my life. I'm very blessed. Got great friends, great family, great people around me, and I absolutely love this. This is great. This whole it sucks that white people are being subjugated on a kind of mass civilizational scale, but it's quite fun to be a radical resisting that actually in some way. And I just really appreciate all the white people out there that are supportive and that are waking up and building what's going to keep growing as this larger and larger movement. against the retarded opinions of people like Drew, where they can, as you can see here, there really isn't that much substance behind any of this stuff. It's totally propped up by this, social game, the kind of institutional elite reinforcing it through their propaganda and so on. But really, our enemies are quite stupid. They're quite retarded. They're not that interesting. They're not that profound. Our ideas are actually a lot more interesting. I think that has been demonstrated today.
You are literally retarded.
Hey, so am I.
As we can see here.
Honestly, I am too. So in saying that, as we like to close out the show every single time, the Holocaust happened, and if you don't believe it, visit Auschwitz. And that's my sign out.
I've gone to Auschwitz. It's sad.
Right, that's my point. That's my point.
I've literally gone.
Well, I believe you. I'm
not a fucking psychopath like Julian Davey here.
Right, so that's why we sign out with that.
I'm a psychopath that didn't go to Auschwitz.
No, because you think the Holocaust is good.
All right.
I don't think it happened.
I feel like these are the voices on my shoulder. It didn't happen. It's the worst thing. All right.
That's
Signing
funny
out.
though. They always say
What?
like, "Oh, you don't think the Holocaust happened?" And they, as if like you're justifying it or something. It's like the two things can't be the same.
Well,
Like,
as
if you don't think it happened, wouldn't that mean like, oh, maybe he's not such a bad guy? He doesn't actually think.
I gotta say this.
You know what
I wish
the two positions just aren't compatible. It's
I
like,
hope
You are an
believe it
evil
happened.
person. You are an evil psycho person.
this
I will
is-
make sure that you never get near power anywhere.
Well, I mean, if it's people like you that are in my way and people like me's way, then I think we've got a pretty easy run.
Global Homo regime will fucking stop you.
I'll say this. I hope Holocaust deniers are right, because that would mean less dead Jews, which is the ultimate goal of the show. Thank you so much again for watching. Have a great rest of the week. And may God bless the United States of America. Don't forget to support Censored TV promo code OFFENSIVE for making this possible. Links in the description. I'm signing out.